Buonasera cari amici eletronauti, benvenuti in questa nuova live. Ragazzi, siamo già prontissimi perché Tesla oggi ha proprio spaccato il minuto. No, non è vero, in realtà non ha spaccato il minuto, ma non fa niente, non fa niente. Eccoci sul palco di Tesla, ragazzi. Buonasera, ciao Ginger, ciao Asku.
Buonasera, buonasera.
Bravi, ci siete? Okay, perfetto. Come potete vedere, abbiamo le azioni di Tesla qui, per vedere che cacchio succede. Siamo noi 3 e poi il tizio che parla. Penso che tutta la prima parte sia la solita: "Okay, ciao, eccoci, noi siamo gran fighi" e, ci fanno vedere un po' di numeri, eccetera, eccetera. Ma vediamo insieme.
Divided today's presentation into 3 parts. The first of which, we're going to go macro. What does it take to convert Earth to sustainable energy generation and use? The second, we want to talk about Tesla's contribution to that global
Buonasera a
need.
tutti ragazzi,
We're going to go
Generale Elettrico,
function
buonasera,
by
DJ
function
Infinity, EV
through
Test,
the company,
Felice
and to
Zima,
meet our entire leadership team.
Igor
And we're going
Temperino,
to get into
Giancarlo
the
Ficano,
details of what those teams are doing
Ciao
as
Giuseppe.
part of the broader goal.
Matteo Quarto,
And then in the
Hyper.
third part, we're going to bring it back up and talk about what this all means for the company as a whole. So before we get started, statements made in this presentation are
Ciao
forward-looking
Kim,
statements
ciao Luigi,
that are
Jacopo,
subject to
buonasera.
risks and uncertainties. More details can be found in our written materials. So with that, let's get started.
Adesso penso ragazzi che
Part
salirà
one,
sul palco
Elon Musk and Drew Baglino.
il bravissimo Elon Musk.
Eccolo,
Ci siamo?
eccolo, il buon muschio.
Il buon muschio.
Ciao Marco, Irene Gattuso.
All right, master plan part 3.
Right.
So, as Zach was mentioning, the thing that I think is we wanted to convey, probably more importantly than anything else that we talk about here, is that there is a clear path to a sustainable energy Earth. It's not, it doesn't require destroying natural habitats. It doesn't require us to be austere and stop using electricity and sort of be in the cold or anything. The story, and I think this holds together quite well, and we'll be actually publishing a detailed white paper with all of our assumptions and calculations, is that there is a clear path to a fully sustainable Earth. And sort of be in the cold or anything. And I'm just often shocked and surprised by how few people realize this. Most of the smart people I know actually don't see this clear path. They think that
Ma tutta questa prima parte, ragazzi, potrebbe essere riassunta in Elon Musk sta cercando di spiegarci Tesla cosa vuole fare per il pianeta e ci sta spiegando che il problema principale è l'energia, la creazione dell'energia, un'energia pulita.
The calculations for how to create a sustainable energy civilization.
Yeah. And to set the stage, today our energy economy, let's be honest, it's dirty and it's wasteful. Over 80% of global
L'80% di tutta l'energia globale proviene da fossil fuels, combustibili fossili. Video in diretta, Luigi, sì. È solo il 20% dalle rinnovabili.
People who are like, you know, whatever, level 9 wizards in the subject to people who do not do engineering at all. So, if you have a gasoline car, you're converting less than a third, often maybe only 25% of the energy in the gasoline is converted into motion. The rest is turned into waste heat.
E adesso
Doesn't do
sta
any good at
parlando
all.
appunto
And there's a lot of
della
potential
conversione
for once you get the
dell'energia,
oil out of the
e
ground,
se
to
avete
refine the oil
un'auto a
and to
gasolio, ad
transport the
esempio, o
gasoline
comunque a
to the gas
benzina,
station.
riuscite
So
a
when you do all
convertire
that
più o meno
for
solo il
a typical
25-30%
gasoline
di
car, it's
energia
actually
da
going to be
quella
using less
diciamo
than
da quel tipo
20%
di
when considered
carburante con i
of
motori che ci
the
sono oggi.
energy from the
E quindi
oil actually goes into
ovviamente
motion.
non è il massimo,
So
non è il massimo.
this is when I see people when we see people doing calculations for what does it take to create a sustainable energy Earth, they assume that the same energy amount is required for an electrified civilization versus a combustion civilization. This is not true, because most of the energy of combustion is waste heat.
And even to get the fuel to combust in the first place and get it to the end use, there's a lot lost along the way. I mean, this is the primary energy consumption, 165 petawatt hours a year. Petawatt hour is a trillion kilowatt hours, so it's a large amount of energy. But the nice thing about electrified economy, there's a better way, we're going to talk about it, is that through end use efficiency and through efficiency along every step of the way, actually the total energy use halves. So this is one of the most enabling aspects of electrifying everything, is that the sustainable energy economy is that much easier to accomplish. It's actually half the problem statement of the fossil fuel economy.
Yeah, and we're being conservative here, so it could be better than half, but we're trying to have assumptions that are reasonable, not overly optimistic, in fact, slightly pessimistic. So it's really better than half, but just say it's easy to make the argument that we need half as much energy with an electric economy versus a combustion economy.
Yep. So how the master plan works? You want to talk
Yeah.
about?
So
Sembra esserci un piano per
the thing that
produrre
is needed
energia
at
sostenibile.
very large scale that is not currently present is a vast amount of battery energy storage. Our rough calculations are
Che proviene dal
that it's about
sole,
240 terawatt hours
storage
or
di batterie.
240,000 gigawatt hours.
Male. Parliamo di
This is a
240
lot of batteries, but
terawattora
it is actually a
di
very
storage
achievable amount. We'll go into details on that. So
e 30
that's a
terawatt
combination of
di
electric
pannelli solari
vehicles and stationary
fondamentalmente.
storage. So if you've got solar or wind, you've got to store the energy when the wind is not blowing, the sun is not shining.
Anche da vento.
And so we're assuming sort of an 8-to-1 ratio of stored energy to power. So 30
10
terawatt hours of
trilioni
power,
di dollari
30
di
30
investimento.
terawatts of power.
Spiccioli.
Our
Sì.
actual capital expenditure calculation for manufacturing investment is more like 6 trillion, but we made it higher to
Not bad.
make it 10 trillion.
Beh, ma
And
già
this
il
is
fatto che
across
abbiano fatto i calcoli
mining,
e
refining,
abbiano detto che ci vuole
battery
anche molta
factories, recycling,
meno
vehicle
terra
factories, all the
di
things
quello
that
che
we're going to talk
pensiamo,
about needing
non
to
è
invest
male.
in to build this sustainable energy economy.
Beh, ci
Yeah,
sta già
you know,
per
if
smontare
you look at
qualche
the
critica.
total world
Sì,
economy,
esatto.
it's just under 100 trillion. So if this
Guardate
was
che
spread
ci
out,
chiedono
say,
di
over
spostare
10
le
years, it
miniature
would be
nostre per vedere i
1% of the
sottotitoli.
global economy. Over 20 years, it would
Non
be
ci sono i
0.5%
sottotitoli
of the global
di
economy.
Auto.
So
No,
this
forse
is,
li
Ah,
abbiamo
ok.
lasciati. Aspetta.
yeah,
Allora le sposto
not
di
a
là.
big number relative to the
Così?
global economy.
Sì, dovrebbe andare bene, ce lo
As we
dicevano in
mentioned, you
chat.
need about half as
Va
much
bene.
energy
Scusate,
with
ma
an
mi sono
electric
perso
economy
le
versus a
chat.
combustion economy. And in terms of wind and solar, how much land would be used? It's less than 0.2% of the land area of Earth. Generally, people don't realize quite how much energy is reaching us from the sun. It's roughly a gigawatt per square kilometer. And the sun doesn't shine all the time, but it's if you multiply that by
Abbiamo cominciato da circa 10 minuti.
4 to get the continuous power, 4 or 5, then that gives you the land area of solar. And you can put wind and solar often in the same place. So a lot of places that currently have wind, you could have solar there and you double your energy.
Non c'è in realtà moltissimo da tradurre qua, ragazzi. Praticamente stanno parlando di questo piano per andare a elettrificare e generare energia con sole e vento e fare uno storage con centinaia di terawattora di batterie.
Yeah.
And do the resources and raw materials exist to support this transition? We'll go through that in
240
detail,
terawattora.
but we do not see any insurmountable resource challenges at all. In fact, in the end, we should be mining less
Ah.
ore to accomplish this
E
economy of the
oltretutto
curve
dicono
of
che
cost per
non
pound.
c'è,
Yeah,
assolutamente
just to emphasize
problema
that again,
di
the
materie
electrified
prime
economy
per
will require less
creare
mining
una
than the current economy
diciamo,
does. Less.
una roba di questo genere gigantesca.
So this is the plan, and now we'll get into a little more of the details of the plan.
Vediamo
Basically,
il loro
5
piano per
areas of work.
rimuovere i
First, renewable
fossil
power,
fuels.
the existing grid. Second, switch to electric vehicles. Third, switch homes, businesses, and industry heating to heat pumps. Fourth, high temp heat delivery and storage for high temp industrial and chemical processes.
Ok.
And a little bit of green
Ok,
hydrogen in
quindi
there for
aumento
chemical processes that need
sostanziale
hydrogen.
del
And finally,
fotovoltaico
sustainably fuel planes and boats.
è il
These are the
35%
5
di
areas,
quello
and
che
we're gonna go
serve,
into detail on
poi
all of them.
si cambiano le
People's
auto,
opinion is that
poi
as
si
we
aggrediscono le
improve the energy
aziende
density of
e
batteries,
poi
you'll see
la
all
movimentazione
transportation,
pesante.
go fully electric, with the
Bello della
exception
slide
of
appena passata,
rockets,
tra l'altro,
which will
che
be,
Tesla Motors
but
componga
you
solamente il
can make the
21%
fuel with
del
Di
piano
questa roba
totale.
qua,
CO2
di
and
questo
water.
piano.
So you
Sì.
can make methane with CO2 and water.
Mitico.
So
And
in
you can
fact,
do
that's
that with just electricity. So.
yes, exactly. So in fact, on Mars, if we hopefully get there at some point, the atmosphere is CO2, and there's water ice throughout Mars. So you can take the CO2 and H2O and turn that into CH4, which is methane, and oxygen. So ultimately, even rockets can be electrified.
Un saluto a
So
Galeazzi
first,
che è collegato.
repowering the
Ciao
existing grid with
Andre,
renewables. And
benvenuto.
this is going to be a consistent theme. You'll see our estimates for the number of terawatt hours, terawatts, and trillions of investment at the bottom of the page. You know, this is already actively occurring in front of us. 60% of the generation added to the US grid was solar in 2022. And actually, on a year-on-year basis, solar deployment is growing 50% year-on-year as of 2022. So this is a serious upswing, and if we continue this trend, this is going to be behind us before we even know it.
Yeah.
Quindi
Second,
prima di tutto
switching to
stanno
electric
dicendo che
vehicles.
c'è bisogno
Again,
di
21% reduction in
utilizzare
fossil
ancora
fuel use. We're doing this
tantissimo le
alone.
rinnovabili. In
Obviously,
America si
Tesla is
pensa
heavily
di
engaged in this
fare
activity,
un piccolo
along with many
investimento,
others.
neanche grandissimo in
Overall,
realtà,
EV production
che
grew
occupa il
59% year-on-year in
35%
2022,
del
and
loro
EVs hit an
master
amazing
plan,
10%
e
market share. I mean, it's
successivamente
an awesome
switchare
milestone.
tutti su
I'm
elettrico.
super excited to see that.
Potrebbe
And
capitare magari anche dalle nostre
I mean,
parti, chi lo
this
sa.
is
7 trilioni di
obviously
dollari.
happening
7
very
trilioni di
rapidly.
dollari, vabbè, non è un
And
grandissimo,
I think
una grandissima
Importante.
spesa
really
per
the
un
whole cause will
paese
go to
così grande.
fully electric and autonomous. And so riding a non-autonomous gasoline car is going to be analogous to riding a horse and using a flip phone. That's basically going to be the
Ok, poi
situation.
adesso stanno
And we actually
parlando un
took a
po'
somewhat
della
conservative
guida
assumption here in
autonoma,
terms
dicendo
of how
che
many batteries are required,
ovviamente
'cause
quando si
the more the
arriverà a
fleet is
quel
autonomous,
punto
the fewer,
le
the
auto
smaller the fleet
saranno
needs to be,
veramente
just from a
autonome.
utility basis. So we're
Attenzione che
not
vediamo
accounting for all of those
due,
benefits. We're really
adesso
not sure those benefits
vedrete
at all
due
in this number.
macchine, due auto
And what does this fleet look
coperte,
like? You know,
attenzione.
just rough view from our
Eccole.
perspective. Of course, we could be wrong.
Eccole.
Due
But, you
addirittura.
know,
E
you can
uno
see
dei
the
due
sort of
sappiamo che è il
breakdown of the
mini
fleet by
robotaxi,
millions of vehicles.
che viene citato a Battery
You know,
Day.
our goal is to do 20 million electric
Non è
vehicles
bello
a year.
grosso, tra
Yeah.
l'altro.
Fewer vehicles will be needed, at least passenger vehicles, with autonomy. So there's some debate as to what that number is, but it's some number less than the number of vehicles needed today. There's roughly 2 billion cars and trucks in operation in the world today. And
Yeah, so what we show here is actually, I think, only 1.4 million or so. So
Yeah.
we're represent 1.4 billion, I mean, or so. So a smaller fleet, and you know the numbers around here in this presentation are around 85 million vehicles a year produced. Just to give you a sense of how we're thinking about this. Again, we're going to put all these assumptions up online and encourage people's thoughts.
Yeah. So so we're basically heading rapidly towards an electric.
Grazie mille Gattuso per la donazione di 10 euro.
Exciting.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why EVs are so enabling is this end-use efficiency point. Tesla Model 3, it's 4 times more efficient from the well to wheel
E
than
attenzione,
a Toyota Corolla. And that's
perché
all about the efficiency
qui
of getting the the
C'è
electricity
un
into the car in a sustainable energy economy.
C'è
and
una
then
bella
how efficient the car
slide.
is
Si parla di una
in
Tesla Model 3
transferring
che
that
è
stored
4
energy
volte
to
più
motion on the
efficiente di
road.
una Toyota Corolla.
When compared to the
E
engine in
vediamo
the
a che
Toyota
punto
Corolla and
arriviamo
all the
e dove siamo.
extraction, refining, transmission, distribution of the gasoline to the Toyota Corolla. And just for
Tra
this is a
l'altro,
fun
ho
reference.
scelto apposta il Toyota
Model
Corolla
3 can
perché è ancora
drive
più
over a
venduta.
mile
Forse
on
ancora
the
più
energy
venduta.
it takes
più
to boil a
venduta,
pot
più
of water for
vendute.
pasta. And then it can drive another
Sì, nel
mile
mondo.
on the energy it took to cook the pasta. And that pasta is 1 pound, and Model 3 is like 4,000 pounds. Just to give you a sense of just like, what, like, it really doesn't use a lot of energy to move a Model 3, that 4,000 pound object, down the road.
Also,
E
heat
qui
uses a lot more
sì,
energy
si
than
stanno un
motion.
attimo
Yeah.
vantando del fatto
But
che
people, you just boil a pot of
muovere
pasta, don't even
una
think
Tesla
about
Model
it.
3
It's
pur
just
pesando
interesting how efficient these
tanto
cars are.
non va ad utilizzare
Next,
tantissima
switching to
energia.
heat
Hanno
pumps in
fatto
homes, businesses, and industry.
una comparazione
Um,
con
right now, heat pumps
una
meet 10% of
pentola
global
di
heating
acqua
needs.
per scaldare la
Install
pasta,
rates
per fare la
growing
pasta
10%
asciutta,
year on
ecco.
year. It really needs to accelerate. Heat pumps can serve, heat applications up to 200 C in
Ecco,
businesses
e
and industry.
qui
And from an investment
chiaramente è
perspective,
come
as you can
quando
see on
noi
this
adesso
page, it's
andiamo a
actually the
mettere
lowest hanging fruit in terms of displacing fossil
i pannelli
fuels.
fotovoltaici,
You
dicono
might be
che
saying,
sarebbe
well,
il
what
caso di
exactly is a heat
passare
pump?
alle pompe di calore
Um,
anche in casa, per andare ovviamente
Heat pumps don't
a
move heat,
scaldare
don't
le nostre
create heat,
case.
they
Grazie mille
move heat.
Donato per la donazione di 2 euro.
When you think about like
Tra
a
l'altro è
natural
interessante
gas
che
furnace
diceva
in your
7
house, like
terawattora di
it is
potenza
generating
sempre
heat itself, but what the
disponibile,
heat pump is doing is
sia
actually moving
combinato
heat from
vento
outside of your
che
house into your
sole.
house. They're just an air
Assolutamente.
conditioner or a refrigerator in reverse. So we're surrounded by heat pumps. There's like, they're all over this factory. They're in your house.
E attenzione
And all
perché
this
non ha
really is just about
assolutamente
connecting them to
menzionato
displace
altre
all the
forme di
fossil fuel
energia,
heating in all the homes,
quindi solo
businesses,
vento e solo
and the
sole.
industry that we can. And from an end-use efficiency perspective, there's a three times reduction in the total energy required to heat these buildings.
Romperanno qualche
So
finestrino,
a real
dice?
obvious thing to do.
Minimo.
Yeah, heat pumps.
Può
They're in
essere.
our cars, yeah, now as default, and
Yep.
at some point we might make a heat pump for our home. So
Yeah, maybe.
maybe.
Next, a little bit more detail on electrifying high-temp sort of industrial chemical processes.
Ok, e adesso
over
invece
50%
si
of
parla
industrial heat
anche un
is
po'
greater
di
than 400
idrogeno.
C.
Si parla anche
Cement,
un po' di
steel,
idrogeno,
fertilizers, chemicals, plastics,
appunto per
metals refined
andare a
only need
magari a
like 1500 C.
sostituire
So
i
we have a
gas
solution here.
ancora in
Ultimately, it's
in
purpose-built
quelle
equipment that
aziende
enables
dove il
electrification.
gas è
Carbon and
necessario, come
graphite stable
vedete
up to
qui
20 to
c'è
100
una
C. There's
fornace
other options
o
in the
comunque
1500 C range, like silicon
un'azienda
carbide,
di questo
other
genere ha
materials.
sicuramente bisogno di
So the idea here is you
tanto
create
gas
and
per
store
andare
heat
a
when
scaldare e
renewable power
fare
is available. If this
il
is a
suo
sustainable
lavoro.
energy
E
economy,
qui si potrebbe
renewable
andare
energy is
ad
intermittent.
utilizzare
Peak of the day,
l'idrogeno,
you've
e
got
non è
more
una brutta
generation than you
idea,
need. You make a
assolutamente.
bunch of heat then, and then you transfer
Sì,
that
tipo
heat
nelle
into the
fonderie.
industrial process
Esatto.
24 hours a day using the stored heat you created when the sun or the wind was blowing. That's the concept here. And then on the hydrogen side, we also need green hydrogen to decarbonize metals and chemical refining processes. This is things like ammonia, making steel. There's roughly 120 million tons of hydrogen sourced from fossil fuel today to do these things. And hydrogen can also directly replace coal, which is currently used in a ton of steel production, through a process called directly reducing iron. You can replace blast furnaces with a hydrogen-reducing, direct reduced iron furnace. And this is the way to eliminate fossil fuels from these aspects of the economy and the CO2 associated with them.
Le ferriere.
Si possono convertire le fornaci in carbone in fornaci a idrogeno praticamente.
Esatto.
Some amount of
Sì.
hydrogen is
Sì.
needed for industrial processes. My personal opinion is that hydrogen will not be used meaningfully in transport.
Secondo Elon Musk l'idrogeno non verrà utilizzato per i trasporti.
Use CH4, not H2. But nonetheless, it is needed for industrial processes and can be produced just by
Beh, al momento in effetti la creazione dell'idrogeno, a meno che non arrivi da una fonte che produce diciamo energia a profusione senza andare a utilizzarla, quindi energia in eccesso, è praticamente inutile al momento andare a creare idrogeno.
It's ripe for electrification. Even with lithium iron phosphate, long haul ships can be fully battery powered. So that's a great opportunity to electrify Energy density is a little bit harder for planes, but short haul is doable today with some improvements. We'll get long haul.
E ora una cosa molto interessante che secondo Tesla, secondo gli ingegneri di Tesla, andare ad utilizzare la tecnologia che c'è già oggi all'interno di navi cargo con batterie, pannelli fotovoltaici, eccetera, eccetera, potrebbe già essere attuabile. Per gli aerei ancora c'è un problema di densità di energia, ma ci arriveremo.
E tra l'altro hanno sottolineato con batterie a litio,
Con batterie a litio, esatto.
quindi già col presente.
Source of energy. It's a different architecture. So, just like with an electric car, you wouldn't just take a gasoline car and stick a battery in it. That's very suboptimal. It's much more efficient to have the battery be the structure of the car.
Esatto, adesso stiamo parlando delle auto e si va a sottolineare come siano chiaramente migliori le performance delle auto che hanno una batteria integrata nel telaio.
Which you can buy it right now, actually. They're expensive, but I think that price will come down.
So when we stack up all of these efforts, we end up with the numbers we shared at the beginning of the presentation. 30 terawatts, 240 terawatt hours, $10 trillion. And you may be saying, like, I need some context. Is this feasible? Spoiler alert, it's entirely feasible. Just looking at it from a growth rate perspective, how much do we need to grow the deployment of these technologies?
Secondo Tesla, se continuiamo ad aumentare la produzione, la capacità di produzione, fino al 2030 potremmo essere sostenibili al 100% entro il 2050. Figo.
They have to grow 11x. Well, they grew 60% year on year last year. That growth rate is also going to close.
Tra l'altro la capacità di produzione del segmento solare e eolico va solamente triplicata,
Tesla's energy storage
che
business has
anche
grown at
relativamente
65%
sorprendente.
CAGR since 2016. The global, energy storage business is
Siamo
accelerating pace
tutti
as
in
well.
hype per la Model 2.
All these gaps are going to close, especially as this momentum of the transition to sustainable energy.
Batterie litio navi al momento.
And of course, our goal on
Per
this
aerei
page
vediamo
is
più avanti.
20 million EVs per year and 1 terawatt hour of stationary storage per year, basically as soon as we can. And then, what about this investment? How do I have a reference point on this investment? Elon mentioned it's 10% of, 1 year's
Negli ultimi
world
20
GDP.
anni gli
Another way of thinking
investimenti
about it is how does it compare to what
per
we're
i
investing,
combustibili
like what we
fossili sono
invested
stati di
last year in
14
the fossil fuel infrastructure.
wow,
And
14
it's
trilioni di
60% of that
dollari
investment. So actually,
e quello
building this
che
sustainable energy
serve
economy is less than
e
extending
invece
the fossil fuel
potrebbero
economy
essere 10
from a year-over-year
10
investment
trilioni di
basis. So
dollari per
very doable.
per
When we look
le
towards,
per
does
il
this
resto,
fit on the
insomma,
planet? Absolutely.
energie
Less
rinnovabili.
than 0.2% of land. As a
No.
reference point, the total land area intensively
Nel
farmed
mondo.
today is 12.5% of all land. So, I mean,
Wow.
you drive around, you see some farms, but you don't see them
Cioè
everywhere.
0,14% di terra in questo momento è dedicata ai pannelli fotovoltaici.
Sustainable energy land.
Non male.
And it doesn't
E ne abbiamo
need to
parecchia
displace,
altra, insomma, che ne avanza.
farmland
Of course
or,
not, yeah.
Forests or,
Pensiamo ad
jungle
esempio
or
quella
any other,
flottante
ecological reserve. It can be used in
sull'acqua.
very sparsely
Come potrebbe
populated
essere
desert regions.
interessante, dove lavorano ancora
Barren areas,
molto meglio i
areas that are just
pannelli,
not really
perché
fit
rimangono
for
freschi.
development or otherwise used, so.
Yeah.
I mean, 0.2% can fit into a lot of places.
Yeah, there's essentially no meaningful ecological impact. In fact, transition to a sustainable energy economy would result in a substantial reduction in current ecological impact.
It's a great way to put it.
Un'altra cosa molto interessante
And what about
e
on the
passare
mineral extraction side? So this is a
ad
cartoon
una
that sort of gives you
elettrificazione
a sense for all the
completa
ore
probabilmente
and the, like, extracted,
avrà bisogno di
minerals
meno
that are coming
minerali
out
di
of
quelli che
the
pensiamo.
Earth every year. It's about 68
È ottimistico.
gigatons. So each truck is a gigaton. What does this look like when we're in a sustainable energy economy? Looks like that. The fossil fuel extraction disappears. We replace it with the materials required to fulfill the sustainable energy economy. It actually reduces. Now, it's not to say that we
Sono
don't need
praticamente
to
scomparsi
continue to
18
explore,
gigatonnellate
mining and
Esatto.
refining for the
di fossil fuels
specific materials
in
for
altro
the sustainable
materiale.
energy economy. We do. But the investment and mass flows are all very achievable just looking at what is already happening on the planet. Like, this is nothing out of scale of what has been done and is already being done. And then when we calculate it on a sort of, element by element basis, the resources are there to support the transition. This is cumulative demand to move in the sustainable energy economy direction until 2050 relative to USGS resources today. We're not breaking the resource bank for any of these materials. And then when we look at what really happens as we move forward,
In
history
effetti
teaches the more we look, the
stiamo
more we
utilizzando
find.
tantissimo
What people
litio,
think happens
ma
is, oh,
veramente
there's this many resources,
poco,
next year there's going to be
poco
less because we're going to
nickel,
extract them. What
cobalto,
actually happens is,
eccetera.
as
E
we
vorrei ricordarvi che il
extract
litio
resources, we
non
find more.
è una
And you can
materia
see on
rara
the right
sul
what
nostro
has actually
pianeta.
occurred with the key
Non
materials
è
to the sustainable
descritta
energy
come
economy. Since
materiale
2000,
raro.
as the sustainable energy
Sì,
economy
non
has
fa
been
parte
growing,
della
its influence
tabella
has been growing, and all the
Dei
delle terre
materiali
infrastructure has
rare.
been growing,
Esatto.
the actual
Esatto.
resource availability has increased, not decreased.
Yeah, this still seems to be quite a bit of confusion about lithium. Lithium is extremely common. It's one of the most common
Esatto, è quello
elements
che
on
proprio
Earth.
sta dicendo in questo momento Elon Musk.
There's no country that
Cioè,
has
ci sono
monopoly
veramente
on
persone che
lithium,
dicono che il
or
litio
even
sia una terra rara, ma
close to it.
non lo è
There's
assolutamente.
enough
È
lithium
estremamente
ore in the
comune
United
trovare
States
del
to
litio
electrify all of Earth. If
ed
the
è
United States was the only
presente
place
su
producing
tutta la
lithium,
superficie
there's
terrestre.
enough domestic material to electrify Earth. It's very common. The limiting factor is the refining of the lithium into battery-grade lithium hydroxide or lithium carbonate. That's the actual limiting factor.
And the same is true for these other materials. And this is, again, these are not like crazy technologies. It's just the investments need to be made, and the investments, they're not gigantic. They just need to happen.
Right. Nickel is maybe of them all the trickiest one to solve. But as we showed with the graph there, maybe need like 30% of the world's known nickel reserves.
Il
So,
nickel
And the nickel
probabilmente
reserves have
è
actually
quel
grown
materiale che è
since
più difficile da
there is
recuperare
more
in questo momento.
So,
Ma di nickel ne abbiamo veramente
and you only
poco
need nickel
bisogno.
for basically aircraft.
Ci ha detto che la
boats,
parte più complessa è il
very
saper
long-range
raffinare il
sport
litio,
trucks.
praticamente.
Esatto.
But the vast majority of the heavy lifting for electrification will be iron-based cells. And iron is actually literally the most common element on Earth. So, a little trivia point, if you say like, what is Earth made of? By mass, it is made of iron more than anything else. And second, oxygen, and then everything else after that. So basically we're a muddy rust ball is what Earth is. So an iron cathode is sort of, you're definitely not going to run out of iron. There's so much iron, it's insane.
Diciamo che il futuro poi sarà andare ad utilizzare materiali ancora più comuni,
Yeah, and
ancora più
ultimately,
comuni,
this resource
magari come appunto andando a sostituire il
we go through this
nickel,
effort, we build
magari
these
con
batteries,
iron,
and then we recycle these
che
batteries.
c'è
So
praticamente
ultimately,
dappertutto nel nostro
we're doing
pianeta.
this to build this sustainable energy economy, but the maintenance
Sì, in
and
sostanza ha detto
ore
che
that we
praticamente
require
avere il
is
futuro
really
secondo
order of
lui è
magnitude
la cella al litio
less because of recycling.
con il ferro, quindi
Cosa
litio
in the end,
ferrofosfato.
Ah, la
LFP.
LFP.
a sustainable
Esatto.
energy economy is
Quindi a
within
quel
our reach,
punto non c'è
and we should
nessunissimo
accelerate it.
problema di materie rare.
I mean, so this is really the main message of today.
Figo
And
che
I really
abbia
wanted
detto
today
una
to be
cosa del genere.
not just about Tesla investors who own stock,
Perché le
pesante,
but really like
LFP
losing
sono un
investment.
po'...
And
Vuol dire che
the-
vabbè,
Sostiene il discorso che aveva preso
a
prima,
message of
che
hope
bisogna
and
lavorare
optimism.
su come si
Correttamente.
raffina il litio.
Optimism that is
Il
based
ferro è già a
on
posto.
actual physics and
Che sembra una
real
tecnologia più
calculations,
povera come
it's not
chimica,
wishful
ma
thinking.
probabilmente
Earth can
sarà
and
fatto
will
suo.
move to a
Beh,
sustainable
direi.
energy economy, and
Non è
will do
l'ultimo
so
arrivato.
in your lifetime.
Vediamo adesso.
Yes. Thank you.
Elon Musk lascia il palco.
Andiamo un po'.
Vediamo cosa
Niente
capita.
Model 2,
I
basta.
just want to
Addio.
welcome
Auto.
Tutti
Lars and Franz to the stage.
Attenzione, attenzione. Sale sul palco
Francesco.
i due designer di Tesla.
Il Franz Holzhausen.
Hi, I'm Franz.
Hi Franz.
I lead design at
Che
Tesla.
numero uno.
And I'm Lars. I've been doing vehicles with Franz for almost 13
Bella la
years.
maglietta, tra l'altro.
Sì, quando ancora non aveva i capelli
So I
suoi.
joined Tesla in 2008 to vertically integrate design into the
Cheap,
company. It didn't
infatti.
exist before. We had a pretty small team. It was tasked with designing the
Esatto.
most beautiful, innovative, and well-engineered vehicles on the planet. No small task in 2008. There was not a lot going on in the EV
Questo è
sector.
Model S pre-alfa.
Since then, we
Yes,
focused
qui
on
inizia
constant
l'hype,
improvement in
dice
cost,
Vitesse.
efficiency, innovation, things that you'll continue to hear about today, while continuing to design the most
Nel
desirable cars.
frattempo le azioni di Tesla
Today, we produce cars differently
non
than
si
we did
stanno
10 years
muovendo.
ago.
Sono
The end result
stabili.
is always an exciting, futuristic, and desirable set of vehicles.
Back then, we only had a handful of designers and
Sono a
engineers
meno
like myself,
1% in
but we had a great vision
mercato
to radically
serale.
change transportation.
Model S.
So back in 2008, where we were designing Model S, we didn't have a factory. In fact, we had a really small
Adesso stanno
engineering
facendo
team,
praticamente
a
una
tiny design team.
digressione di tutto.
But that allowed design to lead all the conversations. It let us innovate forward-thinking ideas, like how do you fit 7 people into a sedan? Or how do you make door handles disappear into the doors?
E ragazzi,
Or
vorrei
putting a
ringraziarvi
huge
perché
touchscreen
siamo
into the
in
center
oltre
of the vehicle,
900
something that
sul
people haven't
canale,
done before.
quasi 1000, quasi
And then we won Motor
1000
Trend Car of the Year.
spettatori.
Yes, and we won
Grazie,
Motor Trend Car of the Year
grazie
in
mille.
2013.
Mi
Probabilmente
raccomando,
Nice.
iscrivetevi al
record.
canale.
First, great award, first
Probabilmente
car.
record.
Pretty good start.
Probabilmente
Home
record,
run, I think.
ma non è ancora finito, perché ragazzi,
Presentano un
But
teaser.
that whole process resulted in a linear process that you see on the screen. We designed first, then we engineered, and then we figured out how to manufacture it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important. When we were
mi
designing
raccomando,
the car
iscrivetevi
together,
al
we
canale.
didn't even know where we were going to build it. And so we came up with
I didn't even know Lars when we were doing it.
That's true. We didn't, so once we got Fremont, we
Più
were very
del
fortunate and
TG2
we
di
figured out the
Gianluca.
manufacturing solution, sort of like we were flying a plane and
Svelata.
putting the wings and building the engine at the same time.
Non c'è niente di
So
interessante,
we knew we had to
diciamo.
do better.
Yeah, we knew we had to be better in order to scale. And
Ok.
as part of the master plan that you've read, Model 3
Diciamo che
needed to
dicono
be
che
a
il Model
smaller,
3 per
more
loro è
efficient, and more
stato
affordable
il momento
version
per
of Model S.
andare
It
a
had to be even
scalare la loro
great. It had all the
produzione e
things that
vendere
people
molto di
loved in
più.
their
Avevano
Model
bisogno
S
di un
or
nuovo
Model X,
design,
and
o
would
hanno
be much more
dovuto
affordable.
reingegnerizzare
And so
praticamente
we
tutto
approached
e,
the
non,
process
e a
a
questo
little bit
punto che
differently than the
avevano,
first time
diciamo,
around.
una
Now we
fabbrica,
had
hanno
teams that
potuto
we all worked
cominciare
together, so
e
we were
hanno
able to
tentato di
combine
creare
design, engineering, and manufacturing
una fabbrica
process
automatizzata.
all at
Vabbè,
the
lasciamo
same
stare.
time.
Non è andata proprio benissimo.
But somewhere along the way, we changed the manufacturing process
E
to
poi
be
dopo,
fully automated.
lungo la strada,
So we
hanno
leaned into this whole new way
cambiato
of manufacturing the car, and we had
dall'automatismo un
already
po' troppo
engineered it.
spinto,
So things didn't quite go as well as planned.
perché infatti
It
hanno
was an
avuto dei
amazing
problemi
product,
seri. Infatti
but
Model
it
3
landed us
production
in
hell.
production hell. Many of us who lived through that carry those battle scars. It was a great idea, but it wasn't
sì.
the right timing.
Bello nome Production
Like
Hell.
Franz said, automating something
Fa
that we
capire.
designed to be built manually is super hard. And we have many, many failed examples of that at the Fremont factory that we ripped out. But some of them eventually still work.
Madonna
This
che
is one
lenti
I
a
actually worked on with a small
montare
team of engineers. It's still running today.
due-
And some of the engineers that came by
due
said we
robine.
couldn't do it.
Vabbè,
are no
sei
longer with the
bulloni
company,
per volta.
but it's running,
ci
it's
sta.
running faster than
Tra
ever.
l'altro che
Più veloce io, raga.
no?
So we kind of self-imposed constraints on the design when we were doing it to be built manually, and we really didn't think about it. But despite all that, Model 3 is the best-selling EV ever.
Ma
Ci sta dicendo che
comunque,
hanno dovuto rivedere varie volte i
Which
diversi
derived from
design
Model
perché le
3,
macchine non
is about to
riuscivano
pass that.
ad automontare sullo chassis.
But
ma
we
comunque
knew
poi
we
stanno
had to
dicendo alla fine
improve
ce
the
l'abbiamo
process
fatta, la Model
further.
3 è
And with
l'auto
Cybertruck,
elettrica
we designed
più
a vehicle
venduta
around a
al
vision that
momento.
actually started with the manufacturing process. And in this case, the materials
E poi
dictated the
hanno
design.
buttato fuori
Forming
quella
full
roba
hard
qua,
stainless steel
il
isn't rocket
Cybertruck.
science, but it sure isn't easy. And it
Interamente
limited the way we could
diverso
do it.
come modalità di
It really
costruzione.
forced us to think about designing something
E la cosa si fa
in
interessante,
a way that
ragazzi.
you couldn't
Abbiamo
have
superato
always
anche i
stamped
1000 spettatori,
panels.
grazie,
You couldn't
grazie,
form
grazie
them in a
ragazzi.
traditional way. So you ended up with
Probabilmente il primo
very
veicolo con
linear,
senza un
bending
telaio ma con un
processes
Esatto.
that are just
esoscheletro.
not in
Il primo
automotive
veicolo in
kind of
assoluto
language of
con
manufacturing
un
today.
esoscheletro.
But it actually created a very efficient and process and one of the most dynamic designs ever.
Molto molto efficiente il
It's definitely
processo di
something that's
creazione
gonna
di
change the road
questa
landscape.
bestia.
Hopefully you guys saw it down there and you experienced it. It's definitely real. Those are real trucks. We're on our way to build them. But what that stainless steel opportunity did for us, it has let us rethink the factory footprint. We don't stamp those. That's a huge part of it. We don't even paint them. So our
Poi
footprint
dice
got smaller.
a
We
livello
started to think about
di
innovative ways to take those constraints
costruzione è stato
and make great
veramente
products.
But that
challenging,
constraint didn't really
cioè quindi
change the end
difficile,
result of the
ma
truck.
anche
It's a
cioè
super dynamic truck, and it has
hanno
all the
dovuto ripensare
functionality you would expect
completamente
out of any of the
a
other
come
heavyweight
andare a
trucks.
costruire
And the best thing about it,
e come
it's coming
impostare
this
la
year.
fabbrica per questo genere di auto, pick-up.
Sì, anche perché non
So
ha
ideally,
linee complesse.
after
No.
all
Ha detto
that,
che
we
non
would
va neanche
design, engineer,
verniciato, quindi
manufacture, and plan for automation
E
happening
attenzione perché
together.
qua mi sa che
Gives us the
c'è quasi
opportunity to
un one
question
more thing,
requirements.
ragazzi.
This is something that is
Perché
fundamentally
qua
only available at
c'è
Tesla.
un
The places I used to work and the top
ascoltiamo.
manufacturing companies in the world, they don't sit
Hanno
together.
combinato
We
le
are
cose
one team.
tra le
Nowhere
Tesla
I
Model
know
3 e
has all
Cybertruck.
these
Vediamo
teams
cosa
together
capita.
thinking about these processes
Ah,
from the very
schiaccia quel
beginning.
In
pulsantino.
fact, all of those engineering teams, manufacturing, design, automation, they're all in one org. They all report to one person. We can't point fingers at each other, so we have to solve them together, which is the best way to innovate. The traditional way of making a vehicle is this. You stamp it,
Ok.
you build a body in white, you paint it, and you do final assembly.
Qua è
And what's interesting is
quello che
these
vedete
shops
è come
are
vengono
dictated by
costruiti i veicoli in questo momento,
the organizational structures that
il
exist.
workflow
And they're
della
dictated by the
costruzione di un
boundaries that
veicolo.
exist in the factories that are laid out. If something goes wrong in final assembly, you block the whole line, and you end up with buffering in between. This is at the tail end of its manufacturing optimization. Henry Ford first invented this assembly line in 1922. It's been 100 years, and it's really hard to make a change after 100 years. And when you watch it happen, it's actually really silly to a guy like me. You take all these stamp panels,
Questo qui
you put them
è
together,
come
you
si
put them in a
assembla un
framing
veicolo in questo
station,
momento.
you build a body that looks something like a car, you put the doors on, and then you paint them. Once you get the color, you take the doors off, and then you start putting the interior inside the car. It comes in through the
figata
openings that
questa
already exist.
animazione,
I wish it
eravamo.
went in like this
Questo
big
è
piece like this,
bellissimo.
but there's actually
È
people
bellissimo.
coming in
Bellissimo.
and out of the car. There's awkward, movements. Then we lift the car up, we put stuff from underneath it, we put
Sarebbe
it down.
stato bello
then
se
we
avessero
put seats in
presentato
the
il
car,
Model 2
and
così.
finally, we close it off with glass and we bring those doors
Qualcuno
away
ci ha
for a trip,
creduto in questo
and we put them
momento.
back in the car.
Ecco qua la Y.
Most of the time, we're doing this with a big giant car and moving it and doing really nothing
E
to
qua
it.
dicono che alla fine se hai un
What's fun
problema
about
alla
this
fine
whole
del
process is that
processo,
just recently
va a finire che
Toyota just
blocchi
called
tutta
this
la
an
catena di
engineering work of
montaggio ed è
art.
questo un grandissimo problema. Sono 100
True.
anni che si fabbricano così le
The
vetture.
Model
Ha
Y.
inventato Henry Ford la catena di
That was
montaggio
humbling,
e dopo
but
100 anni,
at
insomma, è
Tesla,
difficile
it's not
andare
good
anche a
enough. If we're going to
ripensare
scale the way we
solamente
want
una
to do,
cosa,
we
una
have to rethink
costruzione
manufacturing again.
di questo
As part of the
genere.
master plan,
Ma
we have to
credo che
make
ci abbiano
another step
pensato,
change in
ragazzi,
cost.
Vediamo adesso
We
cosa
started
salta
this
fuori
on Model
dal
Y
cilindro.
when we made these huge gigacastings, and we deleted hundreds of parts. We simplified assembly with the Model Y structural battery.
Con
where
l'avvento
we
della
decided the
batteria
floor
di
should be
Model
a part of
Y
the
a
car.
livello
The
strutturale
battery
hanno
is the
veramente
floor. We put the seats and the
fatto dei
interior on
cioè
the battery,
dei
and we bring it up through a
movimenti in
big open hole, and we
avanti
assemble it. And this allowed us to do
molto
things
molto
in
rapidi
parallel,
nella costruzione
fully
dei
rethinking the
veicoli.
process and reducing the final assembly line by about 10%. And we thought maybe we could do this other places.
Yeah, I mean, in a way,
Sì, hanno
the
semplificato del
constraints become part of the
10%
solution
la
rather than the
costruzione e l'assemblaggio del veicolo.
So when you think about what I'm trying to say, I really want to hammer this home. When you have a car that's about 5 meters long and you have people working around it like we did in Model 3, and we change that to this process where we take different parts of the car and we can do more at the same time, like we did with the Model Y structural battery pack. What you see here is us doing that on the front part of the vehicle or the rear part of the vehicle. That means we can get more people working on the car, or robots, working on it at the same time. That means we have better operator density, less time doing nothing. I call that space-time efficiency. It has nothing to do with quantum mechanics. We can have that conversation later. But we get 44% more operator density, which means more work, less time walking back to the station, 30% improvement in space-time efficiency. And because we're not building it in and out of the car with those slow movements of those robots I showed you from production hell, when we go to automate it, it's going to be a lot easier.
Praticamente affrontano il montaggio, l'assemblaggio in due momenti, non solo a livello, ma cioè in parallelo, con diciamo un assemblaggio parallelo di cose multiple, è come se le tirassimo fuori da una scatola.
where we build all the sides of the cars
Quindi
independently.
possono
We only
tranquillamente
paint what we
andare
need to,
a
and then we
costruire
assemble parts of
solo,
the car
diciamo, le
once
portiere,
and only once. We put
pitturare
them
solo
where
il
they need to go.
telaio,
The
e
interior is
fare
attached from a
tutto,
bottom-up or
diciamo,
a top-down
fare
strategy,
alcune
so there's more
parti
access for those
e
robots and
poi
people. We
metterle
aren't moving
insieme.
heavy
È una
objects around
figata.
and doing nothing to
Tra l'altro
In
farei
effetti.
And it
notare
means
sulla
we're doing
parte
more work on the
posteriore ai
car
7
more of the
posti.
time. And then
C'è
when we
spazio per i
take
7
all
posti.
of these tested sub-assemblies and we put them together, we finally assemble the car
E qui
only one
veramente,
time,
cioè,
putting the sides
già
on
solo
with
con
all of their
l'animazione che
parts
state vedendo
to
in
a
questo
front and rear that
momento
was already assembled,
è tutto
carrying the floor
molto
end
più
with the
semplice
seats,
rispetto a
and
prima.
finally
È più
boxing it out
veloce.
È molto
with
più
the doors
veloce.
one time, just like
Ma lo stanno
Cybertruck.
inventando questi.
So in the end, you get the same car, but
E alla fine hai la
it's
stessa
not going to
auto.
be a Model Y.
Yeah, this is not. Yeah. This is a Model Y for illustration, not the next gen vehicle.
Ma hanno detto sì, ma quello
In
è
the
un
end, what
Model
does that
Y,
mean?
non è il nostro
To
prossimo
increase the
veicolo.
scale and
ragazzi.
adoption of electric vehicles on the orders of magnitude that we just showed you, we have to make
Chiaro.
constraints part of the solution. It leads us
Hype.
to greater than
Devo bere.
40% reduction in footprint, which means we can build factories faster with less capex.
È richiesto il
more output per
40%
unit.
di spazio in meno per la linea produttiva,
Faster, less
che è abbastanza
capex,
sorprendente.
È
more
molto più
output
veloce
per
da
unit
fare.
dollar.
È
Zach's going to go into
tantissimo,
more details on this
40%.
later, but it also means
Vuol dire
through
che
this
di colpa hai
innovation
il
and some
doppio
of
dello spazio
what my other
disponibile.
engineering colleagues are going to talk
Fai
about in the future,
molte
we'll
più
reduce
Riesci a
costs as much
creare
as
più linee
50%.
di produzione.
This is the 2-for-1 concept you hear me and Elon talking about on earnings
Assurdo.
calls.
Yeah, so I think our track record proves that we can deliver the best cars, and we deliver the best cars in spite of, because of these constraints. And I'd love to really show you what I mean and unveil the next gen car. But you're going to have to trust me on that until a later date. And I promise we'll
Poi
always be
questo
delivering
risone.
exciting, compelling, and desirable vehicles, like as we always have.
Have we ever not? We
Yeah.
always do.
But what else is Tesla known for?
Ok,
So with
raga.
that, I want to bring on Colin, who's in charge of making our
Novità.
cars go fast.
Powertrain.
Nuovi motori.
Thank you, Lars. Thank you, Franz. My name is Colin Campbell, and I have the real privilege of leading
Colin
powertrain
Campbell,
engineering
benvenuto.
here at Tesla. We make the fastest cars that you can buy for the money. whether
Noi
they're
facciamo le auto
electric
più veloci
or
che potete
gas.
comprare,
And
ragazzi.
The Model S Plaid that we're looking at here, it has more than 1,000 horsepower.
Più di 1000
Pound for
cavalli per la
pound,
Model S
the motors in
Plaid.
that car are as powerful
Che
as
bello il
jet
rosso della
engines.
Model Y,
Our
ragazzi.
cars are super fun. People absolutely love driving in them. And the other thing that you probably all know about our powertrains is that they're
E
efficient.
poi fanno
Our
anche le
cars
auto
go
più
25
efficienti al
to
momento.
30% further than other EVs in
Questi
our class.
paragoni che lanciano
paragoni.
Frecciatine.
Efficiency.
Sì, esatto.
But at Tesla,
Volkswagen
efficiency
ID4,
means
Ford
more
Mach-E,
than
Jaguar
just reducing how much
I-Pace.
energy
Chi è che
the
lo guida
cars
ancora il
use.
Jaguar I-Pace?
It's
Vabbè.
about how we
certo.
develop, how we
Bello che l'hanno chiamata
manufacture,
Ford, non
how we
Mustang.
refine, and how we scale the
Esatto.
powertrain. Now, the Model 3 and Y powertrain
Delle
is a great
piccole
example of this broader
frecciatine,
view
ragazzi.
of efficiency. So since we launched it back in 2017, we've continuously improved that
L'efficienza
powertrain
ci aiuta
and
a
the factory
scalare.
that builds it.
Qui
So the
il
driving
Model
and
3
the engine of the
Powertrain
car
dal
is
2017 al
20%
2022
lighter
è
for the same
diventato
power.
20% più
We use 25%
glider,
less
quindi
heavy
meno
rare earths
pesante,
than when we started.
leggero, il
And the
25% in
powertrain
meno di
factory
materiali rari
behind me
sono stati
today
utilizzati, il
is
75%
75% smaller and
aiutami
65%
Ginger che mi
cheaper
sono
than the
perso.
one that we originally built.
What
I really want to emphasize is that we did all
il
of this
footprint,
without
quanto
Ok.
spazio
compromise.
richiede
Our cars are just as
la linea
powerful,
produttiva del
they go
motore.
just as far,
Wow.
they cost the same or less, and the factories have the same output. So, how did we do that? We did it by designing the entire vehicle and the entire factory together as one company. And this sets Tesla apart.
Solo
We
GJ
have
c'è
small
scritto
and highly
Tesla
capable teams.
Live
To
perché
make a
questa è la
critical
Tesla
decision, we can have the battery
Investor
cell
Day
chemists,
e
the mechanical
ovviamente
engineers, the
ISLA
manufacturing
è il
engineers, the
nome
supply
della
chain team, the automation
action,
designers,
delle
the software
azioni,
programmers,
In
all in
borsa.
one
del
room,
stock in borsa.
working together in real time. And that allows us to make decisions that are best for the whole car and to make them really fast. And that approach is unlike traditional automotive engineering, which is really fractured. And if you were to go buy like a premium German electric car, the engineers who designed the drive inverter in that car, they did not work for that car company. They worked for a contractor. And at Tesla, we designed the entire car and the factory that builds it.
Qui sta praticamente dicendo che hanno verticalizzazione sulla produzione complessiva di tutti i componenti. Quindi han fatto
Esatto.
la solita frecciatina della casa tedesca che acquista il motore elettrico da un'azienda che glielo fa. E non gestiscono loro la produzione di ogni singolo componente, quindi l'efficienza, i costi.
Sì.
Un po' tutto il
Diciamo
paragone
sviluppo.
Android e iPhone se vogliamo fare.
Sì,
Esempio.
diciamo che Tesla è iPhone e Android e tutto il resto,
Esatto.
che in effetti è così.
It means that
Tesla si fa tutto,
silicon carbide wafer
o
that's
quasi,
inside those packages can be much smaller.
che da una
Silicon
parte può essere un
carbide is
problema,
an amazing semiconductor.
ma dall'altra
il montaggio.
It is
parte
also
hai un
expensive,
controllo
and
molto
it's really
più
hard to scale.
avanzato di tutto,
So using less of it
e
is a big win for us.
si progettano anche le
And then on
aziende,
top of that,
come vengono
orchestrating all of
create
these
le aziende.
transistors and making them switch in the right
E in
ways
più si ha la
is
possibilità di fare
computationally
piccoli step
extremely
di
intensive.
aggiornamenti
It
ogni
used to require
settimana,
4
ogni mese.
microprocessors.
Esatto, e
They're
infatti
shown here in the
raga,
bottom
cioè
left.
Tesla Model 3 è uscita in
We have developed
450
our own
versioni
custom
diverse.
microprocessor. It's
Una che ha
purpose-built
i
for
pannelli
high-power
in un certo
electronics.
modo,
It's
l'altra in un
half the
altro,
cost,
una con la pompa di
and it
calore,
does
l'altra
in just one room
senza,
the job of all those
ha
4.
aumentato
And these
tantissimo
are just
la
2 examples
qualità,
of many that I
ma da
could use
settimana
to
in settimana.
showcase our expertise
Chi è che
in
lo può
high-power
fare
electronics.
al
And that
momento?
expertise has allowed us to take the
Nessuno.
cost of the
C'è
chargers
in live anche
that were in
Gesualdo
our
da
Model S
Monaco.
when we launched it in 2012,
In che
both the
senso?
cost and
Oh,
the
ciao
mass,
Gesù!
cut both of those
Ho
in
sentito
half.
dire Apple e Android. Ah, roba tua qua, eh?
And even more important, power electronics, they're central not just to our cars. They're also central to our superchargers and to our energy storage products, and Rebecca and Mike will be talking more about that. So in addition to the work that we've done in software and hardware, we've also done a lot of work in-house on software. So this is the drive unit for Model 3 and Y, and if we take a cross-section, we see the
Mamma.
stator and the rotor, and they're responsible for
A cui
the
Tesla
core
si fa
function of the
tutto,
drive
raga,
unit,
quindi
which is converting electricity into motion. And
vanno
our custom
a
software lets us simulate the
pescare
rotating magnetic field that is
il
responsible
minimo
for that
componente
conversion, and getting that
per
simulation
migliorare
exactly right,
l'efficienza.
it's central to the cost, the weight, the size, and even the
Gesualdo, lo
sound of the drive
aspettiamo
unit.
tutti. È il grande one more
Now,
thing che
you can
aspettiamo
buy
da
software
Tesla
that will
questa
do
sera.
all of this,
La Model
but our
2.
tools are faster,
Se non la
they're more accurate,
presentano qui
and
è
that was
grave.
not easy to do.
Hype
And that allows us to
tantissimo.
quickly iterate through millions of possible drive unit
In
designs to find
sunto
the
hanno
best
detto
one.
che praticamente gli è costato molto più tempo e
I wanna
soldi
highlight
creare un
one more
programma
area
che gli simulasse i
where Tesla
campi
really excels
magnetici del
because we
motore
integrate work that
prima
is
di
often
costruirlo
farmed out.
effettivamente, per
So
renderlo
when you are
efficiente
making a new product,
e
it's not
funzionale e
enough to think about
funzionante.
the product
Esatto, senza
itself. You have
costruire un
to think
milione di
about how
motori,
you're
fare
going
un
to make it
milione di
at scale.
prove. Hanno
So
semplicemente
Tesla,
scritto un
our
software che
powertrain
gli calcolasse
and our powertrain
correttamente
manufacturing equipment is both designed under
il
one roof.
magnetismo,
The
eccetera,
engineers who are
eccetera.
designing the motor, they are in the same room as the engineers who are designing the machine that's going to put that motor together.
Mamma che figata,
And that
vedere una roba
collaboration
del
pushes us
genere.
from day one to
Tra l'altro
design
molto belle
products
le
that are
riprese
not only
così.
high performance,
E se non
but
erro,
really easy
tutto
to
è,
scale.
è rallentato. Tutte le riprese
So,
che uso
Sì,
Tesla.
beh, cavoli,
all
sicuramente.
of this
Sì, perché andranno
expertise that
molto
we
più
have in the
veloci.
powertrain team, in hardware, in software, in
Qui ragazzi si
manufacturing,
vede per un
it's going to have a major
secondo,
impact on
grazie
our next
DSTV
platform.
per la donazione di €1.
In
Our
next
next drive
powertrain,
unit will be even
those
more
silicon carbide
scalable.
transistors that I mentioned that are key component but expensive, we figured out a way to use
Eccola,
75%
è lei.
less without compromising the performance or the efficiency of the
Completa.
product.
75% di riduzione in
Of course, we know
silicon
battery cell
carbide.
supply is one of
Cos'è?
the constraints
Silicon
mi
to the
sembra
carbide.
basso.
scalability of EVs right
Sono
now.
ignorante.
Our new
Non
powertrain
lo saprei.
is compatible with any battery
50% in
chemistry.
meno di riduzione
That will give
del
us
factory
great
footprint
flexibility in battery sourcing.
e costerà
If we want to make EVs more accessible to people, they have to be cheaper.
circa $1.000
We've
produrla.
reduced the drive unit cost to about
Costo di
$1,000.
entrata di
We don't think
$1.000
any other
per la drive
maker is
unit.
even close to that
Ah,
level.
per la drive unit, ok. Pochissimo, alla fine
Finally, the bigger a
già
factory
oggi
is,
costano
the longer it takes to build.
1.400-1.500 € i motori
If we
di
can build the
Tesla,
same number of cars
Esatto.
from a smaller factory,
quindi non è una
we are going to be
grande
able to scale
differenza,
EV
però
production faster.
è il
The next
30%.
powertrain factory
Mica
Beh,
male.
Ed in più,
esatto.
strano che hanno
50% smaller than the one that's
precisato
behind
la
me today,
compatibilità con tutti
even
i
though it
tipi di
has the same
batteria.
capacity.
Esatto, possono essere utilizzati
All of
tutti i
these
tipi di batteria.
improvements, I think, are going to be
Quindi si può già
transformative to the
accennare
adoption
a
of
varie
EVs and our
versioni
ability
con
to scale
chimiche
them.
diverse.
There's one
Un
more
po'
thing
come
that I want to
Come
modellino.
highlight.
hanno detto l'anno scorso.
So I talked about how we had reduced the amount of rare earth in our powertrains. And as the world transitions to clean energy, the demand for rare earth is really increasing dramatically. And not only is it going to be a little hard to meet that demand, but mining that rare earth, it has environmental and health risks. So we want to do even better than this. We have designed our next drive unit, which uses a permanent magnet motor, to to not use any
Sempre
rare
un
earth materials at all.
motore a magneti permanenti.
Con
Sarà
zero
la
terre
loro
How does
rare.
this fit to your master
prossima
plan?
loro prossimo
Come?
next
We can make
big
lower cost
thing,
products that are still
Come
efficient in
assolutamente
compounding and make them at
senza
scale.
terre
We're
rare.
going to use less of
Wow.
constrained commodities,
Ciao
silicon
Michele,
carbide, rare earths.
cugino.
We're going to build them all in compact and
Ciao
high
Miki.
output factories that are easy for us to build quickly.
Mamma. Questo è molto
We're going to make
interessante.
that easy to scale powertrain
E
all the way up
importante
to
anche il
levels
fatto
that
che
really want,
si
like
evita lo sfruttamento che sappiamo
And
che
this
c'è.
achievement, like
Esatto.
all of the
C'è
achievements that I
spesso.
mentioned today, it's
Minore
only
impatto
possible because
ambientale.
of the
E
incredible
poi chiaramente
people on our
ragazzi,
powertrain team.
Tesla,
They are absolutely
costruendosi tutta
to the
da
cause of
sola queste
sustainable
cose,
energy, and that is why we
ovviamente lo fa
do
anche
what no other
perché un
company
domani
can do.
vuole poter vendere le sue power unit o poter utilizzare le sue power unit in altri campi, ad esempio come quello per andare su
So next
Marte,
I'd like to welcome
creare
my colleagues Steve Bannon and David Lau.
veicoli che possono andare sulla superficie non terrestre, eccetera, eccetera. E adesso vediamo una cosa interessante ragazzi, parliamo di come è evoluta la complessità anche di un'auto. Poi infatti vediamo Model S del 2012, come sono cambiati, diciamo, come girano i cavi. Questa cosa è veramente molto interessante.
Sì, qui sta facendo vedere lo schema e la complessità del sistema a basso voltaggio 12 volt.
Esatto.
Sappiamo che hanno aggiornato 16 volt, mi pare, con la nuova versione. Questi sono tutti i cavi che una singola auto ha, allungati e messi su un tavolo.
Going forward, we want to reduce the size and complexity of the harness and enable automated manufacturing.
Quindi
These wire
stiamo cercando di
harnesses
farlo
introduce
automatizzare,
complications, especially in the early
perché in questo
stages
momento è
of
tutto fatto a
development and bring
mano.
up of a vehicle, because when we're trying to bring up this entire system and we see that it's not working properly, we don't know whether it's a problem with the software, with the controller, the processor,
Non è facile da
any of the
debuggare
endpoints in this
eventualmente se ci
entanglement
fosse un
of
problema.
wires, and so we have to go and debug everything all at once. And Pete's going to tell us about how we're going to make it
E
better.
infatti il Model 3 ha cambiato
So I'm
sostanzialmente.
going to talk briefly about a few things that we've changed over the years since the Model S. With the Model 3, Tesla started designing an increasing share of our controllers by merging controllers together, and we were able to simplify the design with a significant reduction in wire count and weight. Going from S to 3, we reduced the wire harness by 17 kilograms.
Ma però hanno inserito 17 kg in meno di cavi all'interno della Model 3 rispetto a Model S.
to your desk if you manage to save a kilogram of weight from the car. So this improvement cost him quite a lot.
Wow.
Did we skip one? Yeah. The original Model 3 controllers were enhanced.
L'idea del loro prossimo veicolo è quello di diminuire del 100%.
At that point, we had shared controllers across both cars, which helped simplify our supply chain. Those Model 3 and Y controller designs were then updated and enhanced for the new versions of Model S and X that we introduced in 2021. For Cybertruck, we are now designing 85% of the controllers in the car.
Ah, ok, figo. No, niente, non avevo capito bene.
Sta dicendo che si ha l'85% di controllo di tutti i controllori, microcontrollori, cablaggi.
Esatto, con il Cybertruck. Nella loro prossima auto invece avranno il 100% di controllo.
Esatto. E sottolineano ancora, come abbiamo detto prima, il continuo miglioramento, aggiornamenti costanti, visto la verticalizzazione della produzione.
That we never even dreamed of at the time we designed the hardware. So that's why you see software in your car is getting better and better over time in ways that we didn't even think of when we designed the hardware in the first place.
Yeah, Sentry Mode is one of my favorite last minute changes.
E poi niente, dicono che alla fine tutti gli aggiornamenti software che voi vedete, che noi vediamo, tipo quello che ho installato io 10 minuti fa prima di cominciare la live, vengono appunto da tutti questi miglioramenti che continuano a fare e li possono fare, tutti questi aggiornamenti, appunto perché hanno un grandissimo controllo di tutti i controller, scusate la ripetizione, che ci sono all'interno dell'auto e delle auto. E neanche loro pensavano di poter realizzare una cosa del genere quando hanno disegnato l'hardware. E hanno fatto, diciamo, un passaggio sulla Sentry Mode.
to instill intelligence, context awareness,
che senza questo
and
tipo di
context-specific
controllo non avrebbero
behavior
potuto fare.
into what otherwise would have been a piece of hardware that had to get optimized for one type of scenario. We
E
get
qui,
more
vabbè,
of everything.
In 2022,
stanno
we
andando
completed
ad
the transition
indicare
of lead-acid
che
batteries to lithium-ion
le
batteries,
batterie a
and
12 volt sono
which use a
cambiate
new toolless
sensibilmente.
connector. We expect lithium-ion batteries to last for the life of the car, so we don't expect anyone to wake up to a dead battery ever again. This eliminates a major source of failures for our car, and the toolless connector makes it easier to service the car, and it also includes a software feature to allow
Che non è più una batteria
validation that
normale
the connector has
con
been
l'acido,
properly installed at
diciamo,
the end of a service event,
ma
which
una
removes
batteria
another
al
source
litio
of failures in our cars. Obviously, the mass
che è
and
più,
volume savings are also significant,
ovviamente più
which is
longeva.
super helpful. At Tesla, we're always trying to improve every single component in the car, and a nice example of that is the 15-inch display that was originally shipped in the 2017 Model 3. Over time, the cost of the display
Ok,
has
questo è un
gone
altro
down
esempio per il fatto
24%.
che
We've been
Tesla
able
si
to
fa tutto
reduce
da
the
sola,
weight by 12%, and
che
we've reduced the
il
power by
display
33%.
è
At the same
cambiato
time, we've
dal
increased the brightness of the
2017 fino ad
display by
oggi,
50% and improved the color accuracy.
adesso ha
So this
meno
is one of our favorite
pezzi,
things at
pesa di
Tesla, is to make a
meno,
component
eccetera.
cheaper and
Ed è
better.
più potente.
Sì.
Si consuma
At Tesla, the
anche
drive
13
to
watt
improve
in
efficiency
meno.
of the car is never ending. I think of it as like peeling a carrot. You just take a swipe at it, a little bit falls off, doesn't really make
Pazzesco
much of a
come
difference. But if you just keep
ogni
at it,
singola
over
cosa,
time it
ragazzi,
accumulates into a
sia
pretty significant
pensata,
improvement.
costruita,
One of the changes that
migliorata
we're
nel
looking to make right
tempo.
now is to change
Pazzesco.
something that's been steady for the last 60
Intanto nella
years,
chat
12 volts.
impazzano sulla Tesla
12
Model
volts
2.
has
Ragazzi,
been,
aspettiamo,
as I
andiamo
said,
fino
for
alla
60
fine.
years. The demand
State
for
fino alla
power in the
fine
car has been
e
steady
scrivetevi
to
appena
the
dirlo.
point where
Il
we now
futuro
have to
del
have
basso
pretty large
voltaggio è
wires to
48
drive over
volt.
200 amps of current
Esatto,
around
sì,
the
anche
car,
questo era
which
un
increases
rumors
the mass
che
and
il
cost.
futuro
With
probabilmente
Cybertruck and all future
del basso
Tesla
voltaggio
platforms, we'll
sarà
be
il
moving to
48
48
volt, non
volts.
più la 12
This
volt.
reduces the current needed by
Bello
a
tra l'altro sia
factor
per
of 4.
Cybertruck che per
And since power
Optimus,
loss in the harness
quindi
is
anche il
resistance
Tesla Bot.
times the square of the current, a 4x reduction in current leads to a 16x reduction in lost power while distributing energy in the car. That
C'è
allows for
praticamente in
smaller
sostanza
wires,
16
smaller
volte
e-fuses,
meno
and smaller
dispersione di
controllers.
elettricità in
It also
giro
allows us to make those heat
nell'auto
sinks
mentre
smaller,
è
or in
acceso,
many cases remove
e
it completely,
probabilmente
while
anche
benefiting the car
di
in terms of
dispersione
mass
durante la
and
notte
weight.
mentre l'auto è spenta.
48 volts is the future for low voltage design at Tesla, and likely the rest of the industry in due course.
We welcome and encourage other OEMs and the entire supplier network to join us on this evolution.
Ok, e vediamo un po' il Cybertruck, come è migliorato.
The
Grazie
number
mille
of
per i
wires in the car is
2,49
driven by
il
the
re del
number of endpoints that need to
Cansnate.
be powered and
Grandi
controlled.
sogni, ma il
In
park
the past,
assist,
centralized
ciao Teo,
control has led for wires
raga.
spanning the
Per
entire
adesso
car.
ancora
For
nessuna
Cybertruck
buona
design,
nuova
we
sui
have moved to
sensori
a local
di Tesla
controller
Model Y RWD.
where the wire is connected to the nearest controller, and those controllers are connected over Ethernet. Wires are routed to the nearest controller where the data is converted
Praticamente
into a
stanno
network
dicendo che
packet for
all'interno del Cybertruck
transmission
tutto sarà
to the
collegato con
correct location
Ethernet,
in the car.
Esatto.
To
giusto?
be effective, the
Sì,
network must be
over
reliable,
Ethernet.
have low latency,
Quindi
and
non
low
ci saranno
jitter.
più 1
And these
milione
are
di
all
cavi che
attributes that we've been
girano,
able to
ma ci
achieve
saranno
with
più
the current design.
controller in giro
The design has
con
eliminated
un
most
solo
of the
cavo.
cross-car
Sai
wires in Cybertruck, and
quanti
with the
cavi
next-gen platform,
partono
we're going to finish the job
da
and
davanti, ad
eliminate
esempio,
all
e
of them.
arrivano fino dietro,
With some
tantissimi, e non hanno
consolidated vehicle
assolutamente
network
senso,
allows
ne
us
basterebbe
also to
uno
make a whole lot more
che
dynamic
porta
changes on
tutti
the
i
fly,
segnali.
to
E questo
how
sarà
components in
quello
the vehicle talk to each other,
che
rather than the
succederà.
traditional approach of separate CAN buses that are spread throughout the vehicle
Yeah,
and
and
fixed in hardware.
one of the nice things is that you can see the entire vehicle through a single connection, which wasn't possible in the past for debug.
Next Generation Vehicle,
For
ragazzi,
the next-gen platform, we're looking to
ho
optimize
bisogno
the
di
control
alzare
design across the
quella
entire
copertina
car
bianca
and
lì.
across all of the organizations,
Carino.
not just for a given subsystem.
Carino.
Simplifying the wire harness will enable automation. 48 volts
E
allow
ovviamente il
us to reduce
100%
the
dei
size,
controller disegnati in casa.
mass, and cost of the low voltage system, and it's one of the key things to enabling us to scale production of the low voltage systems for the master plan.
Sì, come dice viaggiare in elettrico, che tutti stiamo aspettando Model 2, ma
So I joined
probabilmente in
Tesla
pochi
in
percepiscono i grandi
2012, and even in those
cambiamenti
very early
che
days
portano a
of the
queste
Model S,
modifiche.
we already had the ability to update software over the air in all of the controllers throughout the entire vehicle, at a time when other cars were just starting to update software in only their infotainment units. And furthermore, we've had
Un'altra cosa è,
sophisticated
ha
and
detto che
anonymized
loro
data
possono
logging and
controllare
telemetry
esattamente
capabilities
ogni
that allow us
controller
to
e lo
understand
possono andare ad
how the thing
aggiornare
is
da
doing,
remoto.
what
ogni
customers are doing
singolo
with it and how it's
controller,
responding in the field to that
quindi ad
usage.
esempio, non so, il
These
controller
two
che
capabilities
decide
combined,
la
OTA
luminosità
updates
della
and data
lucina,
insights,
oppure,
give
non
us the
so,
ability to
il
iterate quickly on our
firmware del
software and to
motore o,
maximize the
della
amount that we
singola
learn
cella o della
and
batteria,
proceed
loro
and the
possono andare
progress
ad
that we make in
aggiornarlo e
every
lo
one of
stanno già
those
facendo,
iterations.
attenzione,
We
mentre
use these
gli altri
capabilities to
automaker
inform
sono ancora
countless
lì che
design
stanno
decisions in both
cercando di
software
arrabattare un
and
aggiornamento
hardware.
al solo
Yeah,
sistema
one example is that we
infotainment.
were able to monitor and track the use of the sunroof in our cars and found that our customers never use their sunroof, so we made this easy decision to remove it.
Ed è
Very good.
così che
Haven't had
riescono
sunroofs
anche
for a
a
while.
capire e fare tracking dell'utilizzo
As
di
another example,
funzionalità,
we
da
are
parte
able to
degli
use our
utenti.
collision
E
data
ad
to
esempio
design our crash safety systems for
ha
what
fatto
happens
l'esempio
in the real world,
del
far
tettuccio
beyond
apribile
what
che,
regulatory
la
and
maggior
consumer
parte
ratings
dei suoi
tests
utenti non lo
prescribe.
usava mai e
And then
quindi hanno deciso di
furthermore, we're
rimuoverlo.
able to use that data to recreate in
E
simulation
praticamente stanno
all of
dicendo
those
che stanno
crashes
facendo e hanno
every single
fatto da
time we
tempo
make
la
a
stessa
change to the
cosa
vehicle's design,
con gli
or
impatti sui
to the
veicoli,
software that controls the
Esatto,
air
così da
conditioning and
migliorare
restraint systems.
l'ingegnerizzazione e sicurezza del veicolo
Here on this graph,
costantemente con i
the gray
soliti
dots
piccoli
that show up
aggiornamenti.
first
Esatto,
are
e
specific
chiaramente
crash
ragazzi
tests that are
ricordatevi che sono
prescribed by
tutti dati
regulatory and
non
consumer ratings
sensibili.
agencies throughout the whole world. And the rest of the color that fills in around and on top of it, those represent the crashes that we've seen happen in the real world.
E sono
Those are
appunto,
what
sto
we
dicendo
designed for
che
and what we
facendo
tested.
così loro vanno
Right.
chiaramente
Last year,
ad
this data was
analizzare
used to
quello che
change
succede
the algorithm for
veramente
seatbelt
nel
tensioning to
mondo
reduce
sulla
injuries in the
strada,
field,
e
which is
non
important to all of our
un
cars.
crash test controllato come quelli che ad
Here are
esempio
a few
potreste
statistics
vedere
that demonstrate how
negli
staggeringly quickly
Euro
we gain
NCAP,
new
sui quali
insights
si
from the
basano invece
anonymized data that we
tutte le altre
receive from the
aziende.
fleet every day. Every day, 123 million miles driven, 1.9 million charge sessions, and those rates are only increasing as we deliver more and more cars into
E
the
qui
world.
vabbè è una sviolinata pazzesca di quello che hanno
As another
fatto.
example, to analyze
Te
patterns
pompa di
1,9
across
buffer.
drives
milioni
and
di
chargers,
sessioni di ricarica
to
al
optimally
giorno.
size
Esatto.
battery packs for our next generation
Vabbè,
vehicles.
Gnari, si
And you'll
passano
hear
avanti.
lots of
America.
other examples throughout the
Nel
rest of the
mondo,
day
nel
about how
mondo.
we're using data to
Chissà
inform
quante
decisions in the
statistiche su
products
dei gradi di
and
batteria
in
hanno.
manufacturing.
Già.
So you've heard a lot from Pete,
Softer
Colin, and
response
others
than
about how
tire.
important vertical integration
Yeah.
is for us in hardware, but it's especially important for us in software. And this is extremely difficult from the way the rest of the traditional automotive supply chain is set up. In most situations, all the controllers in the car are delivered by different Tier 1 suppliers, whose software is written by Tier 2 suppliers, who farm some of that software out to different Tier 3 suppliers, and so on and so on. Making a
Sì, stanno
change
continuando a
that spans
rimarcare il
multiple
fatto che Tesla
components
si scrive
takes
anche il
months of
software
coordination
completamente da
before any
solo,
work can even
altrimenti le altre
start.
aziende non lo
And
fanno e
furthermore,
questo genera
integration
un
of
problema
software in the server side
gigantesco
with
e
what's
una
happening in our
lentezza
vehicles
pazzesca
has
nello
always been a core
sviluppo,
part of our DNA
chiaramente, e
and
neanche
enables us to
nel
do things that nobody else
miglioramento
can.
delle
Most
auto
engineers
delle
think
altre
about
aziende.
the
Chiaro.
vehicle as a complete, consolidated, fully contained system. But in the software team, we think about the system as including the vehicle as well as all of our back-end server-side applications and infrastructure and the resultant feedback loop from the entire fleet that informs all the decisions we make as an engineering team. For example, we recently released a feature in Model S and X that automatically, predictively, adjusts and raises the suspension for ride comfort before the car hits a section of rough road. We do that by leveraging the fleet to generate a map of road roughness everywhere our cars drive.
Ok, un'altra cosa che hanno
Sounds pretty
fatto,
simple, but
ragazzi,
requires
super figa,
coordination of software
è
across a
che
number of different components
praticamente
inside and outside of the
recentemente
car.
hanno rilasciato un
The
aggiornamento
restraint
per
control
Model S e
module,
Model X
whose inertial
per
measurement unit
le
senses the road
sospensioni.
roughness. The autopilot
Sono andati
computer,
ad
whose
utilizzare
GPS module and
praticamente
localizer figure out where the
tutta la
car is in the
flotta
world.
intera,
Our
ok, nel
navigation
mondo
server,
di
which
auto,
aggregates
e
the anonymized
hanno
telemetry from the
disegnato
fleet and
attraverso le
annotates our map
strade
with
che
things like
fanno, ok,
updated
queste
speed
auto,
limits,
hanno
lane
disegnato una
topology,
mappa
and now
e sanno
road roughness.
esattamente dove
The
vengono
onboard
utilizzate
navigation engine,
per
which
di
looks
più
ahead of the route that the
le
car is traveling
sospensioni
on
delle loro
and
auto.
determines whether things are
E
about to get rough.
automaticamente ora a Model
And
S e Model
finally,
X
the
si è
air
attivata
suspension
questa
controller,
funzione
which takes
e
all of those factors into
predittivamente
account
sanno
and
se
decides
alzare o
continuously
abbassare la
whether it is
sospensione.
appropriate
Una
to
figata.
adjust
Cioè
suspension
praticamente gli
for ride
utenti
comfort.
hanno fatto i beta
And before
tester.
we release
Non
this
è che
feature to the
hanno fatto dei
world,
beta test,
we
praticamente
sent
Utenti
hanno
creano
prototype
consegnato
dati.
versions of it to
l'auto,
the entire
l'utente crea
fleet
dati.
that ran
E
passively
praticamente
in
è
the
la stessa
background,
cosa che
sending us
applica
anonymous
Google con
data
le
about every
sue,
time we
Google
would have
Maps.
cose.
engaged. used which taught us
Il
exactly
traffico,
how we
eccetera,
was going to
eccetera.
Tra l'altro
behave
per
out in the
il
wild,
discorso
in
data
every
mining delle
environment, in
sospensioni ad
every
aria,
circumstance.
hanno utilizzato
Yeah,
anche
being able to
auto senza
test new
sospensione
algorithms in
d'aria
the background
in base a
without
giroscopi
impacting the
e cose
car
del
is
genere.
really critical ability for
Figo.
us, especially for safety critical
Sì.
things like
Cioè a
automatic
livello
emergency
software
braking.
And we've used it to
sono avanti.
iterate on
Qui a
early
Napoli si vede
versions
tutto
of our
rosso
stability control
e di testa.
algorithms, which were introduced to the entire Model 3 fleet in 2017 with extremely high confidence, even on a very foundational and safety critical function.
Ah,
Okay.
ecco, e poi
So far, you've heard me
stanno
talk a
dimostrando
lot
che
about how we leverage our software
tutto,
systems to
il
iterate quickly on
software
customer-facing
scritto da
products.
Tesla non è
But
fatto
what I
solo
haven't talked
per
about, and what we
guidare
haven't said much
l'auto
about
e
publicly in
e
general,
fine,
is how we leverage these
utilizzarla
capabilities in our
dopo che
own
viene
internal
montata,
operations.
ma anche
So for
prima.
example,
Quindi durante
in the
tutto
early days
l'assemblaggio
of manufacturing
dell'auto,
Model
il
S,
sistema
we very quickly
infotainment
realized that
indica,
there are a lot of
che cosa
different ways
manca
you
e
could
a quale
disassemble a
step si è
car.
arrivati.
You could forget to plug
E
in a
si possono fare
wire,
tutti i
you
test,
could abnormally set a
eccetera, eccetera. Una
connector,
figata.
you could pull a part from the wrong bin. So when we designed our manufacturing processes for Model 3 and all of our other
Cioè,
vehicles going forward,
ma dove
we took a
siamo
page
qua?
from the software playbook which says, test early
Boh, per
and
forza
test
che
often.
Tesla ha più ingegneri
And we applied
informatici
that
e di tutto il
mantra
resto.
to every single car that we build at every step of
Stanno
the
dicendo
assembly
che
line.
grazie alla costruzione di Model
So
S si
now,
sono
when a
resi
production
conto
associate
che
plugs something into the car,
bisognava
the sense of our
adottare
computer sees that connection,
un metodo
confirms that
di
it's the correct
costruzione e
part for the
sviluppo
type of car
dell'auto
that's supposed to
diverso
be
e quindi
built,
adesso dicono che
installs a
è
software
meglio
update as
controllare più
necessary,
volte e
checks
controllare prima di
configurations and
finire il
calibrations, and
prodotto.
runs a
E
barrage
questo
of
lo fa
tests
anche
on that thing
autonomamente
and all
l'auto
the other
mentre viene
things that are
montata.
connected to it. And if it finds an anomaly that can't be fixed purely with software, it throws an alert immediately that is displayed prominently on the vehicle's
Grazie per la
display, as well
donazione,
as sent to back-end
Casnate.
command and control systems,
2,49
so that a
€.
human can come over and fix the problem before the rest of the car gets built on top of it.
Praticamente mentre l'auto
And we're
viene montata,
taking
se
a
c'è un
similar
pezzo che
approach
magari
in
non è
service
montato bene
through a
oppure è
combination
fatto
of
male, un difetto
onboard vehicle
di fabbrica,
diagnostics
l'auto lo
Dici.
segnala
natural language
prima che si vada
processing
avanti.
applied to customer narratives when a customer schedules a service appointment, and a suite of internally
E
developed tools, we are
oltretutto, se
successfully
ci sono dei
diagnosing,
problemi anche
scheduling,
nell'auto
and
dopo
ordering
quando viene
parts for over
venduta,
33%
il
of customer
sistema
concerns in service.
li diciamo sente prima
Yep, and we also use
del cliente che se ne
testers built around
accorga
our
e
own
che lo porta
controllers
in
to test
assistenza.
sub-assemblies before they get to the car,
Come i
which
fari.
will be even more
Beh,
important
quello
as we go to
però
Lars's unboxed
non lo
assembly
sanno ancora.
strategy.
100%.
Okay.
We'll know with extremely high confidence that before those boxes get put together, that they are assembled, they themselves are assembled correctly. Okay, you've heard at lots of other events about all the awesome things that our autopilot and AI teams are doing to make the car drive itself, bringing us into the future of autonomy. But we've
Ok,
also been thinking
adesso
for
parliamo un po'
years
di guida
about all of
autonoma.
the other pieces that we are going to need to manage a network of autonomous vehicles. A lot of this has been happening behind the scenes in the form of platform-level functionality that we'll leverage later. But you've seen some of it surface already in terms of features that our customers and our internal operations teams can benefit from.
Qui stanno spiegando e stanno facendo vedere, anzi, come può essere condivisa una Tesla con altre persone. Potete mandare un invito direttamente con un messaggio o con un'email. È già funzionante così, cioè già oggi. E puoi condividere tra i vari veicoli dei tuoi account che hai impostato varie informazioni.
View, locate, and drive all Tesla-owned vehicles at their site. And when customers bring their car into service, when they receive a Tesla-owned service loaner vehicle, we are starting at some locations to automatically add that vehicle to the customer's mobile app account, so that combined with cloud-synchronized profiles and phone key, it's a completely seamless experience. As soon as the customer walks up to that loaner, it behaves and feels exactly like their own car.
Ok,
And all this
e qui
is
adesso ci
built on
sta
top of
un
end-to-end
attimo
encryption
parlando un po' del
and
futuro, di come
cryptographically
sarà
signed
il
commands,
futuro
so
e
that
c'è la
customer
possibilità
data remains
appunto
private and obscure,
che
and the
tu non
fleet
abbia
only
una
trusts
Tesla,
commands from
solo
authorized
quella,
parties.
ma magari
So that's a bit of a
tante
preview of all the
diverse,
pieces that we're building,
non
looking
tua,
ahead to
ok?
our
Tu hai
future of
solo
autonomous fleets.
l'account e
Synchronization, permissions
quando, non so,
management,
ti arriva
security, and
la
privacy.
nuova Tesla perché ne hai bisogno, dici: "Okay, io ho bisogno di una
And
macchina",
that
ti
has been
arriva
a
la
whirlwind
Tesla,
tour
tu
through
entri
some of the things
dentro
that we're
e
doing
hai
behind the
la tua
scenes
Tesla
to
configurata
enable
esattamente
the
come l'avevi
efficiency,
come
cost
magari avevi
reduction, and speed that
configurato
we are
l'auto
going to need for their next
precedente.
phase of growth and for the next phase of the master plan.
E stessa cosa con le auto
Now, to tell
sostitutive.
us about the
Esatto.
latest in full
Stessa cosa con le
self-driving,
auto sostitutive.
I'd like to introduce Ashok.
E adesso parliamo della full self-driving.
Eccola. FCD.
Vedremo se citeranno l'Europa stavolta.
Si attivano i
Hey
sensori.
everyone, my name is Ashok Kelliswamy. I work on autopilot and self-driving at Tesla.
Oh,
I
finalmente lo
joined Tesla back in
capisco bene.
2014, so I've been working on this problem for almost 9 years now. Yeah, some of you might be wondering, hey, what's this self-driving got to do with the plan to a sustainable future? But it's actually a critical part of this plan, and here's why. Currently, when the car is not being used, it is sitting idly in parking lots, not doing anything. But when autonomy is truly unlocked, this car, instead of being
Solo
idle,
perché io sono un
can
informatico e
go
guardo
serve other
tantissimi
customers.
tutorial e tantissimi tutorial sono
This
di
fundamentally
indiani che parlano di quello.
reduces the need to scale manufacturing to extreme levels because each car is being used way more.
Ecco, qui sta parlando di una cosa che
But this is
chiaramente
no trivial
pochissimi
problem.
pensano,
Building a
è
scalable
che
self-driving system is, I think, one
quando
of the
si
hardest
vanno a
real-world AI
pensare, insomma,
problems
per
out
il
there right now.
futuro a auto che si guideranno da
Nonetheless,
sole,
we
saranno
at
auto
Tesla
che
have
faranno
made significant
tantissimi
strides in
chilometri
making
e quindi dovranno
one of
migliorare
the most
ancora di
general
più
systems at
al lato
solving this problem.
produzione rispetto a quelle che ci sono oggi.
There are three main parts to get right to build a scalable problem. First is the architecture, the architecture of the AI system. Second is the data, and third is the compute. We'll start with the architecture.
Qui vediamo come la Tesla abbia
At Tesla, we are betting on AI,
evitato un
machine learning, neural
incidente.
networks to help us build a general vision and planning system. In the early days, we used to have single camera, single frame
Vediamo se
neural networks
citano
that
la
produce
nuova
some outputs.
configurazione a due
These were stitched
camere,
together
nuovi
in
raffreddamenti
some
e nuovo
post-processing
radar.
steps for the planner. But this was very brittle and was not leading to great success. So what we did in the last few years is transition
Sì, adesso
most
sto
of our
facendo vedere
stack
com'era
into this
all'inizio, diciamo.
multi-camera video neural networks. These neural networks take in the live feed from the car in real time of the 8 cameras in the car and produce a single unified 3D output space.
Ecco, qui praticamente sta andando ad indicare com'è che
There are many
funziona
tasks that we produce, such as
attualmente
the
il
presence of
sistema, che
obstacles,
prende
lane
8
motion,
telecamere e
lanes,
produce un
roads,
flusso
traffic
unico.
lights, what have
Quindi il
you.
sistema non deve andare ad analizzare le 8
This is one
telecamere
example output that
contemporaneamente,
you're
ma in
seeing
realtà è
here.
un
This
flusso
is from
dato
our
unico.
occupancy network that predicts the positions of obstacles and their motion. You can see that it precisely captures the
Si
swervy,
crea
violent
un
motion of this
ambiente
truck.
vettoriale,
And this helps
virtuale,
the planning system to avoid a
parallelo alla
collision with
realtà.
this object. Some of the tasks, such as lane connectivity, are more complicated to model using naive methods in computer vision. So we don't stop at the computer vision techniques, but we reach out to techniques in other areas, such as language modeling, reinforcement learning, to model this task. This is similar. These networks use similar techniques, such as transformers, attention modules, autoregressive modeling of tokens, similar to what large language models like ChatGPT do out there. With such an end-to-end system of solving perception, we have really removed the brittle post-processing steps and produce high-quality outputs for the planning system. Even the planning system is not stuck in the old ways. It is now starting to use more and more AI systems to solve this problem. The neural network-based planners are needed especially in complicated urban planning when there's a lot
Diciamo
of
che
other
qui,
objects
ragazzi, è
interacting with
una
us.
parte decisamente
This is, for
difficile da
example, an
spiegarvi.
intersection where we have to turn left while yielding to crossing objects and
Sì,
to the
in
pedestrians crossing the road.
sunto sarebbe che praticamente sta spiegando
Safely
che
and smoothly
l'auto riesce a
while
creare
respecting
un
everyone's
ambiente
right of
virtuale
way
vettoriale
and preferences.
parallelo alla realtà in cui effettua
If this was
varie
done naively,
simulazioni di
each
vari
configuration
casi
would take 10
d'uso e
milliseconds of
cose che
compute,
possono
and there are
succedere
easily
ed
maybe thousands of
eventualmente agisce in
configurations
base
to
alla
reasonable.
migliore che dovrebbe seguire,
This would
in
not be
caso ad
feasible using
esempio
traditional
l'auto
compute.
fosse in
But using
autopilot.
AI, we have packaged all
Esempio.
of this into a 50
Però è
millisecond
sempre
compute
comunque
budget, so
acceso, è
it can run
sempre
in real time.
comunque tutto acceso e pronto ad intervenire in caso di threat.
The second
sarebbe.
big piece of this puzzle is the
Esatto,
data.
infatti
This
Autopilot
is where
praticamente,
Tesla has a
cioè
unique
il
advantage
sistema
because
che
we
va ad
can tap into the
analizzare il
feed,
tutto è sempre attivo,
tap into the
anche
feed
se non
to
state
access the
utilizzando
exact
Autopilot.
data that can fix the problems.
Qui stiamo facendo vedere come varie auto riescono a fare data mining e creare una rete virtuale.
You need label data. You need
Esattamente.
labels to supervise the networks.
Così in questo
If you're
modo
only
possono anche
dependent
capire
on
cosa
the
può
human
essere
labelers,
temporaneo in strada, ad
this data
esempio
will be too
una
tiny
gomma,
to
un
train these
copertone rotto
large
in mezzo alla strada.
multi-camera video modules.
Se
You need
un migliaia di
lots and lots
auto
of
non lo
data to train
vedono
these
e
networks.
un'auto che passa in quel momento lo
Hence,
vede, allora
we
sa che è
have
una cosa
built a
momentanea e
sophisticated
deve evitarlo in
auto-labeling
un modo
pipeline
determinato.
that collects data from the fleet, runs
Guida autonoma in
computational
America, in
algorithms
Italia no
in our
podcast.
data center, and then
Grazie per la
produces the
donazione.
labels to train these networks.
È vero, però
Here,
la cosa
you are
interessante è che
seeing
questo
a
qui
3D
dovrebbe esserci anche in
reconstruction
Italia,
that is
dovrebbero
happening by
avere
collecting
comunque
various
minato
clips
dati e
from different
mappato
cars in the
cose
fleet
fino adesso.
and assembling them, all of them
Tecnicamente,
together
sì.
into a single unified representation of the world around the car. You can see all the lanes, the road boundaries,
Flop.
curbs,
Più dati,
crosswalks,
dice
even the
Davide.
text on the road being accurately reconstructed by these algorithms.
No, ma questi sistemi sono disponibili solo per chi ha FSD al massimo
You don't have
potenziale?
to stop at this kind of
In realtà
reconstruction.
no, nel senso
No,
che
questo qui è
tutte le
scritto su
auto
Based
tutto.
reconstruction, we can build
hanno
various simulations on top
le
of it
camere e
to
soprattutto il
produce an
sistema a bordo.
infinite variety of
Quindi
data
anche la tua
to
Model
train
Y
for all the corner
RVD
cases.
ha
Certo.
questi
We have a
sistemi.
capable simulator that
Ma io
can
mi chiedo come fanno a non
synthesize
attivare i
adversarial
sensori di
weather,
parcheggio se
lighting
sanno fare
conditions,
queste
and even the
cose
motion of other objects to test all the corner cases that might even be rare
col
in the real
Tesla
world.
Vision. Boh.
Faccia di Matteo lascia capire.
Here's an example of why
Ma è
this data is
assurdo,
critical
è una,
and how
è una
we can solve
stupidata.
problems using
Ma no,
data.
ma li hanno tolti e basta,
So
non li
back in the
potevi
days,
dire il telecamere.
Non serve.
for
No.
example, in this case,
Non
we had some
servono
false
che non serve
braking
sentire
where we
tipo
thought
del
this car
Terios.
that's actually
Questa qui è una
blocked
strada
Ok.
was
italiana.
going to move into
Strada
our path,
italiana, leggi il
hence we were
Questa è
cartello.
una strada
cautiously
italiana.
Ah
braking.
sì?
C'è scritto
Sì,
stop.
guarda che roba.
But it is unnecessary because the car is truly parked. So how can we solve this? What we did was we mined the fleet for similar cases
Qua
where
stiamo
the
facendo
car
vedere
false
l'esempio di
braking
cosa vi
due to
dicevo
some
prima,
parked car.
quell'auto bianca di fronte a
We
noi,
added
non quella allo
14,000 videos
stop.
to our training set.
Per
And then once
determinare
we
che è un'auto
train the networks again
parcheggiata
with
sono
this
andati a
new
vedere,
data,
il sistema è
it now
andato a vedere
correctly
che nelle
understands
altre
that,
auto
okay,
che
there is
sono
no driver in
passate
this car,
quell'auto non
hence it must
c'era,
be parked,
Era
quindi ha
then there is
capito
no
che era
need to
un'auto
brake.
parcheggiata e
And this is
infatti
a
si vedete
systematic way
raffigurata
to
di
solve
rosso.
problems. On the chart on the right side, you can see that every time we add data, the performance improves. And then we can do this
Sta dicendo
for every
che
kind of
più
task that we have
dati
in our
si
system.
minano e si aggiungono, più le
And this
performance
is what
sono
we call as
veloci,
data engine.
perché se ci sono tanti
We
dati che dicono
identify
una cosa,
challenging
allora è
cases,
facile
such as the one you
determinare il
saw earlier,
contrario.
and there could be other different types of challenging cases too. We mine the fleet
Una strada
for
italiana
such
senza
data,
buche.
Senza buche.
Dice
put it
Felipe.
through our auto labeling system, and produce the labels, add it to the training set. And once you have
Diciamo
the
che
newly trained
all'inizio
models,
il
we
sistema
deploy
era
them to the
veramente
fleet.
molto più
If we
semplice.
rinse and repeat this
Adesso è veramente
process,
molto
everything
difficile,
gets better and
molto
better.
complesso.
Sì, infatti
Sono
all'inizio non era
reti
neanche
veramente
sviluppato
neurali.
The final critical piece is the
all'inizio
compute.
non era neanche di Tesla,
In order to
Esatto.
train
solamente
these
per
large
quello.
models in a reasonable amount of time, you need lots of compute. In addition, compute is also required to produce the labels automatically. This is just compute in our data centers.
Prima
In
diceva
addition, we
che
also
insomma
have
tutte le cose
high
strane che venivano visualizzate,
compute
che venivano
computers in
identificate
the
sulla
car,
strada
which can
e
run up to
venivano
like 150
passate
teraops of
a delle
compute.
persone che fisicamente andavano ad
On the
inserire
back end, we
cosa
have a
fossero queste
14,000
cose, no?
GPU
Dicevano, cioè,
cluster,
no, quello
and roughly
lì non è
30%
un
is used for
ciclista,
auto
ma è
labeling, and the remaining
semplicemente la
70% is
bicicletta
used for
che
training.
è attaccata su un portabici, ok?
We also have a 30
Oggi
petabyte
invece non è
of
più
video
una
cache,
persona che
and
lo
this is
fa,
growing
ma
to
è
200
un
petabytes.
sistema di
All of
intelligenza
this is going to
artificiale.
significantly
Grazie
increase
mille Luca per la
once we
donazione.
bring
C'è un
Dojo, which is
auto
our training computer,
labeling che in
on board into
caso
this.
di incertezza
Just
manda
to give an
comunque l'uomo,
reference,
Esatto.
però
just
è
the
molto più
occupancy networks
semplice
that you
adesso.
saw earlier use 1.4 billion frames to train these networks. We have already shipped our FSD beta software to pretty much everyone that has
Ecco,
bought it
altra
in
cosa qua
United States and Canada.
interessante
This amounts to
sono le
roughly 400,000
miglia
customers who
guidate,
can
quindi i chilometri
turn it on
guidati,
anywhere, and then the car would attempt to drive to the
ogni
destination. It's still supervised,
incidente.
but it can
3,2
already
milioni
handle turns,
di
stop at
miglia
traffic lights, yield with other objects,
Contro
and
il
generally get to the
500.000.
destination.
contro le 500.000
We
miglia,
have observed that
un
people who use
incidente
FSD are already
in USA.
5 to 6x safer than the US national average. Like I mentioned earlier, the solution to scalable FSD is getting the AI architecture, the data, and the compute just right.
Quindi
And we have
tecnicamente
assembled a
utilizzare
world-class team
l'autopilot è
to
molto
execute
più
on this.
sicuro che guidare in
We are
maniera
pushing the frontier on these on these three items. And as we improve the safety, the reliability, and the comfort of our system, we can then unlock driverless operations, which then makes the car be used way more than what it is used right now. With that, I'd like to introduce Elon back on stage to give some more updates.
Grande Elon!
Torna, Elon.
Adesso torna
Sì,
il
si
ragazzo
stavano
d'oro.
addormentando.
Sì, era lì che...
Yeah, next slide.
Si stavano addormentando, ho detto Elon torna che c'è un casino.
Ragazzi, adesso vedrete una cosa fighissima.
It's kind of weird seeing the arms
Ma
and
che manina?
legs just
La
separate.
manina del robottino. Godiamocelo. Ho stoppato l'audio semplicemente perché non stanno dicendo niente, ma stanno solo facendo vedere il robottino che cammina, ma c'è sotto una musica che probabilmente non è...
Un bel copyright strike.
esatto, non è copyright. Quindi
Che bello che si
qui
autocostruisce.
si autocostruisce il robot, ragazzi, siamo avantissimi. Ed è
Siamo a
qua
livello di Terminator.
esatto, qua diciamo che è stato fatto questo test per far vedere che i robot possono fare lavori normalissimi, come andare ad avvitare una vite, un bullone o fare un buco con un trapano, cose di questo genere, cose che al momento nessun altro tipo di robot è in grado di fare. Può non so, sistemare la tovaglia su un tavolo, eccetera, eccetera. E qui è una intelligenza artificiale vera.
That drives the car.
La stessa intelligenza
Which you can
artificiale
think
che
of the
guida le
car really as a
auto,
robot on wheels,
l'hanno
and this
creata
is a robot
per
on legs.
fare i robot, per
So
muovere
as we solve real
le
world
gambe del
AI,
robot.
I don't think there's anyone
Che
even close to
figata,
Tesla
voglio uno.
on solving real world AI.
Troppo.
That same computer and
Così mi faccio
software
aiutare da lui per fare i video,
goes
la squale non mi
into
serve più.
Optimus. So it's kind of helpful to have a humanoid robot. If you
Oh,
have to
metto insieme
program every
quello,
individual
ChatGPT,
action,
cacchio.
Basta.
No,
it needs to be able
top.
to walk around autonomously and solve tasks.
Risolto.
You should be able to instruct it in simple things by
Speriamo sappiano tornire,
what the robot
dice
needs to
Tony
do,
La
or just
Placa.
telling it what
Si
to do.
avvicina il giorno del
So,
giudizio, dice Andre.
So I think that's a key advantage that we have. And then we also are good at designing things for manufacturing and then manufacturing itself. So the actuators in Optimus are all custom designed Tesla actuators. So we designed
E qui altra super sviolinata, perché nel senso loro sono in grado di costruire anche qui tutti i componenti, soprattutto gli attuatori molto importanti all'interno di questo robot che stanno costruendo.
Because there's a vast number of electric motors, gearboxes and whatnot.
No, Pictus non hanno ancora presentato Tesla Model 2.
None of them were useful in a humanoid
Però
robot.
abbiamo visto qualche immaginetta con teli strani.
Grazie a
cose
Redicasnate
interessanti.
ancora per una donazione di 2,49 € e continua a mettere il dito nella piaga, ma con questa tecnologia super avanzata, ma il parcazzo.
Ma costano troppo i sensori.
Costano troppo i sensori, ragazzi, è così, funziona così.
Troppo belli.
So, I mean, for practical purposes, what this means is that we should be able to bring an actual product to market at scale that is useful far faster than anyone else. And, you know, assuming that the things I'm saying are true, or at least you can put it, I think they are true, it's just a question of the timing. You start getting into interesting questions of like, what's the ratio of humans to humanoid robots? I think it might be greater than 1-to-1. You know, because you could sort of see a home use for robots, certainly industrial uses for robots, humanoid robots. I think we might exceed a 1-to-1 ratio of humanoid robots to humans.
Sta dicendo che praticamente il
It's not even clear what an economy means at that point.
ratio di esistenza robot-umano che potrebbe andare oltre l'1-1, quindi potrebbe esserci più di un robot per ogni persona al mondo. C'è da definire effettivamente che tipo di robot.
What's the actual limit on the economy?
Sì, robot umanoidi.
We're still pretty far from codice scales here, but we're getting there. So anyway,
Sì, beh, è
It's
un po' esagerato Elon,
probably the
però
least understood or
sappiamo
appreciated product we're
benissimo.
doing at Tesla, but will probably be worth significantly more than the car side of
Allora,
things.
il commento di Daniele, troppo difficile programmare un beep beep.
So
I
charging.
think Rebecca's
Ha
next.
ragione,
Talking about charging.
complesso.
Elon
Oh,
sembra in deep state. Non è lui in realtà. Ragazzi, mi raccomando, iscrivetevi al canale, continuate a iscrivervi, grazie.
Charging.
Vi
Vediamo
voglio
se
bene.
ci sono novità
Hi
sugli
there.
adattatori
My name is
supercharger.
Rebecca Tanucci,
Oh,
and I
vediamo.
lead our
Dai che
charging
mette la
infrastructure
22.
teams here at Tesla.
Dai a 22 kW.
And at
Ah,
Tesla,
è
22
charging
kg,
has
kg.
been
è una
understood since
figata.
day one that a great charging experience is the linchpin to electric vehicle adoption. And that
Vabbè.
understanding has meant that we've always taken a
Il
holistic
99%
approach to
dei
charging.
viaggi
That's
è
a word that you've
possibile
heard
con
a
una
lot
Tesla.
here today,
Non
but what
male.
it means for charging is that we've considered
Il
every use case. We think a lot
99,9%
about what it
della
means to charge
time,
home, even if
È
that
quello.
home is
quello
an
è vero,
apartment or
c'è
condo.
tutto, c'è
And
tutto,
we spend a
raga.
lot of time thinking about what does it mean to charge away from home, if
1,5
that's for daily
milioni
commuting or if you're going on
di
a road trip.
sessioni di carica al
And this
supercharger.
holistic approach
A
has led to some
settimana.
pretty incredible results.
Porca.
In 2022, we provided 9 terawatt hours of charging across our various charging methods. Over 50% of that was supplied via
Ah, site level
convenient
uptime ci ho
AC
messo un
home
attimo a
charging.
capirlo.
9
Sapere quanto
terawatt in
tempo
un
stanno
anno,
They can
online.
visit one of our 80,000 charging points. That
Vuol dire che i
includes 40,000 of
supercharger
our
sono
beloved
più del
superchargers.
99,9% del loro tempo esistente
Now, getting
online.
here has meant
Certo.
that we've spent 10 years building charging infrastructure when basically no one else in the industry would do it.
10
And while we
anni
certainly
che
have a
la
lot of
sviluppano,
areas that we
la
want to
loro,
improve,
la
those
loro
10
Tesla
years have afforded us
supercharging,
the opportunity to get pretty good at charging.
quando gli altri ancora
First, we have the industry's lowest deployment
non ci
costs.
pensavano
Our
nemmeno.
costs are often 20%, if not 70% lower than alternatives, and that goes for both our supercharging hardware and deployments and our AC charging product line.
Ok, e qui stanno
A lot of
dicendo
reasons that we're able to
che
achieve this.
a
You've
loro
heard
costa
a lot of
veramente
them here
poco
today. We're
creare
vertically
i
integrated. We
supercharger
manufacture and engineer
oggi,
all of our own
perché
charging
chiaramente ne hanno
equipment.
creati
We
talmente
share
tanti
components across
che
our different
hanno,
product
come
lines.
si diceva
And
prima,
on the
scale, quindi hanno
supercharger side,
aumentato
we
tantissimo
also
e
install and
hanno
operate
diminuito
all
i
of our own
costi.
sites. And that's led us to be pretty obsessed with finding new ways to innovate around installation. As an example, we have recently extended our excellence in manufacturing to how we build supercharger sites. We are pre-building 4-post supercharger
Ah,
units at
figo!
our factory in New York.
Ora,
We
raga,
load them on a truck,
hanno
we truck
anche
them to site, and then
cercato
we crane
di,
them into
di
position.
creare
This
dei
method saves us 15% on
supercharger
our
già
deployment costs, and we can
premontati,
install a site in a
Li
matter of days.
prefabbricano.
li prefabbricano,
Fabbricati. Così
Once
risparmio
we
sul
install a
montaggio
risparmiano
site,
in,
we
ancora.
in
also
loco.
operate it
Vabbè,
really
oh,
efficiently.
sì,
Over the
sì.
last
Devono
few
solo
years,
allacciare
we've
un
been able to
cavolo e
cut our per
importante.
kilowatt
beh,
hour
sì.
cost by 40%. Again, a lot of reasons for this, but one at the top of the list is we've focused on increasing our site utilization. Site utilization is just how many sessions or kilowatt hours can we push through a site or a post. And basically doing that allows us to spread our cost over more sessions, thus lower cost per kilowatt hour. But of course, that's easier said than done, because when we push up site efficiency, of course, the risk is that we have a poor customer experience and we have wait time at our sites. This is where Trip Planner comes in. Trip Planner is our in-vehicle routing or navigation system. Other electric vehicle manufacturers, well, some of them have vehicle-side data. Other
Ok,
infrastructure
adesso
providers have
stanno
site
parlando un po' di
data,
quello
but at Tesla we
che
have
è
both. And what that
il
allows us to do
viaggio,
is to use
perché
Trip
ha
Planner to
un'importanza
route vehicles
fondamentale.
towards
Oltre a
available
creare
sites and away from congested sites, so we
l'infrastruttura
can
di
balance our
ricarica,
utilization without risking wait time. And the results
un'altissima
speak for themselves.
percentuale di
Over the last few years,
importanza
we've been
lo
able to
ha
drive
anche il
up
trip
site
planner,
utilization by
quindi
30%. That means
il
lower per kilowatt hour
sistema
cost, while
automatico
also
dentro
cutting
le
our wait
Tesla
time in
che
half.
va ad indicare
And
dove
we think
andare
this
a
can get
ricaricare,
even better.
quando
Today, we're
fermarsi, per
feeding Trip
quanto
Planner
tempo,
with
eccetera.
real-time site
Perché chiaramente
information
con
and information
tantissime
about
Tesla in
vehicles currently at
strada
sites.
ci vuole un
Going
sistema che
forward,
vada e
we'll be moving
sappia
that
quanto
to
tempo, e
projecting
tutto
site
viene calcolato
occupancy
in real
based on the
time.
understanding of what
Quindi
vehicles are
sanno
currently
quante
routing
auto
to those
stanno per
sites.
arrivare al
And
supercharger,
ultimately, our
quanto
vision for
tempo
Trip
stanno
Planner is that
ferme,
it's the air
staranno
traffic
ferme, e se
controller
tu che
for
stai in quel
electric vehicle
momento lì
charging
andando
across
a pianificare
all
il viaggio sulla
infrastructure
tua
on a global
Tesla,
basis.
a che ora arriverai
And
esattamente
the last thing
o
we
giù di
focused on to
lì,
get here
e
is
per
quicker
quanto
charge
tempo dovrai
times.
fermarti,
We're
quanta
really proud
energia
of what we've been
riuscirai
able
a
to accomplish here.
immagazzinare
We've shaved
prima
off
di
30%
ripartire, eccetera, eccetera. Una figata. Nessuno lo può fare, ve lo dico.
Esatto.
Solo Tesla può farlo.
Anche il capire tra quanto se ne andrà l'auto che sta caricando.
Esatto. Ovviamente perché le altre aziende non fanno sharing di questo genere di dati. Giacomo dice: una tettoia nel supercharger quando si ricarica è troppo difficile farla. Ma per quello ti hanno messo Netflix dentro nell'auto, così stai in macchina, fai i cavoli tuoi e ti guardi un film. E questo, eccola qua,
Però ogni tanto manca anche il cestino.
arriva. Questa è interessante, Ginger.
All of those vehicles have to have a great and reliable charging experience. So, as many of you know,
Qui cambiano
recently we started
il connettore,
opening up our
veramente
networks on a
interessante
global
questa cosa qui. In
basis.
America
Over
abbiamo un
50% of
connettore
our
tipo 1
superchargers in Europe are
che
currently open to other
ha
electric
bisogno di
vehicles. We've
un
also opened up in Asia Pacific
adattatore
with our
per
first
caricare
sites in
con le
Australia.
CCS2 combo
And just
e
yesterday, we opened our
altro
first 10
genere. E
supercharger
il
sites here in
sistema,
North
quando
America
si
and
va
the
ad
US to other
utilizzare
electric vehicles.
la colonnina di
We've also
ricarica,
invested a
sa
lot to be able to make
quale,
this a really
diciamo,
easy
presa
experience for our new
darvi.
customers. All you
E
have to do is
quindi
sign into our
non,
Tesla
come
app to
dicevamo prima,
unlock
io e
a
Ginger
post
dietro le
and start charging.
quinte,
We've also, on
diciamo,
physical site changes, we've also
l'adattatore sarà
added hardware
fissato
to our sites. They're
direttamente
called
e non sarà
magic
possibile
docks. And
sganciarlo.
basically that is installed in areas where we have
Così da
different
evitare
charging
adattatori
standards,
che
and they allow for
spariscono
other
o
electric
cose
vehicles to
strane.
come to our site without having to bring their own adapters or hardware.
E non ci sarà
We've
non
also
ci
just
sarà,
started
diciamo, necessità
installing
di
our
andare a
fourth
prendere
generation
e di
supercharger
portarsi il
posts.
proprio
Those are being
adattatore.
installed in Europe first, and while it's
Che
not
questi tra
a
l'altro
big
sono già stati
dimension, not a big
installati,
thing
ci
to
sono già 3
mention, they have
supercharger
longer
così.
charging cables so that we can more easily reach the charge ports of different vehicles.
E hanno
second
anche
thing we need to make sure we do when
analizzato
we talk
altri
about
veicoli
scaling
rispetto
all
a
of this
Tesla
charging
per
infrastructure
andare
is we
a
need to make
modificare
sure
e
that it's
migliorare, non so, la
powered from
lunghezza del
renewable
cavo, la
sources. We're
disposizione del
very proud that over the
supercharger,
last 2
eccetera,
years we've
per
procured
anche gli
enough
altri
renewable
veicoli. Ricordiamo
energy
che
to
non tutte le
offset the
auto
amount
hanno
of charging
la
we've
porta di
provided to
ricarica
customers.
nel
But as we look
posteriore
forward and we talk
sinistro,
about
altre
this
ce l'hanno
fully
davanti,
electrified
altre ce
fleet
l'hanno
on
a
a global
destra,
basis,
eccetera,
we
eccetera.
really
E
want to
quindi
make sure
Tesla
that
sta
the
pensando anche a quello,
demand for
dato che
charging more
la
closely
sua rete di
follows when
ricarica
renewable
piano piano
sources are
sarà aperta a
available.
tutti.
Now this
Già
chart is on
adesso
an
è aperta
aggregate basis
parecchio.
for the US, and it
Sì,
varies
hanno detto
based on
che
what
la
your
versione col
renewable
cavo lungo
generation
arriverà
sources are
prima in
locally.
Europa e poi
But basically,
in America.
what this shows is we want to kind of move that charging curve, and for solar and wind in this example, it means more daytime charging. And we think the best way to
No,
go
Mattia,
towards
aspetta
daytime
ancora un
charging
po',
is to
ci siamo quasi.
install
Tieni duro,
AC
Mattia.
charging that
Tieni
is
duro, tenete duro,
convenient
raga.
and low
Ci siamo
cost
quasi,
everywhere vehicles
Siamo in
are
live da
typically
un'ora e
parked
mezza.
throughout the day. So
Incredibile.
that's really the plan.
Ragazzi,
While
è tanto,
supercharging and home charging definitely stay a big part of the puzzle, our teams are
Confronto alla
currently
live del
scaling to
Cybertruck,
install
costruzione
AC
Quella
Cybertruck.
charging
quella
everywhere
live
vehicles
è
charge during the day so
leggendaria.
that we can power them from renewable
Quanti eravamo?
sources.
3.000 e rotti, ne? Non mi ricordo.
All'inizio, poi
So
scesi a
summing it up,
36.
while we've spent 10 years installing infrastructure that is low
Me lo ricordo.
cost, it's efficient, and it provides a great customer experience, we're really just getting started when we talk about supporting Master Plan Part 3. We've got to scale capacity on an industry-wide basis to 9 petawatt hours on an annual basis. We've got to open up to non-Teslas and make the charging experience for everybody really great, and we've got to power all of this via renewable sources.
Ma quanto mi piacerebbe andare
And
in
one more
questo
thing. Yes,
diner
we've got to
a
scale.
mangiare.
We've got to scale our infrastructure.
Sarebbe
And
figo, no?
yes, we want to power it via renewable
Averlo anche
sources,
qui in
but with
Italia,
Tesla.
intendo.
So we
Vero,
also
vero.
want to make sure that
Bello.
we're continuing to focus on
Tra
providing
l'altro il
really
marchio diverso è
incredible
registrato.
charging experiences.
Yeah.
With that, I want to welcome up our leaders of supply chain, Roshan and Karn, to talk a little bit about that topic.
Ok, dai, adesso ci parla di supply chain e poi dopo c'è un ultimo topic. Vediamo.
Vediamo.
Sarà one more thing, dai.
Vediamo.
Becca.
Sì.
One morphine, nel senso un po' di morfina.
Hi, my name is Karn, and my team leads supply chain for electronics, powertrain, and battery at Tesla. And
Mezzanotte,
we've also
raga,
got
ma
responsibility
state
for
con
indirect
noi,
purchasing, construction procurement,
Siamo ancora in
warehousing and distribution.
1170.
Hi, my name is Roshan.
Ci siamo quasi.
I've been with Tesla for over 14
Ci siamo
years.
quasi.
Spero che tutti
My
siate
team
iscritti al canale,
manages
raga.
vehicle commodities, solar,
Oh,
logistics,
vi ripeto,
planning,
iscrivetevi al
and
canale,
capital
grazie.
equipment.
10 years, forgot
Clicca,
that.
clicca.
So today we wanted to provide you a quick overview of Tesla's supply chain
Grazie.
and what really separates us
Allora
from
sono
the
tipo le
typical
16, esatto.
automotive supply chain. As you've seen in presentations prior from Pete and Drew and some others, Tesla designs a lot of the subcomponents that go into our vehicles. So we're not buying things that are off the shelf from suppliers. So supply chain is not purely a commercial relationship as it is in most other companies. We actually have an arm within supply chain called Supply Industrialization Engineering. And the burden of taking a drawing, a design from concept and turning it into thousands of products produced at the right cost and at the right yield falls with this group. Of course, they work very closely with design engineering. But really, the level of detail that our engineers get involved in terms of building the capability of the suppliers is pretty detailed.
Stanno ancora
So,
sottolineando
you
il
know,
fatto che
once
hanno
we
la
get a
produzione
new part,
verticalizzata.
naturally,
Sono
with
super
electric
fighi.
vehicles, a lot of the
Esatto.
supply chain doesn't exist.
È vero,
Our
è
engineers
oggettivamente è
basically take
vero.
the drawing, turn it into a manufacturing concept, do the equipment selection, and physically go to the supplier and stay there for weeks or months, however long it takes, to basically do the line bring up. Once the line is brought up and we're hitting the right rate, the right quality, at the right yield, then we work on things like automation and yield improvement and those types of activities. So there's a big group of mechanical, electrical, industrial, you name it, engineers within supply chain, and it's their responsibility to
Praticamente
take care of this.
permettono ai
Now, this
capi
is a
ingegneri, a
huge
certi
strategic
ingegneri di andare
advantage
quasi a
because we
trasferirsi
manage
verso dei
every detail
produttori
of our supply chain because we're
esterni
so
per
integrated with our
definire al
partners
meglio
that
il
we know
point
about
di
issues
qualità
before they happen. It's almost
e
live.
tipo
We've
di
got dashboards, we've
produzione
got connections,
dell'oggetto,
and
che non può
across
essere
the
prodotto da loro.
10,000 or so factories across the
Esatto.
world that are making our components, we have a pretty good view of the health of those suppliers, and this has been a key asset in how we've been able to kind of manage things through a lot of different issues over the past couple of years. So,
E ragazzi,
yeah,
ovviamente
supply
già che
chain
ci siete,
is
mettete
a
anche
game
like
of
alla
perfection.
live.
Perfection is a passing grade. It's like you know, if one part doesn't show up, that line goes down, and our CEO finds out about it in less than 20 minutes. Tesla is very different than Apple. They outsource manufacturing, we do it in-house.
Sì, Gigi,
So
ogni
supply chain's
tanto
kind of right
ricevo
in the
anche io
middle.
qualcosa.
And perfection is increasingly elusive
Ha
and very
fatto un paragone
expensive,
con Apple dicendo
if
che
you
Tesla non
kind
fa
of look at
outsourcing, che penso
all
sia la
the big issues we've
differenziazione
had to
di
encounter over the
chi
past year. And
gestisce
today
la
we're just going to talk about
produzione e
how
la
we got
consegna
through
di
the
parti
past,
della
and then what are
produzione.
we going to do going
Ad
forward,
esempio
and
Apple
how are we going to get there.
sui Mac Pro
So let me
utilizza
draw your
4 tipi
attention to
diversi
this
di
slide.
alimentatori
On the
per
left,
così in
you'll
caso ci
see
siano
a
differenze o
portfolio, our
recall da
existing
fare,
portfolio of products.
coinvolgerebbero
Right? At
solamente
the
un
side,
quarto
you've got
della
the SNX
produzione.
platform. In the middle, you've got the 3 and Y. I think everyone's more than familiar with those. And then the Tesla Energy platform, which is a very high rate of growth for us. And you see...
Don't forget the solar and superchargers.
And solar and supercharger. Thank you, Roshan. And you'll see a reduction in... So, and then we basically got the tier 1 and tier 2 parts. This might be boring, but a tier 1 supplier is any supplier that builds and supplies parts directly for consumption in our 5 factories. And our tier 2 supplier basically does the same thing for a tier 1 supplier. So they are the supplier to our supplier. And depending on the supply chain,
Ho capito io che la
any one of
supply
these
chain è
products, this can
importante.
actually go down to the tier 6 level. So for example, if you're talking about the battery cell, we really get involved
Basta,
with the minds of
uscitela,
whoever we're
non ne
procuring,
possiamo
the
più.
lithium, the cobalt, and all that sort of stuff.
È che dobbiamo andare a lavorare domattina.
Sta dicendo che hanno praticamente in sostanza 6 livelli di massima produzione e di supply chain esterna. Ad esempio sui pacchi batterie vanno a verificare direttamente da chi viene estratto il materiale.
We actually had a similar strategy in supply chain. We had cast a wide net to a lot of suppliers for the SNX platform. There's a lot of suppliers that we invited to partner with us. And we used that platform as sort of a filter to see which suppliers have the technical, financial and cultural
Siete stati svegli fino alle 2 per vedere cantare Mengoni e non superate la mezzanotte per vedere uno che ha cambiato il mondo dell'automotive. Bravi,
ha senso. Nulla da togliere a Mengoni.
Mattia dice che ha una verifica domani, ma se hai già studiato devi stare sveglio.
Dai Mattia, io ho l'interrogazione domani, non importa. Dai.
Io devo andare a lavorare, fai te. E devo anche finire e girare il video che uscirà domani su questo argomento. Quindi Ginger non andrà a dormire adesso. Pasquale sì. Pasquale sta già dormendo adesso.
No, sto aspettando la macchina, poi finita la macchina io vi
prepara la carta di credito, ragazzo. Prepara la carta di credito.
all the little
Si
Si
certo,
aprono
esatto.
aprono
Aprono le danze,
le danze
preordine.
stasera, preordine, via. $1000, boom,
the
così.
complexity
Via,
is
pim,
immense. So
secco.
even though at the
Dai,
tier
io
1
la
level we're
compro,
talking
io la
about
compro se esce.
8,000 parts total,
La compro
it
per
seems like
Arisa.
a lot, but it's not a lot. The management of the tier 2 is
Possiamo
really
registrare questa
where we
parte, per
excel,
piacere.
and I'd like to illustrate that with an example. Meet the car computer.
$1000 di
Very
cosa?
innocent
Di
sounding name,
aria
and it's
fritta?
anything but.
Esatto,
This is
di
an
niente
absolute
assoluto.
monster
Dopo
to
fra
manage.
5-6 anni
So I think you've all
arriverà.
seen the picture on the
Arriverà.
left of
Arriva
the
la macchina
autopilot
Nel
board.
frattempo
nel
noi abbiamo
mentre giro
The
pedali.
autopilot board also has a bottom, and the bottom is populated heavily
Ci
with
sono più di
components.
7000 componenti per
On the other
il
side of
computer
the
all'interno
heatsink, you've
dell'auto,
got the MCU, the
ci si
multimedia
mette
cluster board.
meno di
This board is
1,4
equally
millisecondi a
complex. It's also
passare
double-sided,
dal
8-layered.
primo all'ultimo
And these
componente
boards,
come
these computers
impulso,
run so hot at peak operation
e
that
c'è
they
una
have to be
riduzione del lavoro di
liquid
costruzione,
cooled through a
immagino,
heatsink.
no?
So
Scusate,
this assembly requires
riduzione del
taking
flusso
those
di
two
elaborazione
boards
di qualsiasi
and then
dato del
bonding them to a
95% in
heatsink
confronto a qualsiasi
that's
altro computer.
hermetically sealed as an assembly,
Dei
of course
dati
flashing
così,
the software and all
giusto
that sort of
per...
stuff.
Sì,
And then that's one part
dei
number
dati che noi
that comes to
non
Tesla. So
possiamo
this
capire,
is an
però
example of
chiaramente vogliono dire
one
che
tier 1 part
sono
number that's
impegnati
a
festo.
very complex assembly to manage at the tier 2 level.
Che il PC è importante, c'è tanti
There's more than
pezzi, è
7,000
veloce
components
e
here.
consuma
There's
poco.
you know, as we stand here, a component's being assembled onto a car computer every 1.4 milliseconds. The line that builds this computer is the length of a football field. So it's quite complicated. And
Questa è una
initially,
cosa
when we first
interessante.
started building this board, due to the complexity
La
of it, we had
linea
to
di
rely heavily on
costruzione
labor.
è
But
grande,
once
anzi
we
è
dialed
di
in
questi
the quality,
computer
the rates, and
è
the
lunga
yield,
come un
we
campo da
started
football.
focusing on making this more efficient.
Però.
The only way to control cost is by removing labor. The first step is removing labor. The second step is fully automating. The third step is turning off the lights and letting the factory run, ideally. And that's going to be the goal for us.
Bella questa
Va troppo
esclamazione.
avanti, ragazzi.
We're going to be going
Qua ha
a lot
detto,
further
allora,
than
per
this.
ridurre i costi dobbiamo
illustrates the point
completamente
that
togliere le persone che
a
lo
part
fanno,
is not a part,
far
a
fare
part has
tutto
a
alle
lot of
macchine,
complexity underneath it.
fargli
Supply
fare
chain
tutto
is a game of
automaticamente
multiple tiers.
e come ultimo
And
step
what's made us
spegnere anche
successful
tutte le luci
is our
della fabbrica
involvement in all the details
e farle
with our
lavorare le
supply
macchine
engineers,
tutte al buio.
that are Tesla employees. They're Tesla supply engineers.
Sì.
So they're like on our payroll that go and ramp up these
Stima per
capabilities with our
quest'uomo.
suppliers.
Perché è sparita la I di Tesla
Perché
live sopra?
TSLA
through the chip shortage, through the
perché
pandemic,
scritto Andrea
TSLA
in
was
è
very
lo
difficult
stock.
to manage.
Costava troppo,
because we
Sì,
had all
è
the
il nome in
details.
borsa di
Il nome
Tesla.
in borsa, visto che è l'Investor
Of
Day.
course, supply chain is not just about
Dai,
parts.
no.
It's also about logistics
Simbolo
and a lot
delle
of
azioni
other things. So
Tesla,
I'll
no?
hand it off to Roshan for sharing some stats.
Dai, dai.
Dai,
Yeah,
dai.
so talking about
Finalmente un
complexity,
semi, lo vediamo.
just over the course of just last year, we moved about 16
Ecco,
million
compriamo
pallets
semmai.
from our suppliers to our factories.
Comincia a fare la
Just
patente.
to visualize that, if you put those
giusto, vero?
pallets side by side,
Io mi siedo dietro nel
it could
cassone.
cover the half the circumference of the Earth. And talking about again the tier 2 complexity,
1 billion
over 1 billion electronic components
electronic
get
components.
moved every week to support the production that Kern and team manages.
This is right now, 1 billion components a week,
Right.
52 billion a year. This is going to go up, by the way.
And on top of that, we also have the responsibility
Un
to make
miliardo
sure
di
the
componenti
right component
elettroniche
is
vengono
supplied to the
spedite
right
ogni
service
settimana
location to
per le
support
varie,
the
per
growing fleet
tirare in
of our
piedi tutte le
vehicles.
auto che
And we
costruiscono.
have about 685 service centers
E
that these
hanno
components need to show up
685
just in time.
service center.
And then we've also been, as
Mia mal.
a result of pandemic and even before that, we're working on dual sourcing and triple sourcing some of our critical components. As a result of it, we have suppliers
Triple
around
sourcing, quello che
45
dicevamo
countries
prima.
in the world.
Yeah, our approach really has been to bring the manufacturing of
Prendere le
subcomponents
parti da
closer to the
due o
point of
tre
consumption.
produttori
It makes
diversi.
the supply chain more green because you're not burning diesel, moving stuff
Sì,
around.
effettivamente sembra
And it
una
also gives us the
lezione
security of
universitaria
supply
di
of having multiple
matematica,
sources in case
questo
one
questo
factory
Investor
gets
Day
taken
per
off.
adesso.
That's how
Tutti i
we run the
numeri,
pandemic.
Yep.
solo numeri. Guardiamo, dai.
So last 3 years were incredibly hard.
Gli ultimi 3 anni
Kern
sono
and I
stati
used to
veramente
work a lot
difficili.
younger, pre-COVID. But on a serious note,
Chiaramente perché
pandemic really
mancavano
changed the
i
game of
componenti.
supply chain management. We were just
Pier.
not being a regular supply chain person. We were rolling up our sleeves and negotiating with state governments, city managers, mayors to help kickstart our suppliers to restart their operations. You know, there are some really inspiring stories where our supply chain team really fought hard
Sì, il
to
fatto
make
è
sure that the
che
factories don't go
tantissime,
down.
non so, vari
It's
comuni,
also a
eccetera,
testament to
avevano
the
bloccato
resilience of
completamente
our
tutto, la
supply
gente non
partners.
poteva uscire di casa, non
Having
potevano
said that,
lavorare, eccetera, eccetera, ma loro volevano continuare a
it was all
lavorare
about
e hanno passato
resilience
tantissime
and
ore a cercare
never
di
give up attitude.
convincere
We had
tutti,
also laid the foundation of having
comuni,
dual
le
sources, and
province,
also
eccetera, di farli passare,
in many
farli lavorare, far
instances
lavorare
we
le loro
had
persone.
many you know things that
In
we had
effetti non è che si siano
simplified,
fermati molto loro.
parts that we had simplified, the supply chain design that we had simplified, due to
Sì,
which
Tesla per
we're
un buon
able
periodo è
to
stata
get through the
l'unica a
pandemic
consegnare
in much
auto
better shape
praticamente.
than the rest
Ma
of the
ancora
automotive.
oggi.
Anche con i camion, esatto.
Beh,
Beh,
anche
ragazzi,
oggi i tempi
oggi
d'attesa sono
devo comprare
umani.
un mese e mezzo di attesa.
Sono
Chi
giusti.
li ha oggi un mese e mezzo di attesa? Non è un'auto che si compra molto spesso, va bene, ok, però se guardate anche le altre auto elettriche, te le danno in 6 mesi.
Sì, poi in pandemia la consegna a casa gratuita. Chi la faceva?
Esatto. Ah, ma sapete che non c'è più il
Yeah, and
servizio del
as we were
Ranger a
just
casa a
figuring out to
domicilio,
work
eh?
with COVID, then the port congestion hit on the West Coast.
Scomparso.
Logistics
Costava
lead
troppo.
time went up by
Sì,
twice the
perché ho richiesto il
amount,
Ranger, mi ha
and we were
detto:
operating
"No, mi
with less
spiace,
than
non le facciamo
35%
più.
accuracy in the system.
Devi
That means at
venire
any given point, the
devi
ETAs
venire a
of the
Milano." Ho detto: "No,
vessels
lascia
were
sta.
75% off.
Aspetto quando
So
apri a Brescia."
we
Ah,
figured
va
out how
bene.
to work with that, and then the chip shortage hits.
Yeah, the chip shortage. That was a nightmare. But we got through it. I mean, I think it's a testament to the tenacity
Fiamma ha
of the team
aspettato
and the
9
resilience of
mesi
our
per
supply
una A3
partners.
ibrida.
It's mostly behind
Quindi,
us, and I think
sì, i
the
tempi sono
results
ancora
speak for
buoni.
themselves.
9 mesi.
Sì,
Tesla was able to
9
grow
mesi
production
è
volumes at a
normale.
time
Le auto
where the rest of the
tedesche.
industry had a hard time staying flat. I think they shrunk, actually.
Oh wow, guarda qua.
Cumulatively.
Qua
And we're often
quanti
asked the question, how do we
quante auto
manage through it? And the answer is very
riescono a
much
produrre?
baked through the presentations today. First, we design our own electronics. So in order to control cost, we've really had to go and build relationships
Più di
with local tier
1200
2
al giorno.
suppliers to negotiate them directly. So these relationships are formed, over 10 years ago.
Sì, praticamente
and we've
il
really
trend è
gotten to
stato
know them well.
negativo per
So when a
solamente un
shortage
mese o
hit, we
due.
knew,
Mm-mm.
who to escalate to, who to call, who to
Un
ask for
mese.
help, and really kind of
Un
swarming
mese
the
solo.
issue at the point of constraint. So the best team, strong relationships with vendors, and then we also have a pretty
9 mesi
sophisticated
per
capacity planning function.
MG0SIV,
Tier 2
2 anni per
capacity
un
needs to
Peugeot
come on earlier
Partner.
than Tier 1 capacity. Tier 3
Il
capacity has to be even
furgoncino.
earlier.
La
And
Ioniq
our team
5
does a very
invece
good
5
job
mesi per
of having
averla.
that strategic
Ah,
alignment with all our
buono.
partners to make sure
No,
that the
5 mesi,
capacity
Iari,
is ready before
io
we need it.
divento
We're
matto.
a
Beh,
mission-based
ho
company.
capito,
Our
i
goal is to
tempi
put
erano
as many EVs
quelli
out there. We did not
pre-Covid.
let the pandemic phase us. We were full
3
throttle.
no.
And it was pedal to the
10.000
metal
10
Beh, no,
mesi
for
anche
per una
2 years
Sierra
ago.
adesso,
Leone.
That also helped.
anche adesso
4
sono
mesi per
così i
una
tempi.
Industry
Puma.
has very long lead times. They invest
Sì,
billions
sì, i
of
tempi non
dollars
sono
in
cambiati.
sophisticated
No, no.
fabs that take years to build. So that stability and demand is something they appreciated, and it's something that is very much a Tesla thing.
Stefano Pigatto, tieni duro,
So
tieni duro.
this was looking back,
No,
right?
buonanotte.
This is how we
Ci
got
siamo,
here.
ci
This is
siamo.
how we got from
No,
0 to
niente, un'altra
40,000 cars
slide.
a week.
No.
Let's talk about how we get to 20 million. So the question
Let's
gets
talk
asked,
about the
is Tesla going to
semiconductor.
basically break the chip industry
Io
if we
bevo.
grow to 20 million vehicles?
Because
The answer is no. But let me walk you through a logic on that.
Tesla
So as
share.
it stands right now, a Tesla enabled with a full self-driving computer has 4 times the silicon content of a regular vehicle.
Sì.
So at about the 2 million
Molta
run rate,
gente
we're
se la
consuming about
vende.
700,000
Praticamente il processore
12-inch wafer equivalents. That's the industry term that's thrown around
Oh.
for capacity of
ha
silicon.
7 volte
That's how much we're
il
using, so a little bit
silicon
below a
che
million.
serve per
And the
costruire
global wafer capacity,
un'auto
based on the
normale.
estimates we've
Non abbiamo
seen,
ancora capito
is
cos'è
Possiamo
about
questo
pausare.
silicon,
135
ma in
million. So we're
realtà
about
silicon è
0.5%
silicio.
of the industry.
Sì, si dice,
Not a lot.
scusa. Faccio
Now, if you get to
un
20
bivacco
million,
anch'io un
when we
momento.
get to 20 million, and if we don't make any simplifications in terms of part count, which is also a separate work
Bisognerebbe
stream, I think
capire
Colin talked
in
about
tutto
it, Pete talked about
questo
it,
grande
we're not going to
e
have all these
bello,
different components.
no,
We're really going to simplify the architecture
sì, ma
because simpler is better. But even if
qui
we
di
don't do that,
costruzione di
and we
queste
take the most
auto,
pessimistic
quanta
case,
acqua è
we're going to need 8
utilizzata?
million
Non,
wafers.
non l'hanno
Okay?
mai
And the
detto,
industry is going to scale to 20
Vero,
to 200 million by
vero.
that
non hanno
time.
mai
Non
So still
indicato.
we're less
non
than
è un
5%
dato
of
che
our
dicono
industry.
spesso
And if
effettivamente.
we
No,
run the same
ma è
offense we
molto
ran all
importante, eh?
along
È vero,
and
il
continue to
consumo
work with our
dell'acqua
Il consumo dell'acqua è molto
invest in fabs
importante.
and invest in capacity,
Sempre più
we'll have the
importante in
capacity
questo
ready by the
momento
time we need it.
storico,
So I
insomma.
really don't see this as an
Before
impediment
heat pump,
from a supply
next.
chain perspective to get
Ma che
to
bello.
20 million.
Sembra molto più easy.
Now, I would like to talk about a page that we took out of the electronic playbook and applied it to the
Google dice che
mechanical
ci vogliono
side.
circa 2500
Our
litri
vehicles
d'acqua
use
per una
currently
Model
the
3
heat pump-based
Ah, dai.
technology for the
e
thermal system.
3700 per una
But
Model
before
X.
heat pump, our
Quindi
Neanche
vehicles used
tanto.
to have a
Neanche
dispersed
tanto,
thermal
sì.
system
No,
connected by
guarda
hoses.
quanto ci vuole per...
Automation was
Per un
inspired
paragone.
from
Sì,
circuits
sì,
Per una
guarda,
Toyota Corolla.
and then
ma,
created a system
sì, ma
which was
neanche, magari
extremely integrated, where
vai a cercare
60%
quanto ci
of
vuole
the
per,
system was the size of a basketball, where it
per una
contained about
pianta
100
di
components, 50 sealing interfaces, and
Un banale.
several different manufacturing
una cosa del
processes,
genere.
all were packaged into
Vedrai
this
quante ne servono di
tight
litri.
size. Now, why are we talking about this? Well, we launched the system right during the outbreak of the pandemic in Model Y. The team was forced to
Luciano
manage
peggiora.
100 plus components from different suppliers around the world remotely.
Ecco sì, questo qua, come sono cambiate le cose.
So
Prima c'era
there
una
are
persona
4
che
videos playing at the
faceva
same
questa
time.
cosa,
One is the video of the manual line that
dopo
was
siamo
created
andati in
when we started the
semi-automatico
production. And this manual
e poi
line
basta.
produced a lot of quality issues, let alone throughput.
Macchine.
So we quickly, pivoted to a semi-automated line. But in spite of that, although the throughput
Quanti
was
litri di latte per un
great,
parmigiano?
the quality issues sustained. So our team
Comunque,
decided
Salvatore,
that
l'acqua
fully
viene
automated
utilizzata per il
is the only way to
raffreddamento dei
go.
macchinari, ad
Sì,
esempio.
esatto.
So before
Media
we
di
automate the
2,5
line,
litri a settimana
we
per una
created
pianta
a
media.
3D simulation.
Quindi
Now, not many companies or teams have this capability, where at this point, now when a part gets spec'd,
Grande
we have the
Piero.
ability to create a 3D simulation of all the complex sub-assemblies that would be involved in making the part, and tell the suppliers exactly what equipment to purchase, what to test, and create an end-to-end line in simulation. And that's what we did
Ovviamente
here.
con
So
un
with
sistema
the
di
help
questo
of the
genere
simulation,
completamente
we had a very detailed
automatizzato, le
sub-assembly
macchine
cell, which
addirittura
was
fanno gli ordini.
juxtaposed with
Fanno gli ordini e dicono: "Ah, mi
the
manca",
supplier's
oppure "Mi sta
factory
per
layout.
finire,
And
questa
then
cosa qui",
we,
fanno gli ordini
after a back and
direttamente
forth of
al
iteration and
a chi glieli
optimizing the
spedisce,
processes,
a chi li
we
produce magari.
implemented this fully automated line in less than 8
Quello è
months.
già dove sono oggi,
And the results were remarkable. 99% reduction in labor force.
Non male.
So a line that
Guardate
would
la
need
differenza tra
1,000
il manual
associates to
e
build the
l'automated.
super manifold in full volume, now just takes 10 associates. And the
99.995
quality also
5%.
went up by an order of magnitude. We have a defect
mi
rate
ha
of less
inviato
than
un link interessante, il
0.05%,
nostro collaboratore Andrea
and
Cornari,
a
che ci
super
sta lavorando
manifold
adesso,
rolls out every 7
che
seconds because we have created
riporta
many automated
la
lines.
richiesta media di
And
acqua per la
these
costruzione di
factories are the size of
un'auto
2 football
tedesca
fields, by the way.
BMW,
Roshan had to one up
che
me on
sono
that. 99%
2000
So why are we talking about this?
730 litri.
Quindi
In a world
Mediamente
where
dico 3000.
labor costs are increasing, labor
Cioè, diciamo che
participation
è
is
meno.
decreasing,
Leggermente
there's a
meno,
huge
ma di
turnover.
picco
And
maggiore.
the cost
Considerando
of
che Tesla ha una
implementing
gamma molto più
automation is
piccola
going
di
down by
offerta,
3x
ci può anche
in the
stare.
next 10 years. This is how we are thinking about complex assemblies, and we are going to push this type of thinking into our supply base more and more, who will be building our complex assemblies. This is the only way we think we can confidently scale to the 20 million vehicles target.
Solo così possono arrivare a fare
To
22
summarize,
milioni di veicoli
we have laid the foundation in getting ready
con
to execute
l'automazione.
Master Plan 3. Our strategy is supply chain design simplification. We are going to make sure that we have more control into the tiers of the supply chain. We are going to grow responsibly and sustainably with our long-term partners, and we'll automate.
Yeah, it's like, going from 0 to 40,000 cars a week was tough. I mean, it took a lot of trial and error. It took a lot of learning. There was a lot of pain. There's a lot of mental scar tissue, as Elon calls it, through that process. But now that we're at that level and the foundation is set, going from 40 to 400 is not gonna, it doesn't really faze us. We have a capable team. We've got capable external partners that have gone through hell with us. Our leadership team is galvanized behind the mission, and we're going to get it
Quindi
done.
Nicola Melis,
So
molti
I'd
meno
like
di
to
te
thank you
che
for your
rispetto a
time
3
and
anni
hand
fa.
it off to Drew and Tom for the next presentation. Thank you.
Attenzione raga,
Next,
Tom
dai.
Tom
Dai, next presentation, dai.
Next presentation.
Dai.
Dai, ci
qua,
siamo.
dai, ci siamo
Meno
arrivati
uno
quasi alla
fine.
fine.
My name is Tom Zhu. I'm
Ciao,
now
Tom.
responsible for global production and sales and delivery
Benvenuto.
service. I joined the company back in 2014, and I've been running the company's business in Greater China and APAC. Today, I'm representing all the gigafactories and talk about how we can make more
Tutte le
cars and
gigafactory
faster.
quest'uomo. Bravo.
So right now, we have 4 vehicle factories on 3 continents to serve our markets. The total number of manufacturing employees is over 65,000. This is also including our amazing team in Reno. They are making powertrains, battery packs, and drive unit for our vehicle factories. The total installed capacity in all these vehicle factories, about 2 million cars a year. That said, we're always looking for opportunity to grow more capacity from the existing footprint. So you expect this number will grow over time.
9,5
To
mesi
build more factories
per la Gigafactory di
is the
Shanghai.
start to building more cars,
9
and
mesi,
we're
raga.
certainly the expert of it. This is the before and after
quanti erano a
image
montarla
showing
su.
you the progress we
Spaventoso.
made back in 2019 when we built a gig factory in Shanghai.
Quante
So
ore al
in
giorno?
9.5 months' time, we built a greenfield project to establish the vehicle factory. And 3 months later, we started to deliver our first customer
Dopo
vehicle.
3 mesi che l'avevamo finita,
People already
già
ask me,
stavano
how
producendo le
Tesla
auto.
can build a factory that fast. Really, we learned from our Fremont factory a lot. We talked to the
Cioè,
survivor
dice, ho
from
visto
the
degli umani
production hell
lavorare.
and try to avoid all the mistakes we made. We decided to design a straight line with the minimum number of up and downs and turns for easier manufacturability and easier construction. We also challenged all the assumptions that people ever know to build a vehicle factory. When we delete and simplified all
Sentite come
the
parla veloce il
redundancies
tipo, ci
and
sarà
buffers,
l'Elon dietro.
that's helped us to save a lot of time. Also, we have a very strong in-house construction team
sono passate
in
quasi 2
Tesla.
orette.
If there ever a job cannot be
Un'ora e
done by
56
others
minuti.
better, and we bring this in-house. So we have this
Ci
in-house
potremmo quasi
construction team,
essere.
have a full
Dai.
control over all the activities on site, from design, engineering to construction, site management. So
Ce la
this
possiamo
team
fare.
didn't just build Giga Shanghai, they also built Giga Berlin, Giga Texas, and Giga Nevada.
Sì, Luca, lo
And,
sappiamo
they're really
benissimo.
the hero behind the scenes. Like Lars shared earlier, going forward with the new platform, the more modular design and densified gigafactory, we'll be able to make more cars from even reduce the footprint. That also means we can build more factories at the same time. With the joint effort of all manufacturing teams around the globe, I'm happy to share, early this morning, we hit the 4 million mark for total Tesla ever built. And the 4 millionth vehicle actually built in this factory. When you took a tour on our shop floor, you probably walked past it. So it took us 12 years to build the first million vehicle.
Sì, sostanzialmente hanno detto che sono arrivati a 4 milioni di veicoli proprio oggi.
To build the second million. The third million took us 11 months, and just shortly, less than 7 months, we built the 4 million cars. So we're getting better and faster.
Exponential growth.
Dai, grazie.
Really kudos to the team.
Exponential growth.
So, what it takes to ramp a gigafactory? Well, if you have 600 robots, 10,000 trained employees, or 5,000 human and 5,000 Optimus, and hundreds of processes, you can do it. Sounds simple, but it's extremely hard. So there's 2 key metrics that we predominantly focused on. It's the overall equipment effectiveness and the
Si
cycle
vede
time.
nel grafico, la linea grigia sono le ore di lavoro degli operai, mentre il blu è la linea di produzione di Model Y.
The OEE really evaluates the equipment uptime, the machine performance, and the quality. Simply put, this is the actual production time on a good quality product versus the planned productive time. The higher, the better. The 45-second cycle time That means, you expect every 45 seconds there's a car running off the final assembly line in the factory.
Aspetta che ci siamo quasi.
And the faster we ramp, the faster we can get to
Effettivamente Medu ha ragione.
If you look at the chart on the left,
Se guardi sempre.
Shanghai,
Ginger non l'ha
we were able
capita,
to significantly drop our labor hours per car during the ramp. The little dip there that happened in the last Q2 2022.
È una diretta per gli investitori, non credo che presentino il Model 2, dice Jericho, ma invece noi crediamo, siamo molto convinti che ce la facciano annusare. Ci basta solo quello, raga.
No, Riccardo, solo numeri, cose interessanti.
Adesso ancora nulla, Riccardo. Ma ci siamo quasi, siamo alla fine. Attenzione.
Congrats, Fremont team.
Congrats, Fremont.
Congrats, Fremont.
Ok, adesso partono con le domande.
Cycle time, keep improving efficiency.
What
we
about
follow
Model 2?
the philosophy Elon shared about the building rockets, which is questioning, basically find the right problem to solve.
No, non ci sono domande.
Start with delete, simplify, then we try to accelerate, pressurize the line, and find if the solution actually work. And at last, we think about the automation.
Bravo Jericho, non abbandonarmi al
There's one
fronte.
example in Gigafactory Shanghai. In the paint shop, we find that there's a overlap baking range between the PVC sealer and the top coat. It was done by 2 different ovens, and we decided to combine the 2 processes. Eventually, that helped us, didn't just help us to reduce the cycle time, but also save the 9% of energy consumption and the 9% of the CO2 emission. Also, we commonized the SNX design in Fremont. Right now, we have a common body and common headlamp. We eliminated about 40 parts and reduced about 10% of the cycle time. So all these improvements really help us to
Hanno ridotto il 10% di tempo necessario per costruire il modello Model X e avranno più tempi, più pezzi sì, inibitori di loro.
Existing factories, we also learn from the new factories. Most recently, our Berlin factory team implemented a
Model 3 e Model Y
network
non
on the shop
cambia
floor,
assolutamente
helped us
molto,
to,
idem tra SX
overcome about the 90% of the
ovviamente è tutto
overcycle
fatto
issues for a particular process
produrle molto più
in GA shop.
velocemente,
We're going to soon
spendendo
implement this
molto
globally.
meno, facendole costare così sempre meno.
Right now, we have an integrated global organization from production all the way to sales and delivery service. This will help us to strengthen feedback loop between manufacturing and the service. We obviously want to bring a delightful for customer ownership experience to our car owners. With this direct feedback loop, we be able to turn customer escalations and the feedback into quick actions and improvement on the shop floor immediately. With that effort, in the past 6 months, we'll be able to reduce the time in service and early ownership service, also service appointment wait time significantly. So,
Ci potremmo essere, l'hanno tagliato.
Gli ha fatto così da dietro le quinte.
Gli ha detto
Taglia
perché è lunga.
Hai solo 4 fabbriche, ragazzo.
Gigafactories now in one organization will be able to replicate
e là non è mezzanotte,
ideas across factories.
Tipo le 7.
Also we will help
ma
the new
dopo 2 ore
factories
devi fare la pausa per ricaricare le batterie, se no
produce better quality at a lower cost. Now I'm going to hand over to Drew and talk about the cell manufacturing.
Vai, si parla di batterie, raga.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, we're not just talking about new vehicle factories, but also new cell factories. And we're going to talk about how we follow the same model when we do so. But first, I thought I'd just provide a little bit of an update on cell production. So remember Battery Day, we showed this video with the spoon.
Sì.
And how we went from dry powder to film. Let's just say there's no spoon now. So many of you in this room saw this on your tour today, but here is our dry electrode machine here in Texas, one of the lines we have installed here. fully automated,
Questa qui è una
no
linea di
spoon, from
costruzione
powder and
14680
foil
in
in to coated
Texas,
electrode out.
tutto automatizzato.
From a peak productivity perspective, per tool perspective, this is over 20 times the productivity of the tools that we showed folks on the tour in Cato back in
Wow,
Battery Day.
hanno migliorato
So
del
we've made a lot of
20%,
progress on
raga, la
the key,
produzione
one of the key
rispetto
parts of the cell manufacturing process.
all'inizio.
And we've also continued to focus on
E non ne stiamo ancora usando una,
refining the way we make cells and the factories that the cells go inside. We, as you can see on this
Wow,
chart,
qua
Che
è
from
differenza.
typical
grande
2170 cylindrical cells to 4680 made a
l'azienda.
huge leap, which is basically a 5x reduction in the factory footprint and volume and footprint. And then from going from what we did in Fremont in our pilot line to Texas, we improved further, and we're improving again when we go into Nevada. And what this actually represents is a series of actions taken by a very integrated, holistic design team across the product design, the manufacturing design, the process
C'è
design,
ancora
the
tanto
equipment
altro
design, the
spazio per
facility
produrre
design.
altra roba.
They all need to work together to make this happen. And you can see on the bottom, just as an example of simplicity up, investment down, and scaling up. Parts, we've reduced the number of parts in the cell, the number of processes, significant reduction in the number of processes.
Da 17 a 15 pezzi
Collaborating
dentro
with
la
those
cella.
5 design groups,
È diminuita
we've been able to
la complessità.
end up with a factory that's 10 times smaller volumetrically, which means it's faster to get built. It's much lower capex per gigawatt hour output. And we can go and scale
Costerà meno
to our
produrre
objectives
queste
of
aziende, creare queste
240 total
aziende.
terawatt hours, 1 terawatt hour a year.
Ci metteranno
of
molto meno
stationary storage
tempo,
of 20 million vehicles a year.
occuperanno molto meno spazio.
With the scalability that is required to achieve our goals.
E quindi arrivare
And we're not just looking
a
at the cell
50
factory itself, but also
gigawattora
upstream materials where
all'anno
necessary. What you see
sarà
here is
difficile.
the rendering of the 50 gigawatt hour a year Corpus Christi lithium refinery that we've already broken ground on here in Texas.
Pierre è
The
troppo
facility will start
simpatico.
commissioning by the end of 2023 this year. This is a good example of something where we're basically talking about breaking ground and starting commissioning within 10 months, and with
In pratica andiamo a
actual
far
production
colazione tutti
within 12
insieme
months.
adesso.
That's the target.
Andiamo al
Similar to
putrido.
what we did in Shanghai. Again, the result of collaboration and
Starts commissioning
internal
end of
execution of construction,
2023.
in partnership with local communities.
Cominceranno a consegnarle.
This site is 30 minutes from the Corpus Christi port. It's located directly on rail. The process route we're taking is a direct
cominceranno a
soda
raffinare
of the input material, which means
il litio.
there's no acid roasting. We don't have any of the
Directly
sort of waste products
connected on
associated
rail,
with
quindi è
an acid
ferrovia.
roasting step.
Figata.
We're designed to
Direttamente
consume
connesso con la fabbrica.
lithium spodumene, which is a very commonly traded lithium
L'azienda
rock,
che
but it is
raffina
flexible to other feeds from
il
primary
litio da
and
una
secondary
parte,
sources.
dall'altra
And
parte
similarly,
l'azienda
we're
che
working
fa
on our
periodi.
cathode facility
E
here.
poi le
in
auto
Texas,
che
maybe
escono
you've seen
col
it as
treno.
you're
E le
driving
auto che
around,
escono dall'altra
which is a
parte
60
ancora.
gigawatt hour
Wow.
year cathode facility behind the
E
main
questi
building
sono
here.
avanti, questi
10
qua
months build
sanno
time there as
che
well.
devono produrre auto
The
elettriche.
equipment's being installed for
Gli
the first
altri
line
sono
as
lì
we
che
speak,
dicono
and will be commissioning
come facciamo
starting
raga?
next quarter. So we are doing this where we need to. Our plan is not to do it always. There are lots of competent companies out there. But we are also trying to sort of accelerate the pace of the industry by trying some new things that are a little bit more scalable, and de-risking certain innovations that improve productivity in terms of capex per gigawatt hour and things like that. And with that, I think that sums up our efforts on the factory side.
Okay.
Mike, you want to come up and we'll talk about energy?
Oh my god.
Talk about energy.
Drew,
Questo qui è l'ultimo.
Drew Baglino. Parliamo di
Eccolo.
energia.
Il cerchio è completo e diventerà il faro di Model 2.
Esatto, questo è proprio il
Hello,
faro di
everyone.
Model 2.
My name is Mike Snyder. I lead our Megapack organization. I've been with Tesla for almost 9 years. I'm excited to talk to you today about the Megapack product and the business and some of the exciting things we have ahead of us.
Siamo ancora
From the
in
beginning
mille.
with this business, we have always focused on building successful projects for our customers and not just the batteries in the box. We've built a hardware and a software platform that is able to adapt to environments all over the world.
Bellissimi questi video,
And that is able to scale from small island projects to large gigawatt-hour scale batteries. We've invested our time and our talent to best understand every aspect, every step in the process, and every risk of a project to ultimately provide a solution that is thoughtful, intuitive, provides great value to our customers, and is as plug and play as possible. And yeah, just looking at these projects, it's incredible to see them all come together in one montage.
We're seeing the future.
Yeah.
Compressed.
It's 10 years of building these projects, and it's incredible to see the impact and to see what we have in front of us.
Absolutely.
We're on our 6th generation of our industrial product, which is the Megapack XL that we're building out of Lathrop, California.
Quello di Megapack mi dispiace.
And really, Megapack is a market leader. It's best in class in efficiency, reliability, energy density, and easiest to install, lowest cost to install.
And we call it XL because it is actually the largest, heaviest object that you can transfer around the roads of the world without, having to shut them down and get crazy permits and things like this. So it is extra large, and there is not going to be an XXL. Let's just say it that way.
There's been incredible demand for the project. For the product. 2023 is going to be a great year. We have gigawatt-hour scale projects being built. The Lathrop factory continues to scale and ramp up, and there's a near-term roadmap. So a lot to look forward to.
Guarda.
How did we get here? Number one, a maniacal focus on all aspects of delivering stationary storage. What do we mean by that? What are some examples? As you see here, the Megapack enclosure, for one example, we designed the wireways directly into the base of the enclosure. So typically you need to install a bunch of conduits and cables under the ground. Now you can lift them up and install them directly into the base, increasing the speed of deployment and lowering the cost.
Wow.
Next, we see the batteries and the power electronics. And the power electronics is really the beauty and the elegance of the Megapack. So this is what converts the DC power to AC power on the grid. The brain is built directly into the product. It is able to connect to any grid in the world right out of the box.
È possibile andare a collegarlo in qualsiasi
all the Megapacks on a given site to work as one unit.
Posto nel mondo.
And really, it's what makes it what it is. I think it's the most incredible feature of the Megapack. As you build out the full site, what we end up with is the most energy-dense solution on the market, upwards of 300 megawatt hours per acre. And just as a frame of reference, this solution is 2 times more power dense than a typical gas peaker plant. So this is the future. This is where we're going.
Futuro, ragazzi, questo è il futuro, è 2 volte la densità di energia c'è lì dentro, è 2 volte quella che può essere prodotta da fonti fossili nello stesso spazio.
And we deliver more power electronics than the solar and the wind industry combined on a per annum basis.
Funziona. Oltretutto, ricordatevi che l'energia viene dispersa
impactful they are. They are really the glue in the sustainable energy economy between generation, storage, and the end use. Those power electronics devices are switching, thousands of times per second, hundreds of thousands of times per second, to efficiently react to whatever is needed, either in the car or in the grid. And because they are so sort of software driven at their core, they can provide functionality that hasn't been available to the grid. Why renewables and storage together
lo chiedeva Andrea Beasso, giustamente anche a me è venuto il dubbio fino a che ora
And one reason that we focus on power electronics and control so much is because of the impact that it has on the projects directly. So just as an example here on the left, we have a firmware feature that we call virtual machine mode. And what virtual machine mode is it contributes to grid stability like a car shock absorber that dampens oscillations or vibrations and keeps the ride smooth.
Questi Tesla
So you can imagine if you don't dampen those vibrations, the vehicle can lose control or someone could get hurt. On the grid, you could have a blackout.
Nella griglia,
We have one
nella
grid operator
rete,
that's utilizing
quando
virtual
ce n'è
machine mode and
bisogno.
said they
Nel
will not
momento in
operate their
cui
grid
ci
at
sa
100%
c'è un
renewables
bisogno,
unless they have
comunque,
this
raga,
feature, unless they have virtual machine mode
le
working.
aziende che producono
They
energia
tried
sanno
and it didn't
esattamente
work
quando
very
c'è
well.
And virtual, why is it
bisogno
virtual machine
di
mode?
più
It's like
energia
synthetic
e
inertia.
produrre
You
più
turn to
energia.
battery power plants
E
into
con questi
through
sistemi
software
si può
behaving like
andare
a giant
tranquillamente
spinning
a
machine,
livellare
literally.
il fabbisogno energetico
And
senza
that inertia
subire
stabilizes the
picchi
grid.
di richieste
And you don't But you don't need a
pazzeschi
giant
che
spinning
poi
machine. You
fanno
don't need like
magari
a huge
andare via la
fossil fuel power
corrente,
plant or a
eccetera,
giant hydro turbine. You can just have the battery do it.
fanno
And you
saltare
can program it to whatever you need at that part
c'è
of the
anche
grid,
questa
or
modalità
even
che si
have it be
chiama macchina
dynamically
virtuale
changing
che
as the
permette
grid
di,
conditions
non
change.
so chi ha di voi
And
a
that's why we
casa un
focus so much on it. We
UPS,
believe it's the future
ma
of how batteries
permette
are
di
going to add value.
pulire
It's
la
going to be more
qualità
about adding power
dell'elettricità che c'è
stability
in
just as it
rete
is about energy.
Esatto.
ed eventualmente anche
Autobidder is
assorbire
another
certi
software
picchi,
feature I wanted to mention.
che è
Autobidder
tanta
is
roba.
an autonomous energy trading platform that in its most basic sense is buying energy low and selling it high, and the owner can net the difference of that. But operating battery storage is actually very complex, needing upwards of hundreds or even thousands of decisions every 5 minutes. It's much more complex than a PV, a solar plant, or a wind plant, or a thermal battery or thermal generation plant. And it's mostly because of the versatility and the ability of the battery to provide so much value in different ways that these decisions need to be made in real time in order to optimize and get the most value out of the battery as it can. So there wasn't a solution that existed
Stanno
in the
dicendo
market,
che
so we
il
built one
flusso di
ourselves.
uscita e di
In the market
regolazione
that we
dell'elettricità in
deploy
entrata e
them in
uscita dai battery
Australia,
pack
Texas, and the UK,
può essere
is proving to be a
regolata
market
fino
leader.
a una
We're
volta
continuing
ogni 5
to invest in
minuti,
Autobidder as we expand to new
che è
markets.
relativamente poco per il campo.
Second point of how we got here, a relentless focus on speed of execution, and there's 2 points to be made here. First one is in building factories. What you're seeing here is a time lapse of the mega factory that was built in Lathrop.
Un time
We
lapse
took it
della
from a
costruzione della
JCPenney
Gigafactory
distribution
dove
center
vengono
to a world-class
costruiti i
manufacturing
power
facility
pack.
in less than 12 months, which is incredible. And really, the way that we did this is similar to what my colleagues have described. It's leveraging the vertical integration of Tesla. It's getting the vehicle manufacturing team in the same room as construction and engineering and making decisions quickly with all the stakeholders and decision makers. We're using the lessons learned from Lathrop as we speak, as we plan for our next factories. Second, it's about installing projects faster. I've mentioned this already, but plug and play is kind of at the core of what we're going for. Over the past 4 years, we've
Questo è ciò che
increased the
dicevamo prima,
installation
tutto
speed by
plug and play.
4x.
Tutto plug and play,
We've
hanno
reduced the
anche
total
ridotto
labor
notevolmente i
involved
tempi
across both construction and manufacturing by
sia di
3x.
costruzione di una fabbrica, sia di
We think that this is
installazione
key to
di
unlocking our
power pack.
ability to scale and
4
our
volte
customers'
più
ability to
corti i
scale with
tempi di
us. We need to
costruzione
be laser focused on
e di messa in
reducing that
rete.
time from when the mega pack leaves the factory to when it is operational on the grid.
E questi sono gli unici al mondo che lo fanno.
And it's not just about centralized storage, it's also about distributed storage,
hanno
the
copiato da
future
qualcuno,
roadmap of
Val.
well, at least here at Tesla. And maybe some of you know about this sort of retail plan we have here in Texas, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about how that all fits together. So Tesla Electric really unlocks the full value of distributed energy and storage products. So it enables our customers to
Così mi
become
viene
their own
voglia di
utility.
comprarmi un Tesla
The data on the
Powerwall.
page is from our South Australia
Chissà se
retail power
lanceranno
plant,
il Tesla
another
Powerwall
Tesla
versione
Electric
3.
setup that we have. Over 2022, it's 5,000 customers that we have the data for. You can get a sense for what's happening. So just if they were being provided default utility service and you looked at the cost of serving them that electricity, on average, $140 a month. If they all had solar and Powerwall, but the solar and Powerwall wasn't interacting with the grid, wasn't participating in the energy market, the cost of serving that customer would go from go from $140 a month to $70 a month. If Tesla Electric is operating those assets in an intelligent way to benefit the grid, Tesla Electric being basically a software that we developed out of Autobidder for the purposes of these distributed energy resources, we can actually pay the customers to bring their energy services to the grid. That's what happened in Australia last year. And Australia is a little bit of a special
Gerico,
case.
ci abbandoni
They represent the
così,
future,
va
South
bene,
Australia in
dai.
particular.
Sì,
Solar and wind supplied 70%
comprensibile.
of South Australia's energy.
No,
Andrea,
no,
abbiamo visto
That compares to
l'Abarth,
30% in Texas,
tutti e tre abbiamo
35%
visto
in
l'Abarth,
California.
non si stati a
But this
Livigno.
is an indication of where this is all headed.
Interessante come auto.
Of both centralized and distributed storage resources, providing the key to unlocking fully renewable grids. And Tesla Electric is the retail plan
Leo, non
that we're using to
perda la
bring that to
speranza, non è
bear
ancora
for
finita. Di
our
solito
customers that have our
c'è
products.
in quasi tutti gli eventi Tesla c'è il One More Thing,
And
che è un
this is how we're rolling it
qualcosa,
out.
qualche spot,
First,
qualche immagine,
as it
video,
exists,
o in
it's
certi
available
casi
for
anche il
in Texas for
veicolo,
people who have
per
Powerwalls in their homes.
qualche secondo,
But
qualche
we need
minuto alla
to
fine.
extend beyond that. Over 1 billion people live in markets with competitive retail electricity.
Pier
There's over
alle
$2
MG4,
trillion in
quindi
annual
apposta.
energy spend in these markets. This is a huge opportunity. And our intention is to bring this to market by market in the same way that we've approached Tesla Insurance, where we can bring value to our customers to reduce their total cost of ownership of our products.
Per controllare
Actually, what we're going to do next, and this is pretty exciting here in Texas, by this summer, we're going to offer a retail electricity plan to people who have our cars where they can have unlimited overnight home charging for $30 a month. This is part of reducing the total cost of ownership of our vehicles.
Questa è praticamente la stessa cosa che fai in LX
has a ton of wind.
Esatto.
da noi in
In
Italia.
Texas, the wind blows at night.
Qui
So actually
diamo
serving these customers with
30
electricity at
euro al
night for their
mese per
cars
caricare di
is the
notte.
best thing to do for everyone.
Wow.
And so this is a way to incentivize people to
Figo.
charge at home at night directly from renewable power. It's part of the grand
Direttamente
plan
da
we talked
energie
about at the
rinnovabili.
beginning.
Esatto, 100%
So
energie
we're
rinnovabili.
very excited about this. And we do see this, similar to Tesla Insurance, as I said, as further reducing
Come la
the
Tesla
total cost of
Insurance.
ownership of electric vehicles.
È un
So
prodotto
putting this
che
all together, we're really at the
quale
beginning of this
puntano molto.
massive ramp in energy storage deployment. And
Yeah, reflecting back on the master plan, we talk about needing tens of terawatt hours of stationary storage. So we have our sights set on annual production rates of 1 terawatt hour, which is 25x our capacity at Lathrop. In the near term, we see really strong demand for the Megapack product, over 100 gigawatt hours per year in 2023, and growing by over 100 gigawatt hours per year over the next few years. So the demand is there, and naturally, as we continue to focus on cost and speed and value, the things that we've mentioned, it's clear we need to build more capacity and we need to ramp it quickly. So while the challenge is big, it's also a huge opportunity for Tesla. It's a huge opportunity for the Megapack business.
Ok, ciao,
I'm
grazie a
excited
tutti.
to see the impact that it's gonna make on our grid transition.
One more thing, guys.
Yeah.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Dai, thank you.
Adesso se ne va.
All right, and
Se ne va e rientra zio Elon.
Brandon?
Impact. Larry, che ha il microfono spento, Larry, il microfono spento.
Hi, I'm Brandon with the legal team.
Ecco, vedi, il faro della Model 2
Not
si
just for
completa sempre.
coming, but being investors. Now, we have an active and engaged board and management team. We've met with you, and today is the culmination of that. We've heard you, which is why we're excited to share this Investor Day with you. Now, you will hear more from our board at the appropriate time, but for now, I'm excited to introduce Lori Shelby, who's going to discuss sustainability and our employees. Lori?
Hype, super hype. Qua è il team legale.
Thank you, Brandon. Hi, everyone. My name is Lori Shelby, and I lead the Environmental Health, Safety, Security, and Sustainability team. I've been with Tesla for 5.5 years. So I'm going to talk about Tesla's impact.
Tutte femmine lavorano in Tesla.
And, of course, that starts with our awesome team members.
Sono anche ragazzi.
So you've heard a lot today about our amazing products, our process, our software. You've seen lots of numbers and lots of graphs. You've also heard a common theme. And that common theme is that Tesla's team is what drives our success and makes a difference. Whether you're in our factories, in our sales service and delivery centers, our warehouses, or in the field, you can see and you can feel the collaboration that's happening. And you also can see the pride that everyone has in working for Tesla. So before I go on, I want to give a big shout out and a thank you for our Tesla team globally. So let's. That was great. That was great. Thank you. So we are creating a lot of meaningful work through our jobs.
Ragazzi, adesso ci sono 129.000 persone che lavorano per Tesla.
We're at 129K.
Mica male, eh?
And more than half of our team works in vehicle
Nell'ultimo anno
manufacturing.
tantissimi ne hanno
And
presi.
almost 60% of our team is based in the US.
Il 16% solo negli US.
People want to join our mission.
People want to join our mission. Le persone vogliono lavorare in Tesla.
And we need to hire the best people.
Chiaro.
Engineers want to work for Tesla. Look at number
Top
1 and number
10 di
2,
dove gli ingegneri vogliono
SpaceX
andare
and
a
Tesla.
lavorare.
Già.
In 2021,
SpaceX.
we got 3 million applicants. 3 million.
3
That's incredible.
milioni di curriculum, raga. hanno ricevuto?
And our culture at
Milioni
Tesla
di
is
mamma mia.
anyone at
E ne hanno
any
presi
time
120.000.
can raise an idea or make an improvement suggestion across safety, people,
Chi non se n'è
cost,
andato e non sanno come
production,
dirlo.
quality.
Può essere.
Because we have a very simple process called take charge. And take charge is really employee engagement. And as take charges go up, as you can see in this graph, injuries go down.
Sì,
you know
una cosa buona insomma
People who
che
do the
sta
work,
dicendo è
the
che
people who do the work know how to improve the
il
work.
loro sistema di lavoro, eccetera, insomma, sono
Sustainability
diminuiti
is
drasticamente gli
everything. It's our
incidenti sul
mission. You've
lavoro.
heard about it all day, part of our master plan. But at Tesla, we don't just tick boxes to meet a
E qui è quello
requirement.
che
We really focus on the impact that our products and our
produce
software
Tesla, a
will
parte il sole.
deliver. In 2021, our customers avoided
Infatti Tesla è
8.4
un
million metric
environment,
tons of
è
greenhouse
tipo un
gas.
tutto un
That's
mondo
equivalent
suo,
to
non
taking
fa solo auto. Questo è
1.7
la forza anche
million
che
ICE vehicles
stanno
off the road
dimostrando, no?
for a full year.
E
Yes.
comunque è una cosa importante
Yes.
per chi va ad investire in un'azienda.
We're
E
also
chiaramente non fa
on
solo una
doing
cosa, ma
really good
diversifica
work
su
of
diverse.
driving sustainability into our operations. We have year-over-year reduction in our water use, in our waste, and we're growing and building a renewable energy program within our operations, just like supercharging, as you heard. So it's not just about
I
our
nostri
products, it's the way
prodotti
we make our
generano più
products, both
energia
phases.
rispetto
Tesla, our company, is solving both sides
alle
of
aziende
the
che
clean energy
producono i nostri
equation.
prodotti.
We've got the clean generation, the clean storage. We also have zero emission transport. As this slide shows, from 2012 to 2021, our products generated more energy that was consumed by all Tesla vehicles and our factories. It's amazing.
Però, questo è interessante.
Yeah, I like the claps. Yeah, I'll take claps.
I nostri veicoli
So,
emettono meno
use less
CO2 o
emissions
meno
than gas-powered
emissioni dei
vehicles.
veicoli a motore termico.
Even in
Sì,
the
dal
worst
2012
case
al
scenario,
2021
100%
Tesla è
coal
stato in
grid.
positivo.
The
Se
Model
vogliamo
3
calcolare
has less emissions
tutto il
than the
complesso di
average ICE
emissioni.
car.
Adesso una
And we're
Model 3 e
only
una
going to
Model
get
Y
better. You heard about that today. Every product we make is more
emette
efficient. Every factory we build
170
is more sustainable. So it's only going to get better and better. So as we build
170,
our
175.
zero emission future, we've been talking with our stakeholders, with our shareholders, about how do we improve our reporting framework. And we are aligning with the TCDF. So TCFD. So we're aligning with the TCFD, which I know many of you have been asking us about. I also want you to stay tuned because there's going to be much more
Matteo, chiudi la live,
coming
fanno
in
per
our
le
impact
nostre mogli.
report. So thank you all. And up next is Zach Kirkhorn.
Oh my God, Zach Kirkhorn.
Il nostro amico Zach che ci completerà il cerchio per il faro della Model 2.
Esatto, che è lui che ha
Thank you,
cominciato
Laurie.
tutto.
La parte
All right.
finanziaria
So
sarà
this is
lunga
our last
e
section of our
dolorante.
prepared remarks today.
Pasqua è andato in stand-by.
We'll kind of
Sì, io
take what
vorrei
we've discussed
dormire.
today and summarize it at the corporate level for our financials. Maybe before I jump
Comunque
into the
era
details
entrato anche
here,
Giovanni a
we've never done an
salutarci in
investor day as a
live
company.
col suo
We've
scudo
never brought
canale.
our leadership team out and
Pensavo
asked them
fosse
to
un
talk
fake,
about the
invece
things
è
that
il
they're
suo
working on. So
Giovanni Forest
I feel very
Vlogs.
fortunate to be able to work alongside this group of people and support their teams. And I also just want to thank them. They're in a room in the back listening to this. For all of the work that they've done
Grazie.
and getting the company to where it is today. So thank you to the Tesla team.
Grazie Tesla Team.
When we were preparing for today, folks were asking, well, Zach, what should we talk about? And really the only guidance we gave folks is, well, talk about the things that you're working on and talk about it in the context of the master plan. And what did almost everybody talk about today in great detail? All of the work that they're doing to take cost out. Because in this industry, in this business, you survive or you die based upon the ability to manage your costs. And so I'd like to talk about cost as well. If we look at our longest running scale production
Le auto,
product, this is the
la
Model 3.
Tesla Model 3
We reached
ha
5,000
diminuito il
cars
suo
per
prezzo
week,
del
which was our
30%.
design
Che
capacity in
sorpresa.
mid-2018. And since then, we've taken 30% of cost out of this product.
Prezzo inteso quello
And there's 2
agli
points I want to
utenti
make about
finali,
this. The first is that cost reduction, as you have heard throughout the course of the day, is deeply ingrained in our culture. And I think one of the most important reasons why we are here today as a company. The second point that I want to make is that when we're working on cost reduction, it's easy just to take cost out and make our products worse. But we have to take cost out and improve our products at the same time. This is the hard thing to do, but it's the necessary thing to do to continue to move forward. And if you look at a version of a Model 3 that we built today, and you compare it back to a Model 3 that we built in 2018, there's a long list of improvements that we put into the car while also taking cost out of the product.
Sono 2 ore che dicono dati e parlano.
Cost reduction doesn't just come from one place. There's no silver bullet here.
Assunto personale
And
per
we
fare
pushed
gli
the boundaries on
speech.
volume with the Model 3 program, increasing volume 3x
La
over this
droppa?
period of
Dite che la droppa, ragazzi?
We've improved productivity.
Basta,
So in our
Può essere.
Fremont factory, we
Droppa.
are twice as productive now as we were
La droppa.
in mid-2018. We've made a lot of progress on overhead efficiencies
Ormai
and
Pasquale
product
praticamente
improvements
si
as we've
sta
discussed.
tra un po'
And a
lo
long list of
vediamo
other
andare
things,
in
including
orizzontale.
localization,
No,
our
tra un
factory
po'
in
mi metto il
Shanghai.
pigiama, vi pianto una
And as we
salutata.
ramp up volume and as we find
Vedi che la
efficiencies, we
sedia
work with our
fa
suppliers to do the same.
si trasforma in
And that
letto.
leads to material
Esatto.
cost reductions that improve the affordability of our products.
Capisco benissimo.
And as we look
Ma
forward to our next gen vehicle,
l'evento
our
dove
target
avevamo
is to
presentato
reduce
Model
50%
Y
of
era
cost, and we
simile.
talked about that a bit earlier today.
No.
No.
From going from the Model S
Questo è il
and X
primo evento
platform
Tesla
to
che
the Y
guardo,
Abbiamo un
mi
platform, we took
discolpa.
out 50% of
Durava
cost, so the
30
task here
minuti
is to do it
circa quello di
again.
Model Y.
Esatto,
And this
una
is
roba
very
molto rapida.
important because as
Era
we
tipo,
improve
questa è la
affordability,
Roadster, questa è la S,
the number of
queste qui sono le
customers
altre
with
due,
access to our products
questa
questa è la
dramatically
Y.
increases.
Mi piace.
Ciao.
And as we link this back to our
Questo
master plan,
50, ciao.
it enables an
comprarlo.
exponential growth
E
in our
giusto
volume
per
and
ricordarlo,
reductions in
ma
the cost of our
l'Investor Day
products.
lo fanno ogni
The second point I'll
anno
make here is
per
that,
gli investitori,
and
giusto?
again, cost reductions
Un
don't
po' come
come
il Battery
from
Day.
any single one
Il
place.
Battery Day,
So you can
ecco.
see the buckets here
Un
on
po'
the
come
vehicle
la
side, battery and
DA Day.
powertrain, manufacturing cost reductions, and others. These buckets are relatively equal in size. And so in order to take 50% of cost out of
Quanto
the
è Toyota
product, we
Corolla?
have to go through everything.
Guarda, total cost of ownership per mile over 5 years, quindi
But more
quanto
importantly
costa una
than
Toyota
just
Corolla
the
rispetto ad
cost
una
of
Model 3
car up
e
front,
quanto costerà rispetto alla
when
nostra
we're
next
transitioning to a
gen.
sustainable
Alla Model 2
economy,
che presenteranno
particularly
tra
with vehicle
Sì, alla Model 2
ownership,
che
minuti.
it's
presenteranno
really
tra
important to think
ora,
about the lifetime cost of
Next
the
gen.
15
products.
minuti.
And
Questa next gen. Hanno detto troppe volte
this
next
chart here
gen.
is showing what the
Magari
total
si
cost
chiama
of
Next
ownership
Gen
per
Model
mile
3.
is over the course of 5 years.
Model Next.
And we have to think
Se
about
cambio il titolo della
financing
live con
costs,
Model
insurance
Next
costs,
Gen.
the cost of power. Drew talked a little bit about that with the plants that we're doing in Texas,
Dico?
wear and tear and maintenance on the cars, etc. And we're already at a place today in the US where a base Model 3 on a cost per mile basis is less than a Toyota Corolla, which is the highest selling car in the world. And as we move towards our next gen platform, we will continue to reduce this. And as we work on robotaxi variants of this platform, this cost will come down even further. And so this is a product that we expect to have substantially lower cost per mile than the highest volume products in the world. The next thing on cost reduction I want to talk about is operating expenses. We spend a lot of time on our earnings calls talking about gross margins and product cost. We don't spend a lot of time talking about OpEx, but I think this is one of the really
Questo è
important
quanto
parts of our
spendono,
story.
quanto spendevano
Since
nel 2018 e
2018,
quanto spendono
we've
oggi.
reduced
Mio
our
male.
non-GAAP OpEx 60% as a percent of revenue and 75% on a per delivered car basis. This is quite staggering, and I want to go into the details about how we've done this. The first component of OpEx, which is R&D, the single most important thing here is that we constrain the number of programs that we work on, so minimizing the number of programs that we're running in parallel, and the key here is to maximize the revenue and cash generated from every program that we work on. and also maximize the technology sharing between
Intanto
the
la
programs.
Fiat Panda
We talked
l'hanno
a little bit about
lanciata
how
e la
power
stanno
electronics in our
vendendo.
energy business is shared with
Può
power
essere.
electronics in our vehicle business.
L'hanno lanciato dalla finestra.
Brava Tesla,
If
ma
we look at the
sfidato.
SG&A side of this, I think the story here is pretty
No,
dramatic.
però di auto
So we're showing
interessanti
here a
hanno presentato la nuova
comparison of
ID3
SG&A per
oggi.
car delivered compared to the traditional auto industry, which is both an OEM and the
E
dealership
tra
network.
qualche giorno
And our
presenteranno il
estimates are
nuovo
that we're
Ford,
60 to
nuovo SUV di
70% lower
Ford
on a per car
elettrico,
basis.
basato sulla
And if you
MEB.
turn this into dollars, this is many thousands of dollars per car. This is part of the reason why on the last earnings
La
call,
quantità di
I made the
sbadigli è
comment
superato il numero
that
di
we think
slide.
about operating margin more so than gross margin as a company because the integration that we have here on the SG&A side, particularly with vertical integration into our dealership network, this provides efficiencies that give us a competitive advantage from a cost structure standpoint.
In queste 2 ore hanno fatto uno schizzo della Model
The other thing
2
that I'll note here is that
e poi lo
this
faranno
wasn't
vedere,
always
ha
the
detto, abbiamo
case.
ingegnerizzato da
And it
mesi
wasn't that
questo
long
nuovo
ago where
design.
these bars would be inverted.
Beh, lì sono
And if we
direttamente
go
in
back a little
fabbrica,
bit
non
in
la stanno
time,
facendo la
when we talk
cosa.
about when we launched
Quindi già
Model
che ci
3
sono,
in
tirano su una
contract,
linea e la fanno produrre
we went
subito.
from 2,000 cars per week, which was S and X, adding 5,000 a
Sono
week to
tutto
that
automatici.
for Model 3 got us to 7,000 cars a week.
Hashtag uscita
You've
da
heard some
Model
folks
2.
here today talk about production hell. What I don't think we've ever talked about as a company
Adesso
is
mando un
back
messaggio a
office
Elon
operations hell, which also happened at the
su
same
Twitter
time. And 7,000 cars a week, 350,000 cars a
con
year.
hashtag
We want to go to
Ishila.
20 million cars a year, and we're struggling at 7,000. And
Ci
we're saying
può
to
andare come
ourselves,
trend.
we have to completely rethink the way that we're managing our back office operations if we have any hope of efficiently scaling this company. And so this began a process that we're still continuing to work on today, but it's something that we refer to as the Tesla operating system. So in the same way that we're vertically integrated into the
Quando ho
software
visto
that
questa
manages
slide,
our
raga, ho
cars,
detto, ok, non
we've
è che
also
sembra
vertically integrated into the software that runs our company. And
a
all of our major
descriverne uno alla volta.
departments in the company are using, not all of them
Qua
yet,
giusto,
almost
giusto
all
un
of them are
quarto
using
d'ora
our in-house
quadretto.
software. Most recently, we removed third-party recruiting software, and we're now running our own recruiting software as a company.
Forza.
And this matters a lot because rather than having a
Non
complex
ci
web
sta
of
una macchina
third-party
su quel
systems
palco,
that are
però non
generic
è
solutions
detto,
that take a lot of effort to
perché non sarebbe
customize
la
for our
prima volta
particular needs,
che
Ma
we've been
dipende
able
dalla
to put in
macchina.
place with an in-house applications engineering
vanno
team
dietro.
dedicated lightweight
Fagliela
software
vedere.
that does only
Magari hanno
what we
fatto
needed
tipo
to do
una
and
AMI.
nothing more. And that team works very closely with
Una
process
bicicletta,
improvement
una
teams that
moto.
sit within the business
Portano l'ATV
who are
nuovo.
looking through all of the processes that we're managing as a company and following the exact same process that Tom mentioned in the manufacturing space to look at our processes, delete process steps that we don't need, simplify process steps that are existing, and automate what's remaining. And the results of this have been quite staggering, to be frank. I think it's exceeded our expectations as well. On the left side of this chart are some examples of the efficiency improvements that we've seen within our SG&A areas as a result of this strategy. The North American sales team is 4 times more efficient now than they were in 2018. Order operations team, financial services, I mean, these levels of improvement are large. And there's not enough pixels on the slide here to list out everything, so it's just a couple
Cioè
of
veramente
examples.
nella live Tesla c'è
And then
scritto
in the
che
same
si
way
stanno
that
vantando
when
di
we
aver
look to take
velocizzato
cost
di
out of our
7
products,
volte
we want to
la
feature up the
generazione
product or
di
improve the product
documenti.
while taking cost out. The same has been true with the use of Tesla operating system and that integration with our process improvement teams within the company. And so we've increased performance and added capabilities while also dramatically reducing cost on a per car basis. There's a list of self-service functionality that we've put in place, which customers like. It also simplifies our operations behind the scenes. We've used the Tesla operating system to expand into our captive insurance space, which we are fully vertically integrated into. We run our own in-house software. We have our own agents, our own claims software, and claims folks who run our
Stanno
insurance business.
flexando la
This is also very
verticalizzazione.
important because
Sono troppo
as a technology
flexati qua.
company, data is very important. And we use these systems and the access to the data in those systems to pull out extremely granular and targeted reporting that enables us to see every aspect of our business in real time so we can make adjustments to our operations as needed. And there are sometimes examples where we say, man, I wish we were tracking this piece of data. Well, you know, it's a Teams meeting away from the applications engineering team to make a request, and then we can start tracking that data.
Fanno le chiappe talmente tanto
So the
tempo
feedback
stato
loop
seduto
associated
oggi.
with process improvement inside the company is
Squalo in
pretty
catalessi.
astounding. The last thing I'll just mention here, which is something I'm
Io
personally
sto
quite proud
continuando a
of, we've made a
sbadigliare.
lot of progress in our close processes within the finance
Sì, ma
team, getting our
Sto
10Q
cercando di
and 10K
trattenere gli
filed.
sbadigli.
It's amongst the fastest of the
No,
20
voglio
largest
arrivare,
market cap
voglio vedere
companies,
dove
so
arrivano
great work
sti
to the
qui
finance
adesso.
team here.
Io
Vuoi che
allora,
arrivino alla
se non
Model
tirano
2?
fuori la Model
So
2,
all of this work on
raga,
cost
Model 2
reduction
dopo
is
2 ore e
extremely
mezza di gente
important
che parla?
because we have a lot of money to spend ahead of us to achieve our goals within the master plan. So we've mentioned over the course of the day today 20 million annual vehicle production as our target, 1 terawatt hour of annual energy storage production, and then expanding cell production, service, and charging in line with the growth of those other
basta,
Sei
se ne
businesses.
disconnesso,
So
sei
we've
disconnesso,
estimated
ragazzi.
what we think the
Pasquale
total cost
è
to get there will
abbandonato.
be, and there's certainly error bars around these numbers as we continue to progress and innovate. But of this, we've spent about $28 billion of that so
È
far in
ancora
the history
vivo?
of the company.
È
Sì,
caduto
son
dalla
vivo.
sedia?
No,
Maybe
no,
this
non so
total
perché mi
investment looks
sento
large. I
rotoli,
actually think it's quite small relative to our ambitions. And if you look at our 2022 operating cash flows and you just say, well, let's assume some modest growth to that, maybe not all that
Ho
much.
trovato un modo per far risparmiare qualcosa dopo a
If you're
Tesla,
being
eliminare la
conservative,
parte della
but
finanza nelle
the ability to
presentazioni.
pay for this level of
Vero,
investment
vero.
from the forecast
Sì,
that we
dimezzare
have
le
is
presentazioni
very
sarebbe un
achievable
buon
for us.
risparmio.
I'm often asked about capital allocation. I think our strategy here is very straightforward. I touched upon it a little bit in our last slide, but just to be explicit about it, obviously the priority here is to ensure that we're using capital to run the day-to-day operations of the business. This is a working capital intensive business, and this has to be managed very carefully.
Tanto finché non viene
And
fuori
so,
nessuna Model 2
over the
qua.
course of a quarter, there can be multi-billion-dollar swings in our cash balance up and down, just depending upon the timing of when we build and deliver cars.
Novità su
We
Supercharger
obviously have to have money set aside for
4,
that.
sì, ce ne sono state,
Downside
ragazzi,
protection
questa
is another
sera.
really important area where we have money set aside for that. And over the last
Più o
couple of
meno.
years throughout the pandemic, I think this just highlights why being ready for downside protection is important. Preserving daily operations is the engine that then generates cash that allows us to reinvest into the growth of the business. And I'm very proud that over the last
Matteo,
couple
fai
of years,
partire un tuo
despite the ups
video.
and
Ho
downs of the
visto.
Più
macro
interessante.
environment and interruptions to supply
Se
chain,
volete io
we have
ho
never
un
once
cane.
pulled back on our investments in growth, so that remains
Facciamo
a huge
anteprima
priority
lunedì
for us.
notte.
We do then, after investing in growth, we look at opportunistic ways to spend our cash. These are more financially oriented, where if a return exceeds a hurdle, then we can place cash in that. This is part of our story of cost reduction in the Fremont factory. And then on the excess side, this is where the board meets on a regular basis.
Anche il
and
regista
thinking
qua che
about what our cash flow
sta
projections are looking forward
sistemando
and
le
whether it
slide,
makes
si
sense
sta
to do buybacks or
addormentando.
dividends.
Sì, non ha più voglia di far vedere il tizio.
Esatto, basta.
So to wrap up the
Messaggio.
finance portion of the presentation today,
To wrap up the portion of the presentation, vuol dire che wrappano su e portano via.
we use innovation at an intense level
Ce la fa,
to drive
vai.
costs down and improve the efficiency of the business.
Ce la puoi fare.
And the reason this is so important is it allows us to improve product affordability. And this is particularly the case when we move to our next generation
Praticamente ha parlato
platform.
talmente tanto che ha dovuto fare un recap.
Improving affordability
Perché
allows
sennò
us
un
to
recap del recap di una
investments
sottosezione.
that grow volume. That
Avantissimo.
volume generates cash that then allows us to make more investments.
Dici qual è la prossima auto che
And
recensirai,
as we
Nicola
integrate that going
Melis?
forward, it's our belief as a leadership team here at Tesla that we're going to achieve
Skoda
unprecedented
Enyaq.
scale in the
Una Skoda
manufacturing
Enyaq
space.
che abbiamo
And this
da
is what's ultimately
una
required to
80X,
accelerate the world's
ce
transition
l'abbiamo
to
da
sustainable energy.
qualche giorno, da venerdì scorso.
So with that, this completes the
Quale oggi è
prepared
andato a
portion
ricaricarla.
of today. We're going to take a short
Perché
break,
stando ferma si
and then we'll
scarica,
resume
vero?
with the live Q&A.
No,
We'd like to take a short break and then proceed with the Q&A.
Se te che
5 minutes
consumi troppa batteria,
break.
quando fai il
Let's
post
get a
prova
short break,
consumi,
guys.
ti ritrovi magicamente al confine tra il Messico e la Germania. Aspetta.
Devo killare la
5
musica
minutes
perché
intermission.
bravo.
Q&A next.
5 minuti, ragazzi, 5 minuti di pausa. Dopo ci saranno le domande e io quasi quasi mi vado a mangiarmi non so, una pizza. Dite che posso trovare qualcuno online, no, che non so, un Deliveroo che mi porta una pizza. una piadina, qualcosa del genere. No?
Può essere.
Vabbè, Just Eat, vabbè. Comunque è figa la canzone sotto, eh.
Mi
Voi
dispiace
non
non
sentite.
sentirla.
Eh sì, voi non sentite ovviamente, la sento solo io, in cuffia. Mi piace, mi piace. No, non è questa. Signori! Signori e signori, attenzione perché tra 5 minuti ricominciamo con lo super show della finanza di Tesla, dove sicuramente presenteranno Tesla Model 2.
Gelato, noccioline.
Vedremo ancora la Tesla Roadster che questa volta non farà più da 0 a 100 in 1 secondo e 2, ma in ben 0,5 secondi. Attenzione ragazzi! No, non è vero, scherzavo, non sappiamo assolutamente niente di quello che capiterà tra 5 minuti. Sulle mani, vabbè, volevo solo intrattenervi, ma vediamo cosa capiterà, perché tecnicamente io mi aspetto qualcosa, un next big thing, ma Pasquale sta per mollarci, tra un po' farà
Sì, no,
un
raga.
fake di un problema di connessione.
Esatto, tipo faccio
Cioè,
non va più il
addirittura un
microfono.
membro del team, capite, andrà a dormire
Vabbè.
prima degli altri, perché è così,
No, allora
giustamente.
io adesso aspetto il rientro della
Aspetti la Model
pausa.
2. Bravo.
Esatto,
No, il rientro dalla pausa,
se
adesso poi ci sono le domande, ci
Alla
saranno
fine delle
4
domande c'è la
investitori.
pausa.
allora no
Alla fine delle
ragazzi,
domande ci sarà Elon Musk che parlerà.
faccio il pacco. Ma effettivamente qualcuno diceva è strano che una roba così succulenta non abbiano detta subito, è vero.
No,
Che
vabbè.
cosa? Perché?
Il Cybertruck hanno detto alla fine.
Esatto.
Sapete che l'hanno spoilerato alla fine?
Sì. Caro.
È probabile che adesso facciano tipo 10 minuti di domande, poi fanno con Elon, poi mettono tutto il team e poi c'è One More Thing. Come le altre volte.
Quindi è possibile che finisca tipo verso le 3 sta live?
No.
No, anche perché no, cioè nel senso, se no non serve nemmeno che simuli problemi tecnici. Prendo, vi saluto tutti con amore, vado a dormire diretto.
Capisco benissimo Pasquale. Ragazzi, allora ditemi Raimondo Valla, vogliamo il Tesla Motor Car da 0 a 57 km/h in 27 secondi. Bailey, io vi saluto, notte a tutti da Pier Viaggiare in elettrico, dice io invece la tengo fino alla fine, altrimenti chi si guarda tutto quello che hanno presentato. Alessandro Laspina, questo evento ha la struttura di un'unione di preghiera tipo Scientology, bravissimo. Pier il giostraio, Nicolo Grassi secondo me non la presentano oggi ma un altro giorno, perché ci avranno pensato che in Europa stanno tutti dormendo e non seguono la mega live. Nicola, ma è sempre così, funziona sempre così, nel senso che loro le presentano sempre dall'altra parte del mondo. Però una volta hanno fatto una presentazione anche di mattina al 9 in realtà, è vero. Q&A e question and answer, yes, exactly. Ma la Packard della Tesla per il vecchietto col cappello che va a giocare le carte, potrebbe essere quella, la Tesla Model 2, in effetti, raga. E Alessandro dice vogliamo la Tesla Model Phi crassa. Non l'ho capita. Si resta fino alla fine, dice Luca Lombardi. Sì, anche io rimango qua fino alla fine. Non so effettivamente come andrà a finire, raga. Normalmente quando finiscono questi eventi io tipo rimango sveglio fino alle 4 del mattino e la mattina dopo sono tipo uno zombie al lavoro. In effetti è già l'1:14 e sto pensando che devo svegliarmi alle 6 e non è bello
Però
affatto.
è bello che la mattina dopo sembra un altro giorno.
Sì.
Quindi...
Invece no, era tipo 2 ore fa.
Esatto, era 2 ore fa.
Sì. Ma hanno presentato un jet, Where is my jet, Capitan Andy? No, però probabilmente Elon Musk adesso comincerà a regalare Tesla Model Y a tutti quelli che hanno usato il referral, perché vi ricordo che sono ancora 3 anni che la gente che ha pubblicizzato il suo referral sta aspettando di capire quando Elon Musk andrà a fare le estrazioni. Quindi vediamo, perché comunque è un uomo che mantiene sempre le sue promesse. Pasquale è il nostro portavoce. Sì, Pasquale è questo qua, ragazzi, vedetelo, che bello che è. Ginger Black sembra che sia tipo uscito dalla catena di montaggio in questo momento.
Sono uscito adesso.
È uscito proprio adesso dalla doccia, troppo avanti. Massimo Mollica mi dice: ma quindi dopo tutto quello che abbiamo visto è sicuro che abbasseranno i prezzi? Non capisco da che
Dov'è la
parte o che
correlazione?
cosa tu abbia visto. Non c'è una correlazione tra questo che hanno dimostrato, insomma, e un abbassamento dei prezzi. Generalmente l'abbassamento dei prezzi avviene a gennaio/febbraio, in base a come è andata la finanza, quante auto hanno venduto e quante auto hanno costruito. Ma quest'anno l'hanno già abbassati i prezzi, sarà difficile. Ragazzi, mo presentano la Tesla Model One o la Model A, dice Carlo, ma è molto probabile Carlo, quindi rimani pure qui con noi. Nel frattempo siamo scesi a 700, 300 eroi ci hanno lasciato, ma credo che sia la normalità. Alessandro Spina, Pietro somiglia un po' a Massimo Ranieri, bravo. Chi è Pietro? Ah, Pietro questo, Pietro. Sì,
Ginger.
normalmente si chiama Ginger, lui va bene,
Pietro chi è?
d'accordo.
Chi Pietro?
Voi pensate che Tesla farà mai uso di motori elettrici di altri costruttori? No. Micro Parisi, lascio il mio avatar e vado a nanna. Bravo Micron, lascialo lì l'avatar, mi raccomando, lascia il computer acceso, connesso e crea una macro per andare a fare like ogni tipo secondo. Pietro, ci siamo, restiamo, vai tranquillo Pietro, noi siamo qua, siamo tutti qua e rimaniamo qua. Ci sarà di là mia moglie che dirà: ma che cazzo succede? Sono le 2 di notte. Matteo fa lo show e Jonathan Fazio dice notte. Sì, in effetti è notte. Federico Orzan, io sono arrivato ora. Grande Federico, vedo che sei bello mattiniero anche tu. Stiamo tutti attendendo che ricominci la live di Tesla, in effetti, perché è qui e sta in pausa. Vediamo
Sono
cosa
passati
capita.
20 minuti.
Q&A, ragazzi, vuol dire Model Q e Model A. È arrivato Matteo, bravo, ha l'idea giusta. Simone Galizio dice: io faccio il vigile del fuoco a Rosenbauer. Ha già presentato i camion per il soccorso elettrici. Secondo te, Tesla penserà a veicoli per il soccorso come ambulanze o camion? Non credo che sia nell'intenzione di Tesla andare a creare dei veicoli che non siano direttamente per le persone, almeno nel master plan numero 1. Poi vedremo magari tra qualche anno, qualche tanto anno. Il re di Casanti 5 minuti sono già passati, in effetti sono già passati 5 minuti, ma i 5 minuti di Elon Musk possono anche voler dire 5 anni. Giuseppe Andreoli dice: buonanotte, spoiler non arriverà nulla. Mens Batto dice: cosa ci aspetta dal restyling di Tesla Model 3? Beh, in effetti sono cambiate esternamente sia l'anteriore che il posteriore. Vediamo un po' che cosa capita con il resto. Io spero che cambierà anche internamente. Più trimestrale question and answer, ragazzi, stiamo tornando, preparatevi perché qui ce ne saranno delle belle, perché tutti salgono sul palco,
Eccoli.
attenzione. E c'è ancora la musichetta, quindi non aspetta un attimo.
Di solito in questo momento Franz ha il martello del Cybertruck. Vediamo se va.
Esatto, però non l'ha portato questo giro. Si è messo le scarpe con i lacci rossi e basta, niente di che. Quindi adesso si parte, hanno bevuto tutti, Elon Musk non c'è sul palco,
Lui non è a casa.
è perché lui è già andato a casa. Molto probabilmente starà guidando la Tesla Model 2, perché se non c'è sul palco, almeno sarà andato a parcheggiarla e lì i sensori secondo me non li hanno messi neanche su Tesla Model 2. Niente, come non detto, adesso Elon Musk si è tirato in piedi, si è ritirato insieme e si parte.
Well, let's see. So this is probably the most significant announcement of the day is that we're excited to announce that we're going to be building a gigafactory in Mexico.
Okay, gigafactory in Mexico, yeah, and the airport.
So yeah, and we'll have
Sento
obviously
che
for the grand
arriva.
opening and groundbreaking and whatnot. But we're excited to announce that the next Tesla Gigafactory will be in Mexico near Monterrey. So super excited about it.
Vicino a Monterey sarà la nuova
Now, I do want to emphasize we will
Gigafactory
continue to
che
expand production
produrrà
at all of our
la
existing
nuova auto
factories,
di
so
Tesla
including California, Nevada,
che presenteranno tra 5 minuti.
here in Texas, obviously, and Berlin, Shanghai. So we intend to increase production at all factories. So the Giga Mexico would be supplemental to the output of all the other factories. So this is not, to be clear, moving output from anywhere to anywhere. It is simply about expanding total global output. Yeah. So.
Bravo, Elon.
Non è il delocalizzare nulla e costruire cose nuove in nuovi posti.
Peanut gallery.
Anyway, so I think that's, we're quite excited to announce that. In fact, I believe the governor is here.
C'è anche il governatore.
It's hard to see. Welcome. Secretary of State, I believe. Anyway, so we're looking forward to it and having a big event for the great groundbreaking and opening. So let's see. With that, we can move to Q&A. We've obviously got significant bench strength here.
Ci saranno le prove gratuite di Model 2.
Probably like a bench. And anyway, we maybe have too many people on stage, but we'll try to answer questions within reason. This is meant to be kind of more of a long-term sort of discussion as opposed to, what will be the production for the rest of the quarter type of thing. So let's try to orient our questions towards long-term value creation. And with that, fire away.
Please, welcome on board.
Rod?
Speriamo che non ci siano domande, raga.
Rod Lash with the Wolf
È
Research.
probabile che ci siano.
Very exciting plans about the next generation vehicle and powertrains and batteries. I was hoping you can maybe talk to us a little bit about the timeline for deploying this. And it sounds like it's more than just a vehicle. This is a kind of a paradigm change on how vehicles are assembled, how batteries are put together and everything. And does that also just get reconfigured into everything that you do? So
Stanno
the
chiedendo
Model
del
Ys that are
prossimo
being built here
veicolo.
will be built very differently in the future. Maybe just give us some feel for what happens from here and what's the timeline for implementation.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about that, but broadly speaking, the most profound architectural changes will be in future vehicles. Retooling a factory means bringing the factory down for an extended period of time, and we'd prefer not to do that, I think. But there are variants
Chiedere la
in how Model Y is
timeline
produced.
a
So we've
Musk
got
è la
variants
peggior
where
cosa
there's
da
rear
fare.
casting, where there's a front and rear casting, and we have the structural battery pack. And then there are a number of smaller improvements that occur. But I think for really, really big
Tizio a
changes,
sinistra si
those
sta
would be future
addormentando.
vehicles. Yeah, I don't know, you guys want to add?
Allora, sinceramente non ha detto una mazza.
Lars, maybe?
Ha detto semplicemente che
Me-
non
yeah,
vuole
so, I mean, as far
andare a
as- I
spegnere
agree with you 100%,
una
Elon.
linea di
It's really
produzione
easy to put
per
innovations in new
andare a
vehicles, but long
sviluppare
term,
il
we'll obviously bring
nuovo
them back. We've
veicolo,
always
ok?
talked about that, but
Per
we don't
quello
want to take
che
our factories
andrà
down.
a
As
creare
far as the
questa
timeline goes,
nuova
we're
azienda,
gonna go as
questa
fast as we
nuova
can, left to
factory,
right.
in
As
modo tale da
always,
costruire lì
Elon
il
alluded to
nuovo
the fact
veicolo e
that,
fine. Quindi
Mexico
non
would
dovrà
build our
andare
next-gen
a
vehicle, but we'll
stoppare
also be doing that in our
la
other plants. And so
produzione,
it's really
le
about
varie linee di
getting them all up and
produzione
running.
che sono
We expect it to be a
ora
huge volume
aperte
product,
in tutto il
and,
mondo. E
yeah, we're gonna move
credo
that
che sia una
forward over the
risposta
next few
intelligente
years.
per una domanda che magari voleva andare un pochino in più in profondità di che cosa è Model 2 o che cosa sarà.
Thanks. First,
Quindi a questo
enhorabuena,
punto, poi dopo
Mexico.
lui ha
Vamos.
passato la
That was
parola.
great. Congratulations.
per andare a definire un attimo in più di più l'azienda che cosa deve fare. Ho parlato semplicemente di un miglioramento della batteria a livello strutturale, non ha detto altro.
Io avrei una cosa relativamente importante da far notare. Il prossimo close-up su Franz, guardate la maglietta. Il disegno del Cybertruck sulla maglietta. E mettete in dubbio il fatto che sia un Cybertruck.
Vediamo.
Well, we're going to address whatever we think the limiting factor is at any point in time. So we would like to do the least amount
No,
possible.
però tutto campo, ancora l'auto non l'ha.
So we don't want to get into the mining or refining sector. We will do that if we have
Sono
to.
abbastanza certo che quello che era sulla
I do think
maglietta di Franz non
the
fosse il
focus
Cybertruck.
really should be on
Aveva un
refining
cofano.
capacity. We need to make just a very giant.
I nostri colleghi hanno mollato il ballino.
Anode, cathode, lithium.
Hanno spento.
Lithium hydroxide, lithium carbonate. It's really the refining capacity that is the biggest choke point.
Noi aspettiamo il Model 2 e poi chiudiamo.
Sì, esatto.
So that's why we're building a lithium refinery in Corpus Christi.
Comunque Elon Musk lo vedo bene, il tatuaggio di capelli gli dona e anche di
mining companies that are out there and looking at that part of the value chain. So we do have large suppliers of lithium right now, and they are aware of how we're approaching the Corpus refinery and the technologies we're trying there. And the reason we're making them aware of it is because we think they're fundamentally more scalable, and as we prove them out, we plan to share that with them. Because as Elon says, it's not really like we want to do these things. We're doing them because it's not happening fast enough. So if we can prove that it can be done faster, the intention is to transfer that knowledge to our current suppliers. And the same is actually true. It was actually a clay process that we're playing with and we continue to work on. Same is true on that. So we've worked with our suppliers as well on trials and we're sharing knowledge there. And the intention is just to help the whole world do this better. And ultimately, this here is getting the lithium out, or whatever it is, out of the ore.
And we're obviously building a cathode processing facility just adjacent to this building.
Adesso presenta iPhone 15. Antonio sei troppo avanti.
For cathode refining.
Ho estratto un frame dalla live. Posso streamarlo e lo vediamo insieme?
Immaginavo. Vai.
Yeah, and in that case, there just isn't really any large-scale cathode production in the United States, and it needed to be done. And again, if we're going to do it, we're going to try to do it from a first principles perspective. So we have tried a bunch of new things there. We're confident that they will work. And as they prove out, again, we want to bring them back to our suppliers so that they can build new facilities more quickly
no, è un
with less
Cybertruck.
investment.
Questa linea?
Sono i fari.
Right, let's go to provato.
Hi, Ben Kaler from Baird. So similar on the renewable side, is there more that you can do in Tesla to nudge the rest of the renewable industry to speed up, since it's such a big pillar of the Master Plan 3?
Well, I mean, I don't know what more we can do, but I can say that
Sembra uno di quelle live scam per rubare Bitcoin.
To have like a guaranteed success, it would be refining lithium.
Che tra l'altro le fanno proprio con Tesla.
Sì, esatto.
Any materials whatsoever for
sono identiche a queste.
It's no-brainer.
Solo che di solito c'è un QR da qualche parte.
Sono
we're doing everything we can. So.
Yeah, on the renewable energy thing, the thing that we can do, Tesla, is the more we reduce the cost of storage, the more we reduce the cost of stationary storage, and the more we bring flexible load to the grid.
Vado a dormire, vado al teatro Bianchini.
Adesso 5 minuti e fammi vedere la
sto morendo.
In Texas right
5 minuti.
now, I wasn't joking. There's a lot of wind,
5 minuti.
And at night, wind is there's almost too much wind.
Sto sognando il teatro Bianchini.
So bringing really low-cost storage onto the grid makes renewables more valuable, which ultimately will accelerate their deployment. So that's how we focus on it, I guess.
Bravo. Felipe? Vuoi aggiungere qualcosa?
That's all.
Non ci sono domande?
Dai, basta domande.
It's
Di-
Philippe Bouchard,
No, no,
Jefferies.
niente.
I've got two questions. The
Ho
first
messo
one,
un po'
when I
tagli
think about
il microfono.
in this industry, everybody wants to
Cos'è
be
che stanno
Tesla.
bevendo
Every
tutti quelli?
comic is
Latte?
trying to
Vedi,
emulate
io
what you do.
scarico, dispiace.
No,
One
sarà,
thing they
sarà
don't do
l'acqua
is,
nel cartone.
Focus on having as much growth as possible with as few models as possible. So I'm just trying to
Si dice
understand, as
anche
you
teatro
aim for
Bianchini, non
20
cinema
million
Bianchini.
units in 2030, how many models do you think you need to get there? And how does it fit into your drive to hyperscale?
È il cinema Bianchini.
How do you manage this? And also the fact
Non
that
è
probably
vero.
consumers at
Invece.
some point don't want to see a Tesla or the same Tesla at every street corner. So I'm just trying to get your sense of that. And my other
Va
question
teatro.
is on bidirectional. I mean, you talked a lot about making a world more renewables and better usage of cars. I think bidirectional charging is one way of better using cars, but you seem to
Sono
have been
convinto
reluctant
anch'io,
about
raga, che
doing
ormai
that in the past. So I'm just
la
wondering
Model
what
2
your
sia lì
latest views
dietro,
are on the topic.
Sto trollando a
Sure.
manetta.
On bidirectional,
Guarda la faccia di Elon, è preoccupato, eh?
it wasn't like a conscious
Molto.
decision to not do it. It just wasn't
Non
a
si
priority
ricorda
at the
dove ha
time.
messo le
I think is
chiavi,
maybe the
adesso
way to think about it.
un casino.
As we
Devo spaccare il
as we
finestrino anche
continue
di
to
questa
improve
qui,
the power
cacchio.
electronics in our vehicle,
Mi fai pensare dov'è il martello?
we've found ways to bring
Aspetta,
bidirectionality
una
while
ventina.
actually
Del
reducing the
martello.
cost of power electronics in the vehicle. And as at all things Tesla, the goal
Non
is
me l'ha lasciato
usually
a casa,
to
tipo.
get more for less. And so we are in the middle of kind of like a power electronics retool, I would say,
Adesso si è
that
svegliato,
will bring
si è
that
svegliato.
functionality to all of our vehicles over the
E
next
tipo, no, non
2
mi
years, let's
interessa quello
say.
che stai dicendo. No.
But
Vabbè.
but it's
Hai finito? Hai finito?
yeah, I guess that's how I'll say there.
Bravo.
I don't think very many people are going to use bidirectional charging unless you have a power wall, because if you unplug your car, your house goes dark. And this is extremely inconvenient.
Penso che è un'esclamazione un po' discutibile, secondo
Sì, esatto.
Yeah, most of the value it comes in
Mi hanno appena
charging the car at the right
chiesto
time. It's not really
perché
about sending
non
energy
ha
the other way.
installato ancora un bidirectional charger, quindi il vehicle to grid fondamentalmente, o il fatto per cui l'auto possa anche elargire la corrente al vehicle to load. Lui dice che non crede che molte persone vadano a utilizzare questo genere di tecnologia.
Discutibile,
Sì, ma
comodo.
sì, discutibile, però la risposta e la motivazione è stata è perché se la stacchi non va. Quello è il problema. La motivazione alla sua argomentazione è stata non ha senso perché se stacchi la casa non puoi più alimentarla.
And the question of number of models?
È un'esclamazione, cioè l'argomentazione è un po' inutile per quell'argomentazione.
Sì, è una di quelle domande a cui Elon non vuole rispondere.
È tipo è meglio caricare wireless o col cavo? È meglio wireless perché col cavo se stacchi non carichi più. Capito? Non ha molto senso.
Are there on the road? Feels like hundreds. But are they good variants? No, mostly not. They're just variants for the sake of variants.
Ma io mi straio.
How have things converged with the phone? I mean, there used to be hundreds of flip phones. Now what do we have? It'll be like that.
Non ho capito, ho fatto un'analogia con gli smartphone, Gnari. Cosa che ha detto G?
George Gianrikas from Canaccord Genuity.
Mi stavo
Just had a
reclinando.
question about your plans to grow
Sì, ci recliniamo tutti qua.
market share in China, and also whether or not the political tensions between the United States and China impact your long-term ambitions there. Thank you.
I don't know. Hey Tom, not to put, don't sweat too hard.
La risposta è stata boh, non lo so.
Well, we're still growing our market share in China quite strongly, actually. Especially early this year, we had this price adjustment. After that, we actually generated a huge demand, more than we can produce, really. As Elon said, as long as you offer a product with value at affordable price, you don't have to worry about demand. That's basically the
Hanno chiesto
philosophy moving
fondamentalmente
forward. We try
se ci
everything to
fossero
cut
problemi
cost,
di
from
domanda
supply
in
chain,
Cina
from
delle
improving
auto,
efficiency in the factory,
perché c'è
and
questa
pass down
notizia che
that
gira,
value to
insomma,
our
che
customers.
Tesla non
I
riesca
think
più
as long as we continue to do that,
che
I'm
Tesla
not too
non
concerned
produca
about the
più
market
così
share in
tante
China.
auto, appunto perché c'è
And the second part,
una
geopolitical, no one
diminuzione
knows.
della domanda.
We do our
Lui ha detto
best.
semplicemente di no,
We actually create a lot of jobs
anzi il
in the
contrario.
local community.
Glielo hanno
And
detto,
we
boh,
also
il tizio qui ha detto dopo il calo di prezzo va
at our
meglio.
suppliers factories will create a lot of jobs as well, and will contribute a lot to the
Io comunque ho fame,
local
raga.
economy. I think, as long as we're needed in
Ci
this
sarebbe
country,
almeno un
I
putrido a
don't see
quest'ora.
there much of the risk of that.
Una bella pizzetta.
Colin?
Colin Rush from Oppenheimer. You know, one of the things I was struck by in the presentation was the operational efficiency metrics that you guys are talking about. Could you talk a little bit about the velocity of learning cycles and how you guys track that and think about that as an organization as you work into a variety of other areas from an innovation perspective?
No, non credo, Nicola. I competitor ormai credo che nessun competitor possa andare a mettere in
you can't improve
difficoltà
something you don't
Tesla.
measure, and we're like ruthless measurers at Tesla. And
Che altro anche perché
once you start
ormai
measuring
Tesla, raga, è
things that contribute to operational efficiency, you actually have a path to doing something
tipo
about it.
Apple, cioè
So I
anche
guess the key
se
is a good
Android fa dei
measuring stick.
telefoni uguali o magari anche migliori, il sistema operativo fa tipo, non so, Samsung fa dei telefoni migliori, ma Apple ormai non morirà mai. Cioè,
I've said it a few times over the years, but it sometimes
va bene così.
needs to be said again, which is overwhelmingly
Gli unici che possono
the
fare paura a
desire
Tesla
for people to
sono
own
loro
a Tesla
stessi,
is extremely high. The limiting
tecnicamente.
factor is their ability to pay for a
Se si
Tesla,
spingono troppo
not
in là
do they want a Tesla.
o rischiano troppo tanto.
It's easy for people in this room to lose sight of that. If
Un po'
if your
come
income
dire
is far in
Tesla o
excess of what
Porsche
a car
Taycan.
costs, then you look at value for
Dipende.
money, but you do not consider affordability.
Sì, esatto,
But for the
paragone
vast
con
majority of
Apple
people,
è
it is
sensato.
affordability driven. This is why we cannot simply double the price of the car. Or you could say and think about things in the limit, where if you had an infinitely desirable car, but it costs $10 million, it wouldn't matter because most people do not have that. So demand is very much a function of affordability, not desire. Very important. One of the things we weren't sure about was the price elasticity of demand for Teslas. So like, as we lower the price, how much does demand increase? And we found that even small changes in the price have a big effect on demand, very big. So that was a good thing to learn. Yeah. And then as this autonomy question is very, very big, because you could potentially have, 5 times the utility of the asset that you currently have. So if a passenger car is 10 or 12 hours a week of usage, plus a lot of parking expenses, an autonomous car could be 50 to 60 hours a week or something like that. And you could get rid of a lot of parking expenses. So, if this is true, then as autonomy is effectively turned on for the fleet, it probably will be the biggest asset value increase in history overnight.
Emmanuel?
Thank you so much, Emmanuel Rosner from Deutsche Bank. So as you start launching this next generation vehicle and ramping up volume, what will be your nearest term priority in terms of segment or vehicles focus? The slide that you showed with 2 vehicles on the wrap seemed, based on form factor, one of them maybe looks like a van, another one looks like maybe like a smaller vehicle, like potentially a Model 2, I guess. What is the nearest term focus for you in terms of
Questa è la domanda, aspetta.
and how do you make sure
that by lowering the price point so much because the cost is going down 50%, you're not cannibalizing demand, for your existing vehicles?
Beh, domanda interessante. Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank ha chiesto qual è diciamo, la tipologia di auto.
Demand for our vehicles in terms of desire to own them may as well be infinite. It's indistinguishable from infinite at this point.
Come gli ha risposto? Il numero 1.
Affordability is what matters. So as you make the car more affordable, we will have demand go.
Poi lui dice, e se però abbassi del 50% i prezzi di questa nuova auto next gen, non vai a minare la tua stessa economia perché la gente non ti compra.
Non ti cannibalizzi.
Non ti cannibalizzi internamente. E lui cos'è che ha detto, Ginger, esattamente?
La risposta è stata, boh sì è vero, però può essere un po' tutte le auto. Tipo, che segmento sarà, che tipo di auto sarà, lui fa, boh, può essere un po' tutto. Spiegano ancora fatto.
Dire che non esiste la Model 2, raga.
Fire, revolution, I thought I've heard them all. I mean, any part of that supply chain gets interrupted, then you have a seizure.
Sì, qui ha fatto deflecting e non risponde più alla domanda principale.
The cars, by far, and the supply chain that goes with it. Do you guys want to talk about supply chain stuff?
Well, they might. I think, in the presentation I'd mentioned perfection is a passing grade. We really need everything to happen perfectly, and the strategy for mitigating the different risks, some of which were anticipated and some weren't, is really bespoke to the situation.
Davanti fino alle 3:30 questo.
You need subject matter expertise and a deep knowledge of
Basta che
the
il tizio della finanza non ci sia
to come up with those
basta,
strategies.
finanza
So we've seen everything from, as Elon mentioned, first the tariffs that flew back and forth, then the ocean logistics issue, the chip shortage, COVID, floods. There was a fire in a fab in Japan that knocked down. There was a massive COVID spike in Malaysia where a lot of the chips, the back end of a lot of chips was down there, and more. This was one that Elon was involved with as well, and it's nerve-wracking, but somehow it works.
Yeah, and although it's difficult, I think we have been laying the foundation to be as intimate to all the tiers of the supply chain, building that control and the different tiers of supply chain.
Sto facendo il fantacalcio nel mentre che ascolto. Faccio la formazione.
Again, dual sourcing,
ma è 50 anni fa fare il fantacalcio.
Vabbè, non posso farlo.
Scherzo.
Yeah, on that point, when we think about vehicles, when you think about 3Y as an architecture, SX as an architecture, our next generation platform is more than one segment, and really we're thinking about all the segments that are available that we haven't captured, combining it with our supply chain partners so that we can go quickly through those segments for where we need. But to Elon's point, if you make a car desirable
A me pare che stiano
and
giocando
affordable,
a sì oscuro signore.
oftentimes it doesn't necessarily matter
Comunque
what segment
figa la
it's in,
maglietta del tizio.
because it's one that you want. And we've seen that with Model 3 when
Però
a
da
lot of people
lontano
thought the sedan
sembra
was
un'auto
not going to be a
diversa.
great hit, but we sell tons of them.
Perché c'è la linea
So,
del cofano strano.
the next generation
Però vedi che anche
platform
lui
is
sta
not one
pensando
vehicle,
dove cavolo
it
è
is-
il
it is multiple,
martello.
and it's on a segment,
Sì, ma dov'è che sarà?
that we will,
Ma cazzo,
really try and
non
focus on the
martello.
affordability and desirability point moreover than where we started.
No, poi tipo, io non mi ho tolto il martello.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think, it's an old saying, battles are won with tactics, wars are won with logistics.
Vabbè, Automoto ha chiuso la live 25 minuti fa. Mi sa che non c'è niente all'orizzonte. Sì, ma che
being a very
incentro.
significant percentage of an industry,
che
you
tardi,
can't
solo
overcapacitize. It's
due
not
per tutti.
realistic.
Marco Trezzi, sei arrivato
and
fin
some of
qui,
these things like you've said,
sappilo, tra 5
dual
minuti
source
c'è la
or
Model
triple
2.
source. You can do that maybe for small things, but you can't do it for big
ormai
things because if you're triple sourced
È Pasquale che dovrebbe essere quello che a stare nel live.
Io l'ho sognata, invece è andata
Pasquale, no, non c'è.
Pasqua, lasciami a me la carta di credito che te la compro io appena la presento.
Dai, metti uno nei crediti, così va bene.
overage that's
Ma sì, tra 5 minuti, se non riesci a resistere 5 minuti, compra lui
and then
adesso.
you
Se fra
have
5
expediting
minuti
costs
non sono
because
passati
inevitably
20
something goes wrong
minuti,
somewhere and you got to
spacco
fly things
tutto.
around. So
Forse il
it's
contrario.
really just the
È una
rate of
citazione
progress
di un
is the rate at which
film.
we
È una
are able to
citazione.
scale
Ah,
a
ecco.
10,000 logistics
No,
problem.
Poi
dove
non
sono le
sono
quelle
vecchio.
sicurezze.
The most significant of
È
those
una
is
Scusate, io
roba
non
cell
sono
production.
vecchio.
non potete capire, una roba del
And so
del grande
we actually
fratello.
deliberately try
Sì,
to
sì, il
overdo
babbeocola.
cell production or supply to have that exceed what is needed in vehicles.
Aspetta che la stanno
Because
per
if it
scoprire,
goes
Luigi.
below what's needed in vehicles, then with the
Adesso la tira
factories
fuori dalla
stalled.
tasca, Elon, vedrai.
Sì, sì, sì.
So, but then what do you do with all these extra cells? It's like, well, okay, so the much easier thing to scale up and down is Powerwall and Megapack output, stationary storage.
Porta malura,
So
Gianni, passadore.
we can then
Io ho fame,
overcapacitize in
raga, ho
cells
proprio
and
fame.
packs
Non so cosa
and
mangiare.
scale
Non so, mi sa che
production
faccio
of
colazione.
stationary storage, which is much easier
Il
to
tizio a destra
scale
era
than
concentrato a
vehicle production.
leggere la bomboletta.
So that's strategically, I think, a good thing.
Ah no, è un microfono.
Yeah, I mean, the capex for Megapack is tiny compared to capex for vehicles.
Esatto,
And,
Raimondo.
Also, Megapack demand is quasi-infinite. It basically, as long as we are competitive with utilities, we can sell as many like it's yeah,
Basta.
quasi-infinite demand for that. Really.
Quasi infinite
For
demand.
many
È già la
terawatt
seconda volta
hours.
che lo dice,
And we got a
infinite
long way to go to
demand.
get to many terawatt hours.
Sì,
per
basta
year.
buttare dentro un po' di parole strane.
Dan? Let's go to Dan.
Finite le domande.
Li conoscono uno a uno perché li chiamano per nome.
I think we know
Sì, sì, si erano già
competitive
fissati.
dynamics differ significantly by region. We know cost dynamics differ by region. We saw that with your China Gigafactory, far superior cost to what you had at Fremont. I realized it was a new factory, but there are clearly different dynamics. So to what extent are the cost strategies that you've laid out today, do they differ by region, or is there more of a global one-size-fits-all approach on reducing cost?
Perché accendi il microfono.
Yeah, I think we're pretty consistent on the strategy here. But we'll try to as much localize it as possible. Like in China, 95%, over 95%
La
of
signora
our
si
supply
sta
chain
addormentando, guarda.
all the way from the first tier to the second tier, even to the third tier.
Adesso si appoggia al tizio.
Give us, generate a tremendous savings on COGS. We also have a very localized labor force. We have access to skilled labor force in the region, and Yangtze Delta region, in Shanghai in particular referring to.
No, o stai ancora facendo il...
Sì, no, sto
facendo il fantacalcio. Guarda che è tutto bianco.
In China, we have probably
vedete negli occhiali scorre la formazione.
Ed ecco a voi la prima auto termica di Tesla.
Esatto, Tesla diesel.
Ecco come sono i nuovi distributori di idrogeno.
Il Tesla Hydrogen Distribution.
Hydrocharger.
Hydrocharger. Labor market are different region by region and country by country, but we try our best to localize.
Bello country by country.
Yeah,
sì, bello country by country.
I think that's absolutely
lui.
Give us an advantage.
Diesel ad olio di colza è bello. Mi mancava.
Allora, ho una AirPods che è morta la prima volta che l'ho scaricata in vita mia, quindi tra poco mi sa che
è un segno.
È un segno, uno è andato.
Tocca attaccare il filo, va.
No,
siamo ancora in 600, ragazzi. 620 persone.
Ma secondo me 620 che tipo l'hanno acceso e sono addormentati.
Vi chiedo tutti di mettere like, ragazzi.
Esatto, iscrivetevi al canale.
Iscrivetevi al
Tutti
canale.
fate tasto destro, apri nuova scheda duplicata. Diventiamo 1200. Dai.
Basta domande, raga.
Certainly the manufacturing stuff that Colin, Pete, and myself talked about, whether you make it here or you make it in Europe or you make it in Asia, it applies everywhere. We think about that from the ground up, not specific to any region.
Tesla Model 2 TDC multijet.
Yeah, just one thing I would add to Tom's point about localization
Con 1000
and to
file.
Lars's point here But I would actually say that we're moving in a direction of more standardization in terms of our factories and our processes and our cost reduction approaches. So as we've been thinking about the next generation platform, we've been
Secondo
thinking
me Elon
about
Musk sta
the
programmando.
volume that we aspire to build against that, how many individual factories do we need to
lo sguardo è
build,
quello.
and what is the fastest possible way to expand that footprint around the world. What we've done with Model Y is each factory is an incremental
La ragazza
improvement of
su
the previous
un
factory, which
niente
requires
vuoto.
engineering hours, engineering
Ah,
spend,
guarda le
each
mani di
factory
Elon,
design,
mosso
and
del
then you end up
potere.
with factories that are slightly
Sa
different
cosa
from each
vuole
other.
dire.
And as we move towards the next generation platform, I think
Sul serio,
the term
Con le
we
mosse
use,
del
Lars,
potere.
is copy-paste. So to get it right from the first
E guarda la
time,
faccia. No, no.
there's certainly things
cazzata.
that we learn and we
No,
take
no.
and we make adjustments to, but try to have as much standardization and
Sto
commonization as
pensando
possible, which
quanto gli
allows
deve
us to
dare
go as quickly as
di
possible with
liquidazione.
expansion.
Volentieri, se ti aumentiamo la rata di 2...
Thanks. Two questions, one for Zach and one for Ashok. So for Zach, how do you think about the long-term growth and operating margins for the business? And when we look at 150 to 175 billion in CapEx, is the remaining balance of that, is that essentially the CapEx guidance through 2030? For Ashok, the multi-trip reconstruction that you highlighted, how is that different from what Mobileye does with the REM map that they have? And can you give us any color on the AP4 hardware?
AP4, quello di cui abbiamo parlato nella presentazione di
So
Model
with
S.
respect to operating margins, we intend to continue to improve operating expenses
Ma
as a
l'hardware
percentage of revenue over time.
4.0?
And we're continuing
quello
to
di cui
take
abbiamo
cost out of our
parlato
products
nel
and try to
video
keep gross margins
Model
in a
S
place
Play.
that's healthy as well.
Sì.
And so, from the
Vediamo se
hardware
sparano
perspective of
qualcosa.
the business, it's our expectation that we'll continue to stay in a healthy place over time. And then there's a software portion that's added on top of that. And so Elon has commented on this many times about the impact that full self-driving software can have on the economics of the business. And in that space, profitability, operating margins would be impacted dramatically.
Potrebbero
Specifically to your point
droppare la
about
Model
CapEx
C o le
guidance,
C.
the intent of that slide was not to
Mancano
provide
8
specific
minuti.
guidance, but to just be transparent about internally what our rough estimates are,
Aspettiamo ancora
and to
8
provide
minuti, poi
context
andiamo a
that we
dormire.
think getting to 20 million vehicles per year
La
and 1
faccia di
terawatt
Pasqua
hour of
sei
energy storage
illuminata.
is very
Sì.
feasible relative to our expected cash generation.
Sei riacceso.
That's a number
Io
that
ho già le
will move
occhiaie per
as we
domani mattina
learn.
pronte.
We may choose to vertically integrate more into things. We may find efficiencies elsewhere. To the whole conversation we were having earlier about do we do mining, do we not do mining?
Fabio
But,
dice: Mi ero
the
addormentato, sono
entire
tutti
point is to
allineati
say
che
that,
fanno
that this is
presentare una
something
nuova
that's
Tesla
entirely
o li
possible based upon our
fucilano?
forecast.
No,
No, l'hanno già presentato.
Regarding the
Hanno già
multi-trip
presentato la
reconstruction,
Model 2.
my point I was trying to make was
domani.
that
Esatto.
we want to auto-label most of the data, and we can collect data from the fleet and then reconstruct local areas that can act as supervision for those clips. Since we want to build a
Indiano inglese è
scalable
troppo
self-driving
bello.
system, we don't want to really rely on HT maps or anything, even though we could trivially build
Du-du-du.
something using the same technology.
È vero,
This
sono
is
troppo
mostly
bravi,
for
un
auto-labeling.
sacco.
And this provides precise 3D labels for all the video sequences involved in the reconstruction.
Something that's, I don't know if we touched on this much, but in terms of training, we have one of the biggest neural net training systems in the world, and that we expect to increase that
Attenzione,
by an
Pasqua
order of
prende le
magnitude
cuffie
by the
per
end of this
4
year,
minuti.
and probably another order of magnitude by the end of next year with some combination of NVIDIA and Dojo. So I'm not sure the scale of that is quite dawned on people. It's enormous.
Enormous.
Maybe the final two questions.
Deve essere tipo frizzato per qualche secondo.
Okay, Alex Potter with Piper. So I definitely want to ask Drew or
dry
anybody else
battery.
up there for an update on dry battery electrode, right? So if you're going to try to overcapacitize towards cells, scale a lot of this, clearly there's a lot of moving pieces and it's a complex sort of orchestra with the supply chain, but a lot of it comes down to dry battery electrode, at least to me. So how are you trending? That was the most fascinating part of the factory tour for me, and looking through that window and seeing that this is clearly not a science project. but anything that you're willing to disclose, yields, progress, where you are today versus where you thought you were going to be. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, as you saw, right? Like, this is a real factory making a lot of dry electrode in an automated fashion.
Gianni, non
We've made a
abbandonarci.
lot of progress.
Tra 4 minuti la
Droppano
presento.
magari
It's a
Y2.
spectrum. Like we're perfectionists.
Ormai.
We have clear end goals.
degli Y.
And we are
Riunire degli
goes by
alcolisti
making progress
anonimi.
towards those end goals,
Bello
whether it's
questo.
speed of the tool, yield of that process, or the downstream process.
La cuffia di Pasquale è andata.
We haven't stalled out yet on the rate of progress either, and that's both on the anode and the cathode side. And I think the great thing about where we are with the overcapacity that Elon mentioned is it's giving us the opportunity to experiment as we go, rather than just being like stuck to something that we happened to kick off a year and a half ago and it is here. Something that Elon has said to the team many times is it's okay to scrap equipment or money. It's not okay to scrap time. So the way we've been approaching it is probabilistically, what do we think is the most likely thing to succeed? And even actually in the factory here, you saw more than one anode line. They are actually operating two slightly different versions of the final process step of how we're entering the tool. And it's a competition, you know, which is going to be higher yield, which is going to perform better. And we have the luxury to be able to do that. And we're taking full advantage of it to advance the
Model 2
technology as
palle,
quickly as
come
possible.
aveva scritto il tizio prima.
The dry electrode problem is really quite a hard problem. I mean, we acquired Maxwell really just for the dry electrode technology, but just illustrates what a gigantic gap there is between something working at small scale and at large scale. And we've had an extremely talented team of engineers working on scaling the dry electrode process and having it be reliable and consistent. And we've been grinding hard, literally and figuratively, on this for quite a while. It seems likely that we will be able to
resisti 2 minuti.
this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically increasing the output week over week, like roughly
sta
quarter is our internal target, and we're tracking to that. I think what you saw is effectively like a ton of material per tool. It's kind of like hard to
Dopo solo 3 ore.
rationalize like what that really means, but it's
Matteo ci gira perché non riesce, se non si addormenta.
There's just different kinds of problems. Like even if you have like 0.1% escape fines into the enclosure that your equipment is in, now you have a dust problem, and like that could short out some electronics. It's like just things like this, where when you're on a lab scale, you don't even notice it, but when you're doing thousands
Io mi chiedo, ma come facciamo a essere così tanti
it's like,
ancora?
oh, a new failure mode we found, and that's where we're at. But we're knocking those out though.
La gente
and
ci
the
crede,
team is
forte.
grinding through it, but progress every week.
Il Tesla è il suono più veloce della luce, in effetti.
Thanks for taking the question. I have a few follow-ups on the next-gen vehicle. First, when do you think we'll get a look at it, maybe a prototype?
Finalmente la domanda giusta. Quando è che potremo vedere un cavolo di prototipo di Tesla Model 2?
And then third, I think you mentioned that you would produce it in other plants in addition to Mexico. Should we take that to mean that
Questa qui se la sono scritta. Adesso la risposta sarà eccola qui.
È scriptata.
Perché sono le 2. Vedi.
I think we'll actually have to probably decline that answer.
Non vuole rispondere.
We will have a proper sort of product event, but that would be jumping the gun if we were to answer your questions. Maybe another question, if there's...
Ok, non
Avremo un product event, a posto, chiudiamo.
Ok,
Salve Tronati, grazie, buona serata.
per la Model 2, ragazzi. Quindi non c'è niente oggi.
I have 2 questions. This has really been a very impressive afternoon. Thank you so much. Elon, I'm curious, as you've doubled and you'll double again, what you've learned about
La squadra che non vuole solo andare via.
E siamo ancora in 550 dopo questa notizia.
Esatto.
Tutti addormentati probabilmente.
Potevano dirlo 3
Col
ore e mezzo
telefono
fa.
acceso.
Stanno registrando la live.
Could help you make cars
Maledetto.
sort of, less hard to make. Thank you.
Che scammata.
I don't see AI helping us make cars anytime soon.
Sotto il porticato.
At that point, I mean,
Mi hanno praticamente chiesto se ChatGPT può creare un'auto. Lui ha detto, non credo.
we'll just chill out.
Mi spiace.
I mean, I'm a little worried about the
Però mi piacerebbe
AI stuff.
molto potermi rilassare, lui dice. E fargli fare tutta l'intelligenza artificiale, ma non funziona così purtroppo.
Penso che non vedremo mai Pasquale con una Tesla. Ma in realtà è già in arrivo.
Tra 5 minuti droppano la Model 2.
No, 8.
Altri 8. Raga, io direi che potremmo anche salutarci. Non posso alzare troppo la voce per salutarvi. Quindi
ragazzi, grazie veramente tanto per averci seguito fino alla fine. E noi ci vediamo domani con il video dedicato che non girerò questa notte perché ho sonno.
E vi ringrazio veramente tanto. Grazie. Abbiamo superato il record, abbiamo fatto 1000 visualizzazioni, 1000 erotte, 1200 persone connesse tutto il giorno, tutta sera, tutta notte. Insomma, anch'io faccio un po' fatica in questo momento a salutare e ringraziarvi. Comunque grazie, e vorrei ringraziare anche il mitico Pasquale che è rimasto fino alla fine, e anche se non ci credeva nessuno, e il mitico Ginger, e grande Ginger, grazie anche dell'aiuto con la Model X, la nera sotto, o Model S, e anche il buon Elon Musk che in questo momento sta parlando e ne ha i coglioni pieni anche lui. E quindi grazie veramente a tutti. Grazie ragazzi, noi ci vediamo alla prossima, va bene? Se dovesse uscire la Model 2, ve lo dico comunque, faccio un'altra live sempre questa notte.